You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players, and all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Hello everyone and welcome back to episode 267 of Arsenal Pass. This is the Omens of the Third Age limited set review here on Arsenal Pass. Hayden Dale with Pankaj, Bhojwani, and we are back. The boys are back in town. Baby, are we back with some limited set review. The last time we did this was a year ago. High Seas. Pankaj, is this only your second limited set review then?
I think we did Hunted together.
Oh, Hunted, true. Third. Yep. So
The High Seas one was interesting. I remember I was in India when we were recording that. I was there for
that's crazy.
A wedding or something.
Yeah.
Or was it Hunted? One of them. I think it might have been Hunted. One of them I was not in the country. And was recording on the tiny mic. But,
yeah.
So we're in for another potentially 4-hour long haul already.
Nope, we're going to make sure I like a set review to be 3 hours, 3.5 max. I think we can do it. We got to stay focused, Pankaj. We're going to hold ourselves accountable, hold our hands up, hold ourselves accountable. And
we say that.
Arsenal Pass listenership must also keep us accountable. Of course, we want to make sure we give you a nice comprehensive view of this latest limited set of Flesh and Blood, but at the same time we want to make sure that it's concise, that you can make sure you can listen to this before you hit your pre-release this weekend. We want to set you up with all the things you need to know about what cards we think are going to be important to look out for, which cards are overrated, which cards are underrated, and then of course things will change, and this is something that I definitely found with this set, Pankaj, and I think more as we develop limited in Flesh and Blood. This is also very true in High Seas. Hunted a little bit less so. I think Archetype's a little more set. But these cards have a lot of variability in their value depending on the type of deck they're in and what you need. I feel like our limited sets are becoming more package orientated in terms of I'm looking for X amount of these sorts of cards or X amount of these sort of cards, and those then go up and down in value depending on what you're looking for.
I think synergies is the term that comes to mind.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
It's getting a little bit more synergy focused, whereas I do feel like limited, maybe on even Uprising time was definitely a lot more math focused. It was you picked. Oh my god, I feel like we're so far from the days of pick the 3 for 7. That kind of used to be the mantra. It's just just pick the 3 for 7 and just keep setting 3 for 7s at your opponent in limited. And it does feel like this set and High Seas both definitely broke that mold quite a little bit. Something we do need to do this time, I think we spoke about this in the High Seas one, but anytime we come to a card where we are one grade apart,
sure,
we need to note it down and then come back to it in a few weeks, maybe after National Season, before the Pro Tour, as we talk about the limited part of the Pro Tour.
All right, well, since I'm on the duty of putting the cards up on screen, I'm going to give you that responsibility, Pankaj, of marking those cards down, and I am on putting on the cards up on screen view, so we can trade some roles there. So limited set review, as you said, we're back after a year. So many of our listeners may have never tuned in to an Arsenal Pass limited set review. This is something this is one of our first episodes in Arsenal Pass. We have, for every limited set, done a limited. I think we maybe missed one actually. We've done a limited set review, and it's something that we really enjoy doing. Both Brendan, Patrick, and myself were massive fans of limited. Pankaj and myself average out to be pretty big fans of limited at the end of the day, when you add our two passions together.
I think I'm on the level of Brendan in terms of how much I enjoy limited.
Yeah, to be fair, he did come down. He used to be a massive limited enjoyer, and then he came down to being more of a CC fan, I would say. And you were definitely more of a Classic Constructed fan than a limited fan, which is perfectly reasonable take, I would say. I don't begrudge you that much for it. But anyway, so if you've never listened to an Arsenal Pass set review, this is what we do. We go through every single common and rare in this set, and we will give them a grade. I'll talk through our rating scale in a second. But the grade is not the be-all and end-all. It's the conversation that we're going to give you about where these cards fit into things, which hero, if it's a lightning card or a generic, are you looking to play this in? Where do we think this might land in some of the potential pick orders, or how important these cards might be within archetypes for these heroes? And of course, that grade is just a bit of a summation of where we think this card sits in terms of its importance in the limited format. Particularly, we talk about draft mostly when we do this, because we know sealed it's a pre-release weekend thing, but then we move firmly into draft. So with that all said, actually one other thing I want to call out Pankages, our grades will often reflect the fact that a card may be quite specific to just one hero or to even an archetype within a hero. You might be like, that card's really powerful. Yes, it may be very powerful, but it may need a lot of things to support it, or it may only be for one hero, and that could knock it down half a grade, a grade. Whereas something like the best lightning card in the set may well get a very solid, easy A. Anyway, rating scale, Pankaj, Bhojwani. Rating scale A, B, C, D, and we also do some subgrades within that, and we will give half a grade as well here or there, a B plus, a B minus, for instance. I'm going to talk you through what each of these grades represents to give you a bit of a view of what some of these cards in the past may have been and how we bit of a cheat sheet of how we grade these. So A's, these are the best of the best. These are the cards that will be the focal point of your deck in Limited. They're going to have a big impact. Some of these may represent even to the level of being something like a bomb. That would be like an A plus. When we say bomb, we mean like a game-defining card. When I think about some of these best cards, the cards that you want in your decks, especially if I'm thinking bombs, some of these are often Majestics, but they can be rares and sometimes commons as well, like Crippling Crush, from Welcome to Wraith is a great example of that, like V of the Vanguard, some of the most powerful equipment, something like a Hardened Crosstrap is definitely an A plus as well. If we look at some more recent sets, I think if we go to High Seas, for instance, I think like the Battalion Barks, the Red Fin Harpoons of the world were definitely sat in this territory. Pankaj, any other kind of A's you think of from heavy hitters that you think are some of the best cards in the set?
From heavy hitters specifically?
Sorry, I said High Seas. Sorry, High Seas. Or other sets if you want to share anything from other sets.
Yeah, I mean, some Majestics come to mind, like some like actually game plan defining, game winning Majestics like Germinate and Miragai come to mind for me from sets of the past. And I think for me a lot of like A is, I think, something we both are quite reserved in giving out, and I think often pieces that end up in the A category are equipment, particularly in some sets where the equipment plays a very, very big part.
I mean, equipment is just so good. Like Sip, right? Starts and play, stays and play element, but also starts and play, get to be used at some point. The whole philosophy of Flesh and Blood is start at your higher, start full and end empty, right? On fumes as the battle sort of winds down. And in Limited, equipment is also so important. Obviously, it's relative to the power level of the format, but for instance, using something like a Hardened Crosstrap as an example, that's the value of a whole card often. You cannot be understated how strong equipment are in this
game. I think in Hunted specifically, the equipment really stand out for me. Like the whole Leapfrog set, like having like a few pieces of those makes such a massive difference. The Red Alert set as well in the Hunted, I think in that set, because of how attack reaction heavy it was, and how your life thresholds really mattered because of how attack react heavy it was, the equipment played a very, very big part. I don't think there was too many main deck cards that were like super in the A category, but the equipment certainly were.
Yeah, Art of Dragonfire, I think was maybe one of those cards though. I think that card is a typical A plus, honestly.
It's build defining, right? That's what we call build defining. Your game plan then becomes make a fealty, get my opponent to this threshold, and just end the game.
It's a first pickable card, right? And that's what our A's and A pluses often are, like first, second picks. I will also point out the equipment piece as well, because of the way Flesh and Blood has changed and Limited to now have 30 card, specifically 30 card lock decks. You now no longer have the decision where equipment was maybe a bit more contentious a few sets ago, where you'd say, well, do I want this piece of equipment that, say it's an Iron Rot legs, right? Just one blade break defense, or do I want an extra card in my deck for potential fatigue considerations or a 3-block, right? Now 30 cards, every single piece of equipment is so much more important. That if you have 4 pieces of blade break equipment, right, that is a full 20% extra life that you start the game with effectively, right? Not to mention break points, stopping on hits, all these sorts of things, and the extra value those can give. So anyway, A's. Let's get on to B's. B's are your above average role players. These cards are important to an overall strategy for any given hero, or in the form of a generic. These cards can also be super efficient. Typically, these are above rate cards. Some good examples of B's in previous sets. I think High Seas, On the Horizon, classic B+, I think. Swift Shot, Go Again Arrow, very strong B. If I go back to Hunted, I think Hunt the Hunter, Scar Tissue Red, these are great examples of Bs. They typically maybe face value, like the damage input they have, maybe on rate, but they may have an effect that pushes it above the rate, creates a resource that you really need, for instance, in the form of Scar Tissue, right, by marking the opponent. Pankaj, any thoughts on Bs?
Okay, so they're not game plan defining, but they feel really, really good to play and resolve is, I guess, where I'd put them. And
yes.
I definitely agree with all the examples that you provided.
I think typically the best decks have a higher proportion of Bs than anything else. So yes, As are very important, but sometimes those can actually be a little bit clunky if you have too many As because they can be a little more game plan defining. To your point, Bs are often just a lot of overrate or really strong value of cards, and that's where like more Bs than Cs can indicate a really strong deck.
Yeah, I think where I'd put it is Bs I feel like are the ones that actually more often than not are what win you the game.
Yep.
Like what I mean is that you very often don't need even a single A in your deck to be able to win, but if you have a high proportion of Bs, that just ekes out enough value for you to take down the game.
Mm-hmm. Cool. We'll get on to Cs. These are the true role players. In our set review, a lot of these cards are going to be Cs. These are the cards that are going to make up most of your deck. They're going to support your overall game plan. When you get into, even from picks 4, 5 onwards for a pack, mostly you're going to be drafting Cs. I think some good examples of what these would be. If I go to high Cs, like Walk the Plank. 2 card 7 in high Cs was like just a really solid role player, I think. You've got things like Burly Bones, for instance. If I go back to the Hunted, Dust Run Outlaw. It's a 1-cost chain extender or go again card in the Hunted. So these are what your Cs are. They're just solid role players. They're going to make up majority of your deck most of the time. It's very hard to get a deck full of all Bs. You're going to probably have, 70% of your deck, 60% of your deck made up with Cs, and that is perfectly normal.
Yeah, just think of, just like some of the standard Fang attack reacts in Hunted, just like the Searing Gaze, like not the one that necessarily makes a feel to you directly, just like this is a 0 for 2 attack react that becomes 0 for 3 with the sword. I'm like, that's very much in the C category. You sort of need, you like end up with some of them and you need them for your deck to function, but you're not like, it's not something that when you look at a pack, these cards push you into that hero. But seeing a fair number of them in the midway through a pack can be a signal for, okay, this hero's open because these are role players that the deck needs. And yeah, to your point, most cards that we grade will be in this category.
Often as well, you'll end up with, say, like a red B, and a C could be a yellow or blue version of that card often as well. You might have a card that's really overrate in red, but the effect is still relevant at yellow or blue. So, maybe that is something like a swift shot in blue, for instance. It has go again, it has utility, it's a blue 3 block. But it's not a B, you're not drafting it highly, but it's a really strong role player that you do want in your deck. Lastly, Ds. Ds are cards you want to play as little of as possible. They are pure filler with basically no upside. These are just cards that say block 2 on the bottom and nothing else. Cards you want to avoid as much as possible. These should be hopefully the last few cards you pick up in a pack. If I think about high Cs, I'm thinking about cards like Swindler's Grift, for instance. There was just so many better options than this card, and particularly like colors like yellow and blue, like just pure cards that I did not want to put in my deck. I think Kelpie, Tangled Mess as like the ally, like that's the ally I wanted the least in when I'm playing in high Cs. Hunted, I think like yellow, throw yourself at them is like a really strong example. A lot of these cards will be oftentimes, I think, yellows in sets, but I think we're seeing less of that now as LSS work towards a bit more of a differentiation or polarization in the way that they print less yellows or less relevant yellows into sets. And actually, we're going to be talking about some of that design space as we go through the set review, because there's some really interesting yellows, reds only, and blues only in the set as well, non-cycles.
A little fewer than high Cs, I think, in terms of the number of, or just in this one color, which is at least a little bit helpful as we do our set review. D to me is the category of, this is in my deck because I didn't want to put a crack bauble in there. It's literally in that same level of, okay, you just need to reach 30 legal cards, and then you start looking at this before you start looking at crack baubles, is the way I'd put it.
Cool. And then lastly, we have a bit of a side grade, which is our sideboard grade. We have two, actually. We have a sideboard grade and we have a build around grade. You won't hear us use these very often, but sideboard grades are typically cards that against maybe 2 of the 3 heroes in the set, not relevant, but in the mirror, could be very good, or against a particular matchup. We saw some of these in Hunted in particular, and we've seen these in sets like Monarch before as well, where they specifically target a talent or a hero. So you think about like the Arachne specific cards or the Fang specific cards from Hunted, for instance. But then they also could be things like Gold Hunter Light Sail and High Seas, right? Like this Go Again Pirate Attack, where against a lot of matchups, not very relevant, but when you need to be killing allies and you need that access to Go Again, can be very relevant. So that's what the sideboard grade could look like. And then we have a setup grade, and the setup grades are typically cards that we would say, on their own, are just below rate. They're probably Ds. But if you have the right set of cards, or you have the right deck built around them, they can be very, very strong cards. I think like Flurry Stance from Hunted was a good example of this for like a high Cs, like the Line or Sinker. versions of hook, line, or sinker. I think with these as well, where if you had the right ratios of cards or the right second cycle plan, these cards could actually be very strong. But in of themselves, they are D's, maybe C minuses, C's at best.
Yeah, basically they're not cards that you want to like pick early. To be honest, it's quite difficult. I guess the sideboard great cards you can sort of get into later if you're like, okay, you have a pretty solid deck going. You're like, okay, let me just shore up this particular matchup because you have the space to. The setup grade ones kind of very rarely come together, but you might have like the one draft in like 50 where like, oh, okay, this flurry stance actually won me the game and I set it up.
Yep. Cool. Right, let's get into all things that are Omens of the Third Age, and just want to talk generally about some set notes and then some of the abilities, effects, keywords, types that you're going to see in the set, just to make sure everyone's familiar with those. There's a lot of lightning cards rather than generics in the set, and that's really worth noting because there are things that pay off for lightning cards in the set. Specifically, there is not that many generics. This is a class and lightning set very, very heavily, which is quite unique to other sets we've seen previously. This is a one talent set. So previously we've had talents. We've often had 2 talents. We have had 1 talent since before, but if we think back, for instance, for Rosetta, we had Earth and Lightning. If we go all the way back to Tales of Aria, we obviously had Earth, Lightning, and Ice. We're just with Lightning in Omens. So it means no split cards, right? We don't have the talent sort of split cards or the pies that we've had previously where you might say, oh, well, I have Earth, which plays between these 2 heroes. Lightning plays between all 3 heroes, and then you have the class cards specifically, and generics also play between all 3. So there's no cards really hard and fast that only sit between 2 heroes. However, there is cards that we'll talk through that lean into particularly heroes rather than others, and sometimes that means they might lean into 2 heroes, and both heroes may, say Oscilio and Ziggy may want access to that card, whereas Aurora may have no interest in that card just from the way they play out and how they support strategies.
And on the flip side, sometimes some of these cards play itself against a particular hero as well. There's definitely some cards where I'm like, oh, this is good into Oscilio specifically, so it's kind of sideboard grade.
Sideboard grade, baby.
But other than that, it's kind of meh. So the shape of this set is very similar to both High Seas and MST, both of our previous 2 mid-year sets, where it's 3 classes, 3 different heroes, and then 1 shared talent across the 3 of them. Or in the case of High Seas, it was a class that was shared amongst the 3 of them, but effectively the same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Want to just quickly touch on some of the abilities, effects, keywords you're going to hear in this set. And the first time that we get to these, we will read them out. But just in case you're not familiar, we have some returning keywords. Of course, you're going to see Go Again. But you're going to see things like Opt being in the set and a couple of cards, Arcane Barrier. We're going to see something quite interesting with Instance, but also twice per turn Instance, which we'll talk to when we get to those. We have Amp returning in a small way in the set. Dominate is actually on a card in the set as well. Ward is obviously going to feature very prevalently. And then we have 3 new keywords, which is Starfall, Quick Strike, and Fragment, and they are relative 1 each to each of the classes and heroes in the set. So once we get to those heroes and we read the first card, we'll talk a little bit about how those keywords work, but don't worry about that. You'll hear all about it when we get to it. Pankaj, I want to quickly just touch on tokens in the set. So we have 3 tokens in the set, 3 things that heroes are going to make. Not a lot of tokens in the set, actually. We've had some sets recently with a lot of tokens in them, but we've just got Embodiment of Lightning, Lightning Flow, and Ponders as things we can make in this set.
And 2 of them are returning as well. So it's just Lightning Flow is the only new one, which definitely plays a massive role, especially because of the macro that we'll get into. But yeah, Ponders and Embodiments of Lightning, we've seen them before. The complexity of this set comes with all the keywords rather than the tokens, it feels like, and all the intricate interactions between them. And of course, arcane damage. Yeah,
and I wanna touch on what is the main token of this set, and I'm bringing that up right now, which is the Lightning Flow token. This is the additional resource. If we look at sets past, of course, we've had other resources outside of just what you pitch. That could be your deck in some cases, right? If we go to things like Bright Lights, if you look at High Seas, of course, that was gold. Many other iterations of this, and we're using
Rune Chance.
Yep, Rune Chance. Yep.
Yeah.
Decompose, right, and actually using your graveyard and your banish zone as a resource. We are playing with Lightning Flow. Everyone is using Lightning Flow, but they're using it in different and unique ways, and that's something we'll talk about with each of these heroes as well.
Yeah, fealty tokens, all these stuff that kind of stick around and you can cash in later for potential value. And in this case, so this is a very interesting token where Lightning Flows themselves don't inherently do anything. Like there's nothing on the card. But I think at this point we can move on and talk about the macro, which gives text to these cards on top of other things. So Lightning Flow, the primary use case, quote-unquote primary, is that all the heroes have abilities that require you to spend a lightning flow to actually activate the ability. In the case of Ziggy, that is super important for them to be able to activate the weapon at all, because weapon sort of requires most of the time that you've activated your hero ability. But for the other two, they cash in lightning flows for other effects. But the micro also gives all these lightning flows Spell Void 1, which effectively says each lightning flow gains you 1 health, because arcane damage is a very big part of this format. All 3 heroes send it at each other, so your Spell Void's always going to be relevant.
Yeah, and unlike High Seas, where it almost changed the way that the game played from a turn-to-turn basis, and quite significantly, right? Like, it dictated a lot of how cards actually played as well. This does a little bit less of that. It is, in some ways, it can dictate the way you play cards, and it can also... it's more subtle, though, I'd say. Like, with the Treasure Island, it was really overt. Like, gold is what fueled everything. Now, lightning flow obviously does fuel everything, but Omens is what it interacts the other way, where Treasure Island creates it, this utilizes it, right? So it's a lot more subtle, I think, in terms of the way that this influences the game. It's still very, very important and very major, but it does add a very different layer to how these games are meant to play out versus High Seas.
Yeah, in High Seas, it felt like because of Treasure Island, breakpoints were super, super important. And over here, it feels like it's not really so much the breakpoints, but it's any card that says create a lightning flow.
Yeah.
Of which there are quite a few.
There's quite a few. All right. Should we get into our first hero and first set of cards? So the way this works is we're going to go top to bottom through the set. The way that the set order is structured in the card order is literally by hero, which is great. So we're going to go the 3 heroes in order. Then we're going to go to the lightning cards. And then we're going to go to the generics to finish it off. So, Pankaj, where are we starting? And for audio listeners as well, we'll read out the cards as well as we go. If you're an audio only, and if you're on video, or you want to swap to our YouTube version, we have images of all these cards as we read them through.
Cool. So we are going to start with Ziggy, who is the Lightning Illusionist hero, and they have 20 health and 4 intellect. And their hero ability reads, instant pay 2 resources, tap the hero, destroy a lightning flow you control, banish another lightning aura permanent you control with no holo counters, and then return the banished aura to the arena with a holo counter. So effectively, you pay 2 resources and a lightning flow, and you tap your hero, which is definitely a very real cost as well. You pay these, and you get to flicker one of your auras, which means you either get to double dip on their enter the battlefield effects, or double dip on the exit the battlefield effects. They come with a weapon which is tied very closely to the hero ability. It says instant, pay 1, tap the weapon, deal 2 arcane damage to target hero, activate this only if an aura with a holo counter has entered the arena under your control this turn, which means you can pay a full blue and a lightning flow, tap your Ziggy, double dip on the either on whatever effect of the aura that you are flickering, and then also activate the weapon Aphrodite to deal 2 damage to the opponent. I do want to note something very, very quickly about something that might be missed regarding Ziggy's hero ability. Banishing the lightning aura permanent is part of the cost.
Yes.
Which means the opponent cannot deal you arcane damage in between. And there's no priority for them to deal arcane damage to destroy the aura that you are trying to flicker.
Yep.
That has ward, for example. So as long as you activate the ability, you will be able to flicker the thing and nothing will stop that.
I think it's a really good design, like, to not add this layer of complexity of like, oh, I want to flick this ward, but will it get blown up in response? And just make it clean of like, when I activate this, it just happens. It's just very, very important to note that's the way that works. And I think you also touched on something really important, which was you tap Ziggy to do the hero ability. And that is, we're going to talk about that because it is so, so important. All these heroes tap to activate their hero ability, and it is very, very relevant.
Now, we have to note that while the banishing is part of the cost, they can respond to the aura coming back into play, which means for that whatever moment, you might actually be shields down, and that's something you might need to be wary of. If you're flickering your ward to aura, for example, while it's in the banish zone, your Oscilio could try and kill you while you don't have the ward in play, for example.
Yeah. Or your mirror opponent. It's very easy with Ziggy to deal like 4 arcane damage at instant speed. I do find Aphrodite, like, a lot of time is being utilized at instant speed, which I think is actually important to note as well. And when I say instant speed, I mean like on your opponent's turn, rather. Right, let's get into the cards, Pankaj, and I'll let you kick us off, and then we can go one for one from there, maybe reading these cards.
Cool. We're starting with Blink of an Eye. This is a 2-cost Lightning Illusionist action attack that attacks for 7 and blocks for 3. And it says, whenever this fragments, you may banish a lightning aura permanent you control with no holo counters, then return it to the arena with a holo counter. And it has Fragment, which is a new keyword in the set. And it says, whenever a card with 2 or more defense defends this, this gets -2. So as long as they put, say, 1/3 block in front of this attack value goes down to 5, and you'll only be leaking 2 over the top. But of course, you get some fragment value from it. The fragment on this card is basically a free Ziggy activation.
Yep. So we can talk about Fragment. I just want to note one thing with Fragment is if you defend with 2 cards, there will be 2 triggers of Fragment though. So, and there are some cards that do, you might say, well, if I block with 2/2 blocks, why is that relevant? It'll go down to 3. Well, that if you block with 2/2 blocks, it would go down to 3, not 5. So you can get the value out of that. And also there are cards that pump in this set as well, which we'll get to as well. So in fact, there's an aura that pumps as well. So I think that's worth noting. Do you want to talk a little bit about Fragment? Because it's the first time we're seeing it, and we're going to talk a lot about Fragment quite a bit. And just in terms of like the importance of Fragment, how good is Fragment? Yeah,
I think a play pattern that has surprised me or impressed me the most regarding Ziggy, and I guess just for context, I think a lot of us, when we saw Fragment, we were like, this doesn't seem like a very strong keyword, because you give your opponent's blocks so much value. And it's not like these cards are crazy overrate. These cards are 1 point overrate in terms of, say, Blink of an Eye comes in as a 2 for 7, rather than typically cards of this stat line comes in for 2 for 6. So it comes for 1 more, but you lose 1 extra point when they block with it. So then it goes down to becoming very below rate because it comes 2 for 5. However, the fragment is where you try and recoup some of that lost value. And one thing that I've been very impressed of, and we definitely touched on this as we talk about all the Ziggy cards, is Ziggy's endgame feels very, very strong in this format. When your opponent is low and you look at a fragment card, you can be almost 100% certain that your fragment will be triggering, and that lets you plan out your turn very, very effectively. You know they're going to give you the fragment, and then you know, especially with the endgame of Aphrodite on their turn as well, it just gives you a lot of play in the endgame. So to me, Ziggy's whole play pattern revolves around trying to maximize some of these fragment cards in the early game, but getting your opponent low as soon as possible so that you know exactly how you can close the game out.
Yeah, I think Fragment is a really well-balanced mechanic, and I think there's not like a Fragment archetype or anything like that. Like, you do lose the value on these cards. You need them in like synergy. You spoke about it earlier in the pod. You need synergy with these cards. So you need the right, and there's a reason these cost 2, right? There's this real kind of tension point with Ziggy around 4 resources, around activation of your hero ability, or being able to play something like Blink of an Eye, for instance, like a fragment card, being able to play an aura, and then also being able to Aphrodite. But you'll notice with a lot of these fragment cards, they do play well with 1 blue in terms of play your fragment, threaten being able to play something like an aura afterwards. How does your opponent want to block? Can they then pressure your aura on the way back, for instance? But you can't have too many fragment cards in your deck, because they will punish you, right? In terms of you can't just play. Well, you can. There's a couple ways you can play out double fragments. Obviously, Embodiment of Lightning, and that can be quite strong. But I don't think there's necessarily this like fragment archetype. I think it's really in conjunction with some strong auras and some auras in your deck.
Sounds good. Do we want to talk about Blink of an Eye specifically then? Maybe give our grades on this?
Yeah, I think from my view, this is the most powerful fragment ability, like a free activation of your hero ability. Doesn't cost you a lightning flow token, doesn't cost you 2 resources, and the fact that also you can double flick it in a turn potentially between Blink of an Eye and your hero ability is really, really strong, and puts your opponent in some really tough situations of like, well, this is 7 damage. If I don't defend this and trigger fragment, am I just going to get punted anyway by my opponent activating their hero ability? And so I think this card is very, very strong.
Yeah, I think the 2 for 7 fragments, and this one in particular, sort of does exactly what I was talking about with Ziggy's endgame, where it feels like they just fork their opponents. This is a 2 for 7. You can't just eat 7 because then you get closer to Ziggy's endgame. But then you also giving the fragment value on this can be so incredibly impactful. The grade I gave this was a B-. I could actually see this as straight up being a B as well. My only thing with this is that you do need some really good supporting cards. It's not a standalone super strong card, which is why it isn't like higher than a B for me. It's in a B minus range. But your cards like Auric Shards and Cosmic Space Dust work very well with this kind of. There's some tension here is the thing. Why I haven't put this like super high up. One is you think of Auric Shards, Cosmic Space Dust. They fit the cost curve very well. They're one costs. But then you don't get to cash in Aphrodite unless you pitch another card. And then you may think, okay, then you play a 0 cost aura instead and flicker that. And then you get to Aphrodite, which is cool and all, except the 0 cost auras aren't amazing. They aren't.
Correct.
I can't think of too many 0 cost auras that you actually want to play out. They're typically blue, so they're like 1 value or something. And you're like, sure. So that's why there's like some tension there, which makes this card not a slam dunk bomb. But I agree with you that this is, I think, the strongest Fragment card. And I would take this as a signal if I see this, say, like, pick 2 or 3 and this is still around. I'd be like, okay, this could potentially be a signal. But I wouldn't necessarily first pick this. It is first pickable if the pack doesn't have too much other stuff going for it. But I'm not. Yeah, it's in that category for me.
Well, you can note down our first card we disagree on then. I think that to be a strong Ziggy deck, you need those auras, those 1 cost auras, regardless. And so I think taking this early is like a massive payoff to a synergy that you just need to have a good Ziggy deck anyway. So like this, to me, this is just like your A to your B, and you have a lot more options in your B, which are your auras. I think obviously you still need the strong auras, but I think this one has the strongest payoff of the effects and can be like game breaking. I think the value you can get out of these on some of the 1 cost auras. So I have this at an A minus. I think this is like this is a card I would take early if I mean I do struggle a little bit because I think lightning cards, because they go into, there's some lightning cards that go into every single hero in the set. I think that those are some of the things I would more first pick. But you know, if there's no particular A lightning card in the pack, like this is something I would look to and say, right, I've kind of set up with the best card in my, maybe second best card in my Ziggy deck, and now I know exactly what I'm looking for to pair with this.
Okay, that's fair. I guess to me an A is... I guess just for me, like I prefer my A's that are, in a sense, more unconditional. I guess this one still has quite a few conditions stipulated to it. It's like almost minimum a 3-card hand. And the awkwardness with the Aphrodite as well is, to me, a little bit of a sticking point. But yes, I do agree. I feel it works very well with Auric Shards in particular.
Very good.
Cosmic Space Dust as well. You're right, you do need those cards to win a Ziggy, but then that's why I'm sort of just like, so I need this card and need the other very strong card, and then they're good together. And I can agree that the combination is A-worthy, but why a single piece of it doesn't, to me, scream A, I guess is where I'm coming from. But I do agree with you that
that's a 3-card
you might need the
11,
other card to win anyway, so yeah.
That's a 3-card
but
11.
it's a combination of 2 cards, and not a single card, is I guess where
Sure.
I was coming from.
Sure. But I think that is limited. Like you to get over and above, like quite significantly above rate, more than 1 value above rate on a card. Like you do need combinations of cards, and I think this one, to your point about you needing specific things, yeah, you do. But there is a reasonable number of things that compare with this. So it's not like not like I just need to find my Blink of an Eye and my Auric Shards, or my Cosmic Space Dust. I have no other plays. Like there are other 1 cost auras that you can pair with us, or other cards you can pair with us, or even I agree with you. I think the 0 costs are a bit medium, but like you can pair some of those. So and to your point about like flexibility or like not having conditions on them, these like 7 cost these 7 power 2 cost fragments, I think are just good at base value. Like they block 3, they come in for 7. They put your opponent in tough situations, or they just have to give you a card or 2, and you're getting your value back on the card anyway. So I'm kind of, the worst case scenario is you pitch a blue and just attack with this and nothing else. In which case, I agree, the card is below. You know, that card is like a C minus D plus, right? But that's very that's the worst case scenario for this card. Every other case scenario I think for this card is like quite high.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how this shapes out. Because I think the other thing that I see about Ziggy is that clearly you want to set this up with your Auric Shards or your Cosmic Space Dust. I don't feel like Ziggy's arsenal is as free as you'd like it to be to actually make something like this work. Because oftentimes you might be forced, like, just arsenal your like 1 cost ward that you had no efficient way of playing out, or you drew your Cosmic Space Dust, you don't have a flow yet, or you were forced to use your flow, and then you had to arsenal this, and it gets it can be a bit tricky. I think I'm curious to see how this plays out in practice.
Yeah.
Should we move on to the next one?
Yeah, next up is Fraying Life Force. This is another Lightning Illusionist action attack at rare. It comes only in red. I think we did say that for Blink of an Eye as well. It only comes in red. Again, same stats as Blink of an Eye. Cost 2, 7 attack, 3 defense. It has Fragment and says whenever this fragments, you gain 1 life. So very different Fragment effect. Where are you at on this one, Pankaj?
This is, I think, the most face up. Oh, if they just put 1 card in front of this, then you went like just straight up on rate. Like you sound like a 2 for 6 basically. Because they block 3. So then now you attacked for 5, but you gained 1 back. This to me is, I don't know, this is like the definition of like role player filler. I give this just a straight C. I do like the 2 for 7 fragment part, but this one, unlike the others, don't feel like I put my opponent in enough of a bind, like even towards the end game. I feel like they can like block, sure, you gain the life, and it's like fine. This is fine. I don't hate it. I wouldn't consider this a signal either. I'm like, it's okay. It's like, I'm not unhappy to have it in my deck, but I'm not thrilled.
Yep, I think we agree. I'm a C+, only for the fact that I think there's not many 2-card 7 plays in this format. And of course, this is conditional 2-card 7, but to your point, at worst is then 2-card 6. The value of the life gain can actually be important in this format to get you off of breakpoints, especially late in the game. So when you force your opponent to have to block and they go, oh, I had lethal off 1 card, but now you're out of damage range, even forcing me, even if I didn't have to block this, which is quite interesting. So I'm a C+, but yeah, we're in the same space.
So that's it. Cool. Next, we have Scattering Conflux. Same stat line, 2 for 7, fragment card that blocks for 3. Whenever this fragments, create an embodiment of lightning token. Now, this one's super interesting. This one, I definitely prefer this compared to a gain life in terms of value. I think this, to me, is one of the cards that makes Ziggy's endgame quite strong. You send this in the endgame, they're forced to block to stay out of arcane range. They give you embodiment of lightning so that your following turn can go wide as well. To me, the awkwardness with this, again, it's similar to the Blink of an Eye awkwardness, where the deck doesn't necessarily have a crazy density of attacks that the embodiment of lightning is always cash-inable. You know, it's not an Aurora. It has all these instances, all these ward, all this other stuff. I feel like it's going to be very likely that you're like, okay, you send this at them and they have to block it. You have embodiment of lightning and you're super happy. And then you draw and your next hand has like 1 attack and then an aura that you want to flicker. And you're like, the embodiment doesn't, you don't get to do anything here. Also, unlike the other fragments, if they double block this, there's no way for you to double dip on the fragment as well. Which to me, because you'll have 2 embodiments of lightning, which don't do anything. So that to me knocks it down slightly compared to Blink of an Eye. And I gave Blink of an Eye a B-, and this is literally just a little bit lower than that. I gave it a C+.
Yeah, I just to point out as well. So these Lightning Illusionist attacks we're talking about, they're all rares. They only come in red. These ones that we're talking about at the moment, to Pankaj's point, they're basically kind of like a cycle of sorts, but not color cycle. They're fragment effect cycle. Yeah, I think that this is significantly worse than Blink of an Eye, because to your point about like you needing the combinations of cards, unlike with Blink of an Eye, you need the combination of cards on that turn. With Scattering Conflux, you need it on the next turn. So, and it's just so hard to know. So there's more unknowns, I think. And also, I think the attacks are just, I'm finding I'm playing like 6, 7, maybe even less like good attacks.
I can't believe you just said that. Did you actually just say that in the middle of this?
7, 8, who cares? I'm not a child, so I don't think of things that way. You're only playing like a few quality attacks that you actually care about. Like a lot of time I'm like, I have this blue attack in my deck, but I just want to block with this, or I want to pitch it for value. Like I don't want to be sending it off an embodiment of lightning. So yeah, I have this card at a B-. I have it between Fraying Life Force and Blink of an Eye, effectively.
Yeah, same for me. It's just I think we both are just slightly lower. So I'm slightly lower than you in our grades for these cards as a package, but relative to each other, I think we've placed them in a very similar sense. So does this count as a grade difference? Because I have C+, you have B-, or how does that?
No, that's half a grade difference.
That's half. Okay, cool.
Polaris Pulse Ray is the next card up. It is the same part of the same cycle, effectively. So it is a red 2 cost, 7 attack, 3 defense, Lightning Illusionist attack action only comes in red, of course. Same deal, fragment, and says whenever this fragments deal 1 arcane damage to the defending hero. For me, this is like Fraying Life Force, but way more egregious, and you can force more specific situations against the opponent. I kind of see this on a similar tier to Scattering Conflux. Maybe I'd even have this. I have this at a B-, but maybe I'd even have this at a B. Maybe it's like half a step up on the Scattering Conflux. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I like this card. I think I'm looking to have like these. If I can pick up 2 of these rares in my draft, like I'm feeling good. And if it's like Polaris Pulse Ray and Blink of an Eye, I think I'm most happy.
I like this. I have it at a C plus, mostly because I feel like the arcane damage, like something that I was seeing from the world premiere a lot, is that sometimes the arcane damage just doesn't feel insane because they just like give you a lightning flow sometimes.
I love that.
It's very context dependent. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I send this, and it's like they're low on flows. You really get to pressure it, and it feels really, really good. But sometimes there are definitely game states where they're sitting like 2 or 3 flows, and then I feel like this can potentially be worse than Fraying Life Force, is the thing. I do like that it's slightly more aggressive, and I think that plays into the sort of game plan that Ziggy wants to do, but I'm still not going crazy over a card like this. So C+, and you are at what again?
I'm at a B-. I've already had 2 games where my opponent has like used a lightning flow on this, and I've won the game because of it, and it is so satisfying. My opponent's like sat at 3 lightning flows. They like pop the lightning flow, and I'm like, oh, this is so good for me. Like anytime people are using lightning flow for like just incidental arcane damage in this format, I think it is not always, but 89% of the time it is usually bad. It is usually a misplay. I think people so far, I'm watching the world premiere as well, I think people are not utilizing their lightning flows. They're not extending the game in the right way to utilize their lightning flows, and I think that is something this card really punishes.
I think, yeah, that's a great point. It feels like lightning flows to save life should potentially be used more as a last resort sort of thing, because then you're cashing them for 1. Whereas if you look at the ceilings potentially of a lightning flow, in Oscilio, it's a full card. 1 resource and a flow can convert to a full card. In Ziggy, typically a flow can convert to 2 damage, and it's weird because it's also instant speed damage on their turn, so there's a little bit more value there as well. And in Oscilio, it could be a Starfall or something. And then in Aurora, it sort of feels like without it, the deck just doesn't function. So yeah, I could see your point about this pressuring the lightning flows is actually a lot more value than just like 1.
You get so rewarded in this format for knowing your deck and knowing your opponent's deck in terms of like the context of when you should or shouldn't use lightning flows. And I think what I mean is that yes, 80% of the time you probably shouldn't use that lightning flow on that trigger, but there's always going to be a 20% of the time where you should. Yes, like you will end the game dead by 1 life and a lightning flow in play that you should have used earlier or something, right? For an arcane damage. Like that will happen. But I think more often than not, I think there are games where people use a lightning flow incorrectly and then they can't sequence their play a turn or 2 later that they would have if they had the second lightning flow, for instance. So yeah, I think it's something that's important to know. Do you want to move on?
Yes. So the next card, I just realized I've been calling it the wrong card. It isn't Cosmic Space Dust. It is Corrosive Space Dust. This is 1 cost Lightning Illusionist instant aura, and it says when this leaves the arena, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. Ward X, where X is 4 if this has a hollow counter, otherwise X is 1. I'm so curious to hear your take on this card. So I think we both agree you do need some number of these cards in your deck to actually be able to win the game, to actually be able to like eke out enough value from hero to be able to win the game. I agree with you on that. I want to talk about the resource curve of this card a little bit. So the ideal is that, you play this, you get to flicker it, which means you are dealing 1 arcane on the exit condition. It comes back as a ward 4. If that can fund your Aphrodite activation as well, that's another 2 damage. And then when it leaves, it deals 1 damage to them as well. So this ends up being 8 value for 4 resources and 1 lightning flow token. Yes, 4 resources. It costs 1, Ziggy costs 2, Aphrodite costs 1, lightning flow. And then you get 8 with no action point, which is very important. Yep, it's basically 8 with go again for 4 resources. There is awkwardness though because of the 4 resources. I feel like it ends up being you need to find a way to like play it and then flicker plus Aphrodite on a separate turn.
Yep.
To actually get the max value for it. Curious to see. For me, I have this at a B. I think it's good. Yeah, it's good, but there's just some of the awkwardness around it. You need some of these, but it's not like this card on its own like wins you the game. It's not like A-level bomb, you have this, and then therefore it's like you're like winning on its own. But I feel like you might be pushing back on this.
No. I agree with you on the grade. I think what I would say, though, is the play pattern that you explained is the play pattern of how you should play Ziggy, I think. Like, actually, the best turns are where you go, I pitch my blue, attack with my 2-cost attack, like we just spoke about. That's why I think these 2-cost attacks are so important. You put your opponent in a situation, and then they go, okay, block with 1 card, fragment effect, whatever. Play my Corrosive Space Dust, pass the turn, and on my turn, I can use my blue.
On your turn, you get to on their turn.
I think that is the correct way to be playing this hero. So what I want is a mix of like some of these good 2-cost attacks and some of these 1-cost auras and good access to blues, right? Where I can be like, well, I drew a hand here that's actually, and you kind of play it off and on turns, I think, where you go, okay, I'll start on my turn cycle. So I am the Ziggy player. I go, here's my 2-cost, I don't know, let's use Fraying Life Force as an example. I come with Fraying Life Force. I use my last resource post-combat to like play this Corrosive Space Dust out. Pass the turn. I've drawn up with like 3 blues and like, I don't know, a random attack or a lightning card or something. Or 2 blues, a lightning card, and another setup card. And I go, okay, block with one of my blues, or maybe even block with 2 cards, use the other blue to use this effect and arsenal the attack for later. Or pitch 1 blue, block with the other random card, and then send my attack next turn or something. And that's, I think, the like play patterns of Ziggy a lot of the time. I'm at a B with this card. I think there's still downsides to this card. Like, one, this card doesn't block. You need to have Lightning Flow to activate your hero ability, and Lightning Flow is a real tax. You also have to tap your hero ability, which is a real tax. Also, I think like the yellow is not much worse than the red of this card as well, because of the ward effect. Even the blue is like sometimes decent on this card as well, even if the value seems a little bit suspicious. I think this card is obviously good, but I think there is replacement levels to it to a degree.
Yeah, the no block, and I guess if we was talking about the red, can definitely be quite a tax. The consistency piece is definitely a bit of an issue. And then there's also the, depending on your opponent, the play pattern that you're describing for against an Oscilio, for example. It's so weird. This card is kind of really good into Oscilio if you can get it to ward 4, but then Oscilio is also the sort of deck that can punish you for the exact play pattern that you're describing, where you send a 2 for 7, and after they play this, and they want to flicker it on the Oscilio's turn, but then Oscilio's like, oh, no, I'm going to ping that off before it gets to my turn. So it leads to some interesting stuff.
Yeah,
there's like risk associated with it, but obviously there's also reward. I think the fact that it's also pinging for Arcane cannot be discounted. That's just very strong in this format.
Yes, there's some. Yeah, this format is really complex, honestly, as well. Like the gameplay and like when you should do things, playing around opponents' things, finding the right time. Like timing windows in this format feel like the most important we've ever had in a limited format, which is crazy. Right, let us move on. Next up, we've got Cosmic Duality. This is a cycle at common. It is a Lightning Illusionist attack action. It costs 2, attacks for 7, defends for 3. It is a fragment, so we're in the common cycle now of these fragment 2-cost attacks. And it doesn't have a fragment effect, but what it does say is instant, 1 resource, discard this. Deal 1 arcane damage to target hero, create a Lightning Flow token. Pankaj, I really like these cards because one thing that I want to note about this format is that going first versus going second can feel quite different. And going first can feel really good in this format, and you need some ways in your deck to... there's this real massive dance on turn 0 between almost all the heroes in this format of like establishing ward for board presence, doing something at instant speed with Oscilio and dealing some damage, and being able to have a fix like this where you can also get up on Lightning Flow tokens, either on going first or going second on turn 0, I think is really important. Potentially be able to threaten to pop off a ward as well at instant speed. And outside of that, this is just an attack, like I was talking about before, that you do want some number of these in your Ziggy deck.
This card is, in my opinion, incredible. I think I have the blue at a B-. I think it is that good. And I think the red and the yellow are in the C+ range. But honestly, I don't know. I could be talked up on them as well. I think the modality on this cannot be understated. First, I want to talk about, well, the math part of it, which is pay 1, discard, deal 1 creative flow. Remember, flow is at minimum 1 life. Yeah. At minimum. Because you can just cash in for Spell Void 1. So it's pay 1 and get 2 value at instant speed. No action point required. That's like one of the modes of it. But the reason why I think this is incredibly strong, there is the turn 0, turn 1 dance that you're talking about, but also there's a lot of arcane damage in this format, and here's where the synergy piece comes in, where oftentimes you might be using your equipment to cash in to just actually be able to defend against some arcane, like say the Seeker's equipment, for example, which we haven't got into yet, but there's all these Seeker's equipment. There's a bunch of the lightning equipment as well, where you have to pay 2 to prevent 1, you create a pond, or you create a bottom of lightning, or whatever, and the Oscilio is like just sending pure arcane at you, or the Ziggy's aphrodizing you, and like that's all the damage you're doing, plus a Corrosive Space Dust. So you're like, okay, I have these excess cards. My only way to get value from them is by pitching them to my equipment. And then you naturally have a resource or two floating. And that's where these dualities can really come in and just help you actually convert your hand. Because I think one problem that you might face in this format against all this heavy arcane damage, or against a Ziggy that's setting up or whatever, is you might struggle to convert your hands. And I think that's a very real problem that your deck needs to be able to solve. That sometimes the opponent doesn't let you easy ways to convert your hand defensively. And for me, that's kind of where the dualities come in, where it's just it's in the name. You can attack with them, or you can block with them, or you can even dish them for the effect. And I just think that this card is incredibly strong.
Yeah, I need the quadality of these cards, actually, not duality. Yeah, I massively agree with
exactly.
you. I think,
which is why the blue is better, because the blue is, in a sense, all four modes, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. If I had 3 of these at blue in my deck, I'd be very, very happy.
Yeah.
Actively looking for these. This is the sort of blue I want in my deck. So, yeah, I'm a B- overall. I just think all of these are good, but the blue is... The blue and the red, I think, are slightly better for various reasons, but the yellow is also, a serviceable card, like a C+ range in my deck as well. So, yeah, agree with everything you said. It's very good. Let's move on.
Moving on, we have Ebbing Arcstride. This is a 0-cost Lightning Illusionist attack, which attacks for 5 and blocks for 3. This is the other stat line that we've been seeing on the fragment cards. We haven't seen a single 1-cost fragment card. It doesn't exist in the set. It's only 0 or 2. The 2s come in for 7. These ones come in for 5 as fragment. And this one has, whenever this fragments, it gets go again. To me, this is the one where the end game for Ziggy really, really shines. If they're in that low life total, even like 7. It's not just 5. Like, even at 7, it's tough, because if they just take the full 5, then straight up in Aphrodite's range. So I feel like in the sub 10-ish range, they need to really start being scared of this. And that's where what I was talking about earlier, where you get to actually plan your turn cycles very effectively around your opponent almost necessarily needing to give you fragment value, comes into play. I think in particular for Ebbing Arcstride, I really like the blue for the end game, because... Well, it's still like a head jab. Actually, no, I just like the blue in general, where it's like you can send it if they don't want to give you the go again. You're getting a red's worth of value because it's 3. But in the end game, they kind of have to give you the go again, and you get a full card from it. Like either way, exactly. But also don't mind the red as well. Why don't you talk about your thoughts on this before I give the grade?
I think this card's fine. I think basically that, right? Like, this card is a hit jab. So, in its various forms, it's a little bit more flexible, and sometimes it's a little bit less flexible. I think the blue is like a nice blue. I just think this card is fine. I have it just a straight C.
Okay. I've had a C+. I think I prefer to Fraying Life Force. I give Fraying Life Force a C, and I definitely wanted to note that, to me, this was better. Like, if I saw both of them in the pack, I'd pick this over that. I mean, unless I'm really low on, 2 cost. But I prefer this to Fraying Life Force. Wait, Fraying Life Force is the one that gains life.
Yeah. I actually think that's kind of crazy, because I think you need those 2 costs in your deck. You do not need these 0 costs in your deck. You do not need these hand extenders. There's also, I think the other thing that is also a downside to this card sometimes is you're like, oh yeah, I have this card. I come in with it, and they're like, okay, I just have damage prevention in my hand. Like, there is a decent amount of damage prevention. Like, you're playing a Oscilio, and they play the wizard damage prevention. There is ways to just prevent damage in this set. So I think you need those 2 costs. I think if I ended up with a deck that didn't have any of these 0 costs in it, I'm not going to be particularly upset about it, especially not this one personally.
I think if they use damage prevention on my fragment cards, I'm quite happy, actually.
What are you doing with the other 3 cards, though?
5. Well, I mean, so obviously early in the game, you would have played around that you're assuming you don't get the go again, or you don't make it so obvious that.
But that's a downside, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, that is the downside of this card.
For sure.
It has some stuff that is also just not fantastic. And then even in those good spots, it's a hit jab.
Okay.
The ceiling of this card is hit jab, right? Is it not?
I suppose, yes. Yeah, that's a fair point, but I feel like it just plays very well in the end game is, I guess, why I like it very much.
Okay. I mean, I think
the ceiling of pressure you, and after on your turn, try and Aphrodite you down.
But so does it's playing a Fraying Life Force in the end game. Because what are you going to do? Block with 2, give me 2 cards and I gain 2 life. So I've traded 2 for 2 cards and I've gained 2 life. Like, I'd rather be doing that than doing this personally.
Right. That's a fair point.
Anyway. We can move on, because there's a lot of 0 cost cards to talk about, which might help us frame some of this conversation anyway. So let's move on to Pulsing Cardia, which is a card that we saw early on, actually. I think it was the first form or fragment we saw in the previews. This is a Lightning Illusionist attack, again, at common. This is a cycle. It costs 0, attacks for 5, defense for 3 at red. Of course, goes 1 down on each attack for yellow and blue. Says whenever this fragments, gain 1 resource, and of course it has fragment. We spoke about 4 resources being a real tension point with Ziggy in this format for hero ability, for casting auras, and for activating the weapon. Obviously, Pulsing Cardia can potentially help you out with that. The problem is, the downside of this is, to your point, if you play this early and they just don't block it, you're going to lose out on the 2 damage, right? But you get the 2 damage back with the damage that you deal. So I quite like this card. I think people were saying, this card's like staple, one of the best cards in Ziggy. I don't agree with that. But we spoke about blue in Ebbing, what's it called? Astra Stride before. I think Pulsing Cardia in blue is also decent, but I think the red is quite good. I would rather have, a copy of this than Ebbing, I think, in my deck.
Oh, interesting. I think I'd rather have Ebbing than this one. But maybe I'm misevaluating the go again. One of us is misevaluating the go.
We're going to find out.
Yeah. I gave this a C-. I think this is on the weaker end of the fragment cards. All the fragments are in like C-ish range, right? I had this plus minus or C. To me, this is weaker compared to the other ones that we've seen so far. I think it's very difficult to use the resource. I think mostly it's very difficult to plan around using the resource. Is the thing. And especially in the endgame, like when I'm thinking of the endgame stuff, it's like why I liked having Arc Stride, is like when you talk about this like endgame loop of like you're exchanging small hands, it's like I think it's very difficult to cash in the resource as well if you just have like one other card, for example. Maybe you play the 1-cost aura or something, it's like, okay, that's like sure. So whereas like Ebbing Arc Stride, they give you the go again, and I'm like, here's the other 0 for 5, and it's like, okay, I feel like that's a very strong small hand play pattern. And in Pulsing Cardia, I just don't quite see it.
So your strong small card hand is 2 hit jabs.
I think, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I like doing this because my small card hands I've been doing is things like play this, they block it, I flip the 1-cost aura, then on their turn, I use my blue to gain, 4 or 5 value off my blue. I have this as B-. Yeah. I think this card is really good, and I actively want a couple of copies as my deck, probably a red and a blue. So note this one down because we're going to find out.
Yeah. I think
what's interesting though. I think what's quite interesting though is both me and Pankaj have very different views of maybe how we would play out Ziggy. It's starting to sound like, right? Like it sounds like you're more favoring some of the attack actions. I'm more favoring the auras so far, and I think we're gonna. We might both be right. Like there could be these 2 archetypes. We just don't know. We're so early on in this format. That's something I would definitely look out for when you're playing your pre-release this weekend. Of what value you can get from each of these, these different sort of potential archetypes that exist.
Yeah. Also, I think the other thing about Fragment is that when you get to something multiple, like I just don't like. We call them head jabs. It's very much assuming they put 3 blocks in front of all of them, and I don't think that's a very disposable resource in this format. There's a lot of instants running around. There's a lot of just like straight up no blocks running around. Yeah. Oftentimes the 3 block is like it could be like the attack that they're trying to send at you, and if you like force them to block with it when you send like 2 of these like at the end game, like I feel like that could just put them in a bit of a tough bind.
Well, they can put a 2 block in front of it though. It doesn't have to be a 3 block. Still a hit jab.
Yep.
But yeah.
Yep.
There is a lot of no blocks, and that is something you do need to consider as well. Is you do need to have cards that block, and that's again another reason I like these. Like having some access of these is like, okay, well, if this doesn't work in with my hand, it just blocks 3, which is great. Like I do need some number of those in this format. Move on to the next one.
Agreed. Next, we have Shattering Flow Tide. This is 0, again, same thing, 0-cost fragment, attacks for 5, blocks for 3. This one has whenever this fragments create a lightning flow token. This one I like. This one I think is really solid. I mean, I like if they fragment it. I like if they don't, because the fragment, once again, value of it is minimum 1 from the lightning flow, but because you're Ziggy, you can maybe cash that in for a little bit more than that. So I give this a C+. I might give the blue a little bit more than that, because again, that end game of you send this, they have to block, give you a flow. Yeah, I have this at a C+. Could be talked into giving the blue at least a B-.
Yeah, I have this a B-. I think this is like the value is quite face up, right, as you said. And I think the only limitation to these cards is that, and the only reason I'm not giving any of these cards, like even Pulsing Cardia, like a straight B, is there's a limitation to how many of these cards you can have in your deck, because they're 0 costs, they're 1-card plays often. Like this one is definitely a 1-card play. Like yes, you can do other things with it, but it's so contingent on being a 1-card play. Whereas like with Pulsing Cardia, it can be a 2-card play. So they are conditional. You have to be careful about how many of these you have in your deck. Next up, we've got Auric Shards. This is a Lightning Illusionist instant aura at common. It is a cycle. We're looking at the red here. It costs 1 and says when this enters the arena, up to 1 target attack with Fragment gets +1 attack. If this is a hollow counter, instead the attack gets +4. It has ward 1, and the yellow gives +3 attack. The blue gives +2 attack, but the +1 attack and the ward 1 is base for all 3 of the colors. What do you think, Pankaj?
This is sort of the other version of Space Dust, where Space Dust sort of has the payoff on the ward side of it, but also deals a bunch of arcane. This one has the payoff on the physical damage side of it, and then prevents a point of damage for you. It is, in a sense, like 1 point worse than Space Dust. In a sense, Space Dust gives you 2 arcane pings, and this only prevents ward, once rather than twice. But I think physical damage scamming in this format is very good. There's like 1 D-react in the format, like Filtering Force Field. There's no D-react that's like an unconditional 0 for 4. There's like Ward if you're playing against a Ziggy, but other than that, usually it's like giving something suddenly like +5 in the reaction step is very, very strong. This one has sort of the same awkwardness that we spoke about Space Dust, where you want to play Space Dust on one turn, and on the other turn you flicker it so you can do the Aphrodite because of the resource curve. Except this one, if you flicker it on their turn, it sucks.
Yep,
so
exactly.
It does ask more of you. However, I think the payoff is also a little bit bigger because physical damage scamming is it's so difficult to deal with, and either this is one that wins you the game, or it puts them in the Aphrodite range where you win the game off of that. So for that reason, I've given it like the same score as Corrosive Space Dust. I've given this a B, because again, the awkwardness, it's just lower floor, higher ceiling, but I think it averages out to like about the same.
Okay, yeah, I think the downside of like the 1 extra value and the, like you spoke about, the play pattern, I think is enough for me to be down half a grade effectively, or 3/4 of a grade. I'm a C+ on this card, but I agree with all the same sentiments that you said. But I think one of the things I've been finding restrictive about, what I would actually say is my first red copy of this is actually probably a B, but every other copy after this feels honestly like in the C to C- range, because multiple of these cards is really friggin' awkward. Like, to your point about like Ziggy's Arsenal slot, like this is the sort of card where I'm okay to Arsenal it, but having multiple is just, it sometimes you're like, wow, my hand does absolutely nothing here because of this card. Whereas like Corrosive Space Dust, you can always get the defensive value out of the card, and like I think that is enough for me to warrant that being in the Bs and this being in the C ranges. But yeah, I do want a copy of this in most of my decks.
Yeah, I did sort of implicitly assume that I'm having like 1 red copy of this. Yeah, once you start going to multiples, they have massive diminishing returns. I'm not sure whether to note this down then, because I said B and you said C+.
I'm C+. I think we're not a full grade away, so we're in the same ballpark.
Like half. All right.
I think we're okay. All right.
Next we have Hollow Shield. This is 1 cost, Lightning Illusionist instant aura. Has Ward X, where X is 4 if this is a hollow counter, otherwise X is 1. So this is Cosmic Space Dust, Corrosive Space Dust, without the arcane damage pings. It's strictly worse Space Dust. I gave this a C. I was like, okay, strictly worse Space Dust. You need some like auras around. I think it has maybe extra value into Oscilio, because you just one more ward. Because they need to win by sending Tall Arcane at you, and you win by like fatiguing them, it feels like. At least like currently is our current understanding of the matchup. So maybe into Oscilio specifically, it gets a little bit of a bump. But overall, I'm like, okay, this is a C.
Yep. I agree with you. I have this as a C as well. We can move on then, because I agree with all those things. Next up, we have effectively a cycle of 3 cards. And there's a couple of cycles in this on this set of not like color cycles, but of similar cards with slightly different effects. And so we're going to group these together for the purpose of the conversation. And these are Circular Flow Tide, Elliptical Conflux, and Nebulous Cycle. And we'll just read these. So these are all Lightning Illusionist instant auras at common. They only come in yellow, and they all cost 1, and they all have ward 2, but they say something different. So Circular Flow Tide says, when this leaves the arena, create a lightning flow token. Elliptical Conflux says, when this leaves the arena, create an embodiment of lightning. And Nebulous Cycle says, when this leaves the arena, create a ponder token. So Pankaj, first of all, maybe just touch on these as like their role that they play in general, and then which ones do you think are good, which ones aren't good, why, sort of thing.
You need targets for Ziggy's hero ability. Like, you do win the game off of Aphrodite Unlimited, like certain number of activations of Aphrodite. So you need targets for them. These are yellow, unlike the shards and the Corrosive Space Dust, so there's a little bit less of an awkwardness if you draw like multiple of these. You can at least like cash them, and maybe you just cash them in for like your 2 for 7, for example. You can still, get some value from them. And then there is the War 2 aspect, and then there's the extra token that they create from it. And so obviously the only difference between these three is the token that they create. So very much the rating will just differ based on that. And I think a common theme that we're going to see across these cycles, which all three heroes have a different form of it. For Aurora, it's like Quick Strike, and for Oscilio, it's the Starfall cycle. All of them create the same three, each card in the cycle creates one of the different three tokens.
Yeah.
And to me, I think the common theme is going to be the Lightning Flow one is just the best. Like straight up, like that much better than the others that I think it's like easily half a grade above. For me, Flow Tide is C+, and then the other two are C-. They're C- in that sure, they like fulfill the role of needing auras I need to flicker with Ziggy, but I'm not like crazy happy to have them around. Flow Tide though, I think is amazing. When you get to flicker it, you just refund the Lightning Flow immediately. So you sort of don't lose the cost there. Triggers your Aphrodite. Remember, and Lightning Flow is this. Remember, again, minimum 1, potentially more than that.
Yep.
I think embodiments of lightning and ponders are very difficult to get value from.
I agree. Ponder, I think, is easier to get value from in Ziggy slightly than embodiment of lightning. But what I would say is, to your point about C-, I think, these have a role. Like, they do activate Aphrodite, and so having these around, and they ward 2, right? So they block 2 in some ways. I think these can't be worse than a C-, but you have to be careful about the amount of these that you do have in the deck. I agree. I think I have Flow Tide at a C+. There may be times where like you just don't have a lot of lightning flow creation. I think that's something I need to learn through draft, is like how many elements of lightning flow is it easy to pick up, because this could rise to like a B- potentially if it feels tighter than I expected. The others though, because they aren't lightning flow tokens and they don't actually help you win the game necessarily, I have both at a C-, like the same as you, or C. For maybe the ponder, but yeah.
My other thing with the ponder and the embodiment of lightning ones is that I think a very common play pattern is that the turn you flicker this is also the turn it gets killed. I feel like that just happens quite a bit. And again, the embodiments of lightning and ponders just don't double up very well. That's the thing. Like, remember the play pattern we spoke about like Corrosive Space Dust?
Yeah.
Or Oryx, not Oryx Shards, but like Space Dust, which is you play on your turn, and on their turn you flicker it, and it dies on their turn.
Yeah.
Like when that happens with the ponders and embodiments of lightning, it's like you end up with 2 of those, and like so it's just, it feels really bad on that front. Whereas the lightning flows you can actually double up and feel.
And that's kind of what I mean. Like
that's
the lightning flow might be a B-, honestly. Like Circular Flow Tide might actually be a B-.
Yeah, I could see it. But yeah, and then the ponder one as well. Again, we spoke about like Ziggy. I think like needs to have like their card in arsenal that they're trying to like play around, so the ponder can get weird there. And then also all these heroes want to pitch, which means you have some number of like clunky blues. Your dualities that we are both singing the praises of, arsenaling that, you sort of lose like a whole bunch of the flexibility of the card. There's a bunch of like random blues that you'll draw that you just don't want to arsenal. So I'm not too high on the ponder ones, but yeah, lightning flow one, pog.
I just want to point out a play pattern that does come up like not that often, but is interesting, is you do something in your opponent's turn that costs 2 resources. Maybe use one of the pieces of equipment. Maybe you do end up using your Aphrodite and playing a Aurora or something at some point, and you end up with 1 resource left. You can play the ponder one, and then you go into your turn. You don't do anything with your auras, and on the following turn you end up flickering it, so you do get 2 activations of a ponder at some point. You're confused.
Wait, you said you don't? Yeah, because you said you do all the stuff on their turn, right?
Yeah.
And then you have 1 resource floating, and you play this.
Yeah.
And then on your turn, you do nothing. You said.
Well, you don't flick it on your turn. You just go about your turn.
Got it. So it goes back to their turn, and you flicker it.
Yeah.
You make a ponder, and then they somehow don't kill it.
This is the Elise Arena one. Sorry, these are the Elise. Yeah, I've got confused. These are the Elise Arena ones. So I guess that's still kind of stands, but it's the other way around. Yeah.
Okay.
You need to play it and flick it on their turn, keep it around, and then it dies on the turn after.
Yeah, but when you play this and flicker in their turn, then you aren't Aphrodizing. It's just, I don't know.
I just want to point out there's some play patterns that are quite interesting with these heroes, I think. Whether it's the enters or leaves, they both have like interactions where you play them on your opponent's turn or on your own turn for certain effects, and then gain it on effectively a full turn cycle later, like over a turn cycle and a half. Okay,
Yep.
cool. We've spoken about these
so
ones.
Next,
Go for it.
yeah. Next, we have the cycle of these ward auras that actually have the enter the arena effect, whereas the 3 we just discussed are the leave the arena ones. These all, again, same stat line. They're blues, 0 cost, ward 1 instant auras. And they all have a different enter the arena effect. One of them gives +1 to any target attack. It's not just lightning. This is important because there are certain pumps in the set that specify lightning or specify fragment. Like Auric Shard specifies fragment, for example. Oh, actually, we forgot to talk about that regarding Auric Shards. That's the other thing. You will be forced to play some lightning cards in the deck, and the fact that Auric Shards only targets fragment is also a bit of a knock.
I forgot to say that as well. That's also why I have that in C range. It's pretty relevant. It's pretty massively relevant.
Yeah, that's fair. So these are Crackle from Afar. This one gives, when it enters the arena, gives one target attack +1 power. Fleeing Starbreeze gives up to one target attack go again, and Nourishing Glow gains you a life. So all of them have a ward 1, and then Nourishing Glow is the most obvious. Okay, this is a +1 value, so along with the ward, it's like a 0 for 2, and the other 2 is a bit more nebulous, depending on how you want to. I guess the go again one is nebulous. The +1 less nebulous.
Yeah, you can
Why
only
don't you walk us through this?
You can only have so many cards that don't block in your deck because you do need to block like fragments and stuff like that, and also you need to get 3 value against to stop on hits from
Aurora.
From Aurora, but ward 1 is nice for doing that as well. Nourishing Glow, I think, is like. I do want like a copy of this, maybe 2 in my deck. So I have this at a C. I basically don't want the other 2 cards in my deck unless I didn't pick up a Nourishing Glow and I need to play maybe the Crackle from Afar. The Fleeing Starbreeze, I really hate that card. I think it's like encroaching on D+ territory, other than for the fact that it can activate Aphrodite.
That's fair. I kind of just put all of these as a C and that they're all filler auras, but I definitely agree with you on Nourishing Glow being the best one, particularly because, once again, the play pattern of you play an aura on your turn, but you flicker it on their turn. The other 2 do nothing when you flicker it on their turn.
Yep.
Is the problem that I have with those. Nourishing Glow at least still does something no matter which side of the turn cycle you flicker it on, which is a big plus for the card. Fleeing Star, and that's the other thing. The reason the other 2 are lower than Nourishing Glow is just that the flickering aspect of them is just, it's so difficult to actually double dip on the flicker value for those. So actually, I'm gonna follow you and put the other 2 at a C minus and leave Nourishing Glow at a C.
That's very fair. Should we move on to the next card, Pankaj? Next up, we have Fingers of Fragmentation. So we're on to the Illusionist equipment arms here. So we've gone through all of our Lightning Illusionist. We're now into the Illusionist cards here. This is a equipment arms, defends for 0, and says instant. 2 resources, destroy this. Target attack action that has fragmented gets +2. So important to note, it's not target attack action with fragment, it's target attack action that has fragmented. So it has to have triggered in order for this to be used. Pankaj, what do you reckon?
I give this a B+. I think one thing, again, common theme for people who are just joining us for limited, onboard pieces kind of automatically just get a little bump up. Just like automatically. I think an onboard trick, again, goes back to the physical damage scamming that I was talking about earlier. Arcane damage scamming, while it's good because lightning flows are a thing, aren't as reliable as physical damage scamming. It's interesting in this format. The physical damage scamming feels a lot more significant. It feels like it puts them into the arcane lethal range, but it's also in some ways harder to deal with than the arcane damage. It's curious because when the damage is face up, when it's like a physical damage is face up, it's easier to deal with than arcane damage. But when it starts hitting the instant or reaction speed, physical damage, that's when it's a lot more difficult to actually deal with because the lightning flows are no longer protecting you. So for that reason, I give this a B+. Also, the fact that you just like leave it there as a gun over your opponent's head until you absolutely need it. I think this is good.
Yes, all of those things. The one thing I would add as well is that one of the play patterns we're talking about costs you 4 resources with playing a 2-cost, playing your 1-cost Aura, using your hero ability, your 1-cost Aura, and you're talking about playing 0 costs as well. So whether it be a 0 cost, whether it be something like the Blink of an Eye, for instance, which can also be another trigger, this is a way that you can utilize the remaining 2 resources really like on board. So I think it doesn't come up as much as maybe you might think it would, depending on how you look at this format, but that is also really relevant. I have this card an A-. I really struggle to put equipments less than like a B- unless they're absolutely trashed here, and there has been some of those in the past, but I think this card is like a card that I think if I'm Ziggy and I end up with like 3 of the damage prevention cards, we'll talk about those very soon, and there's multiples of those, and like Fingers of Fragmentation, fantastic.
You're feeling really good.
Feeling really good.
Yeah, you're feeling really, really good. Mm-hmm.
Cool.
That makes sense.
Next up.
Next, we have Clear Conscience. We are now heading into the non-talented Illusionist cards. I guess Fingers of Fragmentation was also a non-talented Illusionist card, which is interesting. Oh, yes. Yeah. That makes sense. Yes. And then now we're going on into, untalented Illusionist stuff. Clear Conscience, 3 cost at red. 3 cost attacks for 8 at red. Blocks for 3, and has, when this hits a hero, each hero puts a card from their hand on the bottom of the deck and creates a ponder token, and it has Fragment. I think the blue in this is the strongest of the cycle, because the blue and the red both require 2 cards to cover up. And I think the on-hit of this is the only, or one of the very few pieces of disruption that we have seen in the set. So a play pattern where you send this to the opponent and your hand is empty effectively just draws you a card, because you'll create a ponder, and they need to bottom a card and then create a ponder. So it definitely affects their following turn cycle. It's also the stat line isn't high enough that it's profitable for them to just empty their hand and then take the damage and then create a ponder for themselves as well. Like that's kind of weird. So I'm a big fan of the blue in particular, but I think that even the red and the yellow are good.
Yeah, interesting. I think like the blue, I actually think the yellow is really good as well because of the breakpoint on it. Because if they, to your point, cover it up with 2 cards, you're still getting the same value as the red, right? Because even if they cover it up with 2 blocks, it's attack for 4, same as the attack for 3. So I actually really like this card, and I think Disruption 2.0 is at a premium. So I actually have this at a B-, because I just think like there's not replacement quality for this card, and although it doesn't work with like a lot of your other Aura stuff, this is just a great 2-card play. And I agree. I think the blue, the yellow, the red, any of these, I think I would take like, I'd be happy to take 4th, 5th, 6th kind of pick in a pack and be fairly happy with it.
Yeah, I have the blue at a B-, and I put the others at a C+.
Sure.
But I'm actually down to I'm down to bump all of them up half a grade. I'm down to put the blue at a B and the others at a B-. Actually, it's very, very strong.
Yeah, we're in the same boat anyway. Right, our last card for our Illusionist is going to be Erode Authority. Erode Authority is another Illusionist attack action. It defends for 3, attacks for 7 at red. It costs 3, and this is a cycle. And it says Fragment, just like Clear Conscience did. But this one has Dominate. This is the one card in the set that has Dominate on it, and at common and rare. And I think, where Clear Conscience is really interesting in terms of like offers this like must block kind of view because of the value you get and the value that your opponent loses. I think Erode Authority is just a way to push damage in the in game, basically. And I think this card is fine, has a role to play. I see it as like a above average role player though, like in terms of you may want one of these to push some fun. I have C+.
I have a C+ as well. I want 1 copy of this. I feel I'd be very happy if I had 1 copy of this. It adds to Ziggy's just amazing endgame already. Helps you to get to there, which I think is Ziggy's hardest thing to do, is actually just getting to the endgame, because if you're just sending like random fragment attacks that are very easily blocked, you're just not quite getting there. But cards like this can just help push you over the edge. So above average roleplay for me as well. Like I want like 1 copy, not like too many.
Yeah, not too many copies ideally. Cool. All right, that is all of our Illusionist cards done and dusted. We're now going to move on to talk about our Lightning Runeblade hero, Pankaj. We're going to talk Aurora. And if you haven't seen Aurora already, it is a Lightning Runeblade hero. We're talking about the young version, of course. This is new Aurora, Emissary of Lightning at young. Instant, tap 2 resources, destroy a lightning flow you control, create an embodiment of lightning. So obviously, as with all the other heroes, turns that lightning flow into some tangible resource. For Aurora, it's about going wide. And then, of course, you want to talk us through maybe the weapon as well, Pankaj, unless you want to say anything specifically about Aurora.
Yeah, I'll talk about both of them in conjunction. So Scorpio Comet Tail is a 1 attack Lightning Runeblade weapon that's 2-handed, and it says action tap attack. Activate this only if you control a lightning attack, and when this hits a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. So you can only activate this on conditions similar to all the weapons in the set, and when you are able to activate it, it attacks for 1. If it hits them, deals 1 arcane damage. So Aurora is really very much, you look at these two, the hero ability and the weapon, the play pattern is very much play a go again attack, end off with Scorpio. If you can make it happen, send more than one go again attack, like go again attack into Scorpio, then you have a really, really strong turn cycle. And I think the trick for this deck, or how to get a strong Aurora deck, is to try and make as many of those kind of turn cycles happen. Because I think from what I have seen, when you just do one go again attack into Scorpio, it feels very manageable for the other side to deal with, and you kind of get outvalued. And I feel like the trick with Aurora is to go more than one attack wide and then finish off with the Scorpio. And I think that's quite a bit of a challenge. I think maybe a lot of us were thinking she might be the Fi of this format, like the most easy, like default, like pick a hero to default to, which still might be the case. Like when you open your sealed pools, I still think that's probably the case. But I don't know, just the classic play pattern of like one go again attack with Scorpio has felt very, very underwhelming. You need to be doing better than that.
I think it's bad. I think it lets like the other two heroes like utilize their cards
just
the way they want to. Yeah, and like actually plays into their game plan. I think I said this when our limited like kind of preview a couple of weeks ago, 2 weeks back. I was like, I don't think Aurora is going to be the default hero. I think it's actually like quite complex to build correctly and play just by the looks of it. And I think that's kind of standing true. I actually think that I think Oscilio is kind of like the easiest of the three, like to play at like 80%. I think it's just a bit more intuitive from my experience so far.
I also want to note, so not only like does it feel like Aurora needs to go through those hoops, she's also the least scammy, is the thing. Like the other two will deal you Arcane on your turn, like chunks of Arcane on your turn, right? Like Ziggy can deal like 4 with like Corrosive Space Dust plus the weapon. Oscilio obviously has like enough instants that just deal you Arcane, or just send Arcane at you that you simply cannot deal with because it's like 4 or 5, and you have like one Lightning Flow around and one equipment that prevents damage. Aurora is the one that she plays the most fair. She just here's some physical damage and a couple of pings. Excess lightning flows deal with the pings to like stop the on-hits. Oh, the equipment, which are going to be super premium. Their prevention equipment, they stop a couple of your pings here, and then before you know it, you're just getting outvalued. I do agree with you. Aurora feels, in my opinion, quite challenging to actually put together because of how fair and face-up she is.
Yeah, I think to win with, I do think like it's the easiest to understand how to use your lightning flow tokens. I think the play pattern, but I think the play pattern that's obvious is actually not the best play pattern, and the play pattern that's better is more like 3 and 4 card hands, and those are a lot more complex and actually really rewards like good deck building and good use of arsenal and good resource management. Is way harder in Aurora as well, because if your opponent just blocks you out and sends it back, if you don't have the right resources available, you will just brick.
Yeah, it almost feels like she really wants to do a little bit of the on-turn, off-turn thing, where she wants to end her turns with embodiments of lightning. Next turn, go like, send something to go again, activate abilities, send another thing to go again and do the thing. But the problem with that is that when the others are sending arcane damage at you, you can't just take an off turn. Like it's very difficult. Just like, okay, I'm going to block you when they're like when the Oscilio's like 5 arcane.
Yeah, exactly. So that's where I think deck
it's quite tough. Yeah.
I think Aurora actually has them as the deck that changes the most depending on which hero it's playing in terms of like sideboard cards as well, because it's like, well, I need to have some of this damage prevention. Like my brush off, I may not want to play against the mirror or against like Ziggy, but I really need against Oscilio. Like it's really interesting the way that it plays out. Anyway, let's get into the cards themselves now that we've spoken a little bit about the hero itself, and let's get in and start with Snap Fingers, which is a lightning Runeblade equipment, arms, defends for 0, and says as common, instant, 1 resource, destroy this. Target lightning attack action card you control on the active chain link deals 1 arcane damage to the defending hero.
This is in the realm of not so great equipment pieces.
Wow.
This might be, in my opinion, I think just the fact that's 1 resource and then they can deny it with a lightning flow or their suite of prevention equipment, which obviously there's some value in that. But I think you might be better off by just having a prevention equipment in this slot. Maybe I'm just super underrating, like to your point about how good it is to like be able to snipe a lightning flow on the other side or force them to use it. Again, it is still an equipment, so I gave this a B. I'm not like, oh, this is like garbage. Sure. I give this a B, but the other equipment I've given better than that is what I mean by I think this is the weakest piece of the equipment. Like if like we spoke about the Ziggy equipment loadout, right? It feels like almost the idea is, oh, you have 3 preventions, 1 the illusionist arms, I forget what it's called.
Fingers of fragmentation.
That feels really good. Yeah, Fingers of Fragmentation. If you tell me your Aurora doesn't have Snap Fingers, I'll be like, yeah, that's fine.
Yep. I actually think Snap Fingers really depends on the build you have. If you have more of the 0 cost quick strike cards, and you can like often threaten this card and like force your opponent to... Because taking a lightning flow token, especially against like well, I think against all the heroes, honestly, is actually really, really big.
Good.
And you can also put them into situations where you're forcing them to like use it or like be landed with an on-hit effect because of it. There's a couple of effects that trigger off arcane damage. But I agree. I think overall it's a B for me. I think it's a lot more replacement level than fragmentation is.
Exactly. And I was just looking at all the equipment, and I was like, out of all of them, this just feels like the one where if I'm like the one I'll miss the least.
Yeah,
basically.
I think it's a little bit closer than at first. I was definitely on that wavelength of like, oh, I don't think you even need to bother drafting this. And I've come around to the fact of like, oh, there's times where like I have drafted a couple of particular cards and Snap Fingers all of a sudden becomes like a really high priority pick for me. But yeah, I massively agree.
I do want to point out to some people who might miss the interactions, a lot of Aurora's cards don't actually say on hit, but say when this card deals damage. And Snap Fingers does give the arcane damage rider to the attack that you are playing this, that you're activating the instant on. So it is relevant to say for some of the on pain effects or on damage effects rather than on hit effects of some of the cards. That's where it's the most relevant.
The only thing
and that's often why you can look at this as you pay one resource, destroy an opponent's lightning flow if they have it, because they have to. Almost certainly will. Yeah, they almost certainly have to.
Or you force it through because they can't afford to do so, in which case you still get tons of value. One thing that's worth noting though is that like most of these cards in Runeblade, and we'll get onto one in like 5 seconds, is the first time you deal damage, and so you don't actually get multiple. You can't stack triggers with Snap Fingers, and I think that's why this card is like, if you could stack triggers on even just like a couple of these rares, I think this would be like an A. But anyway, do you want to get onto those cards?
I also feel like I think something we saw a lot at the world premiere was it's just trades. You pay one resource to trade for your opponent's arms piece, like or like one of their prevention pieces. It's kind of how it like felt like a lot of the time, which is why I was a bit like, okay, fine, but like a little bit whelmed. Yes, let's move on to talk about this cycle.
Cool. So the next lot of cards we're looking at is, again, another cycle similar to what we spoke about with our instance for Ziggy, but these are Lightning Runeblade action attacks for our Aurora, and all of these at yellow only. They all attack for 3, and they all defend for 3 rather. They all cost 1, and they all have Quick Strike. Now, this is the first time I've seen Quick Strike. Quick Strike effectively says if this has Go Again, it gets +1 attack. And when this attacks a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. That's not the same for all Quick Strike, is it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some Quick Strikes just get +1. Some Quick Strikes just give the arcane damage rider. So it's interesting. Quick Strike basically means if this attack has Go Again, it gets a certain buff.
Yep, correct. Yeah, Quick Strike is that if you have Go Again, get X. So these all have the same Quick Strike, though, for the rare cycle, which is the +1, Go Again, and the 1 arcane damage. So the 3 of these are Dashing Flashfoot. The other one is Electron Mind Meld and Prophetic Quickstep. And Dashing Flashfoot says, of course, all the things we just spoke about, but then says the first time this deals damage to a hero, create an embodiment of lightning token. Our Mind Meld says first time it deals damage to a hero, you may put an instant card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. And then Prophetic Quickstep says the first time this deals damage to a hero, create a ponder token. Pankaj, what do you think about these cards?
Yeah. So I actually misspoke earlier. I actually thought all the cycles do the same thing, where each of them creates a different one.
Yeah, this one does
Aurora, at least
the bottom.
In this cycle, she doesn't have the lightning flow one. She does have it later on as well.
Correct.
But yeah, I think to me the Flashfoot is easily the best. I mean, we just spoke about how this hero really wants to chain embodiments of lightning, and if you need to pay 2 in a lightning flow every time to create an embodiment of lightning, that's I think how you fall behind. But if you can force a Flashfoot on hit or make them be very inefficient to block it out, to prevent the embodiment of lightning, that's how you get quite a bit of value. For me, Flashfoot is B-. The other 2 are a bit weaker. I would give the Ponder one better than the recurring and instant. Aurora doesn't really want to play instants, I feel like. So really, the Mind Meld is... I mean, the rate on these cards, if you give them Go Again, is 1 for 5, right? Which is like either yellow, that's like good. The instant bottoming is like but the Ponder, I think Aurora is potentially at its best, because she does have a bunch of the blues that are just like giving Go Again to something and something you're happy to just go ahead and arsenal. And that's, I think, what a blue base should comprise of ideally. But you can't always guarantee it. So Quick Step for me is still in the okay range. It's C+. Flash was B-, and Mind Meld is C for me.
Yeah, I have the same, except I think I have Flashfoot at a B. I just played... Actually, I watched a game with this, and I was like, oh, it's kind of slightly better than I thought, just in terms of the fact that I think the best Aurora turns are what we spoke about, like these 4 card hands. And I think Dashing Flash for as your 1 cost plays so well into what you're trying to do with the Embodiment of Lightnings, and the fact that it just continues to drive that game plan, I think is actually really, really key for overwhelming your opponent and not taking your foot off the gas. This is a true tempo card, Flashfoot. But yeah, I agree with everything else you said. 100%, I'm on board.
Awesome. Let's move on and talk about Stinging Sprite. This is at red. Does this come in all colors?
This is a cycle, correct? Yep.
I guess it must. It is a cycle. So at red, it attacks for 3. It comes in for costs 0, blocks for 2. Lightning Runeblade action attack. It says when this attacks or defends, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero.
Yeah. I mean, I think this card is. I compare this card to Arcanic Crackle, I guess, in some ways, in terms of like on offense at red, it's a 0 for 4. Right, in terms of attacks for 3 and deals 1 arcane damage.
But blocks for 2.
But it blocks for 2.
Yeah.
However, it does provide 3 value on the block in terms of it defends for 2 and deals 1 arcane damage. Now, in some cases, that's actually better because of the way that this format plays in terms of with Fragment as well, where you may just want to block with this for 2 and get the value of the 1 to threaten an Aura, or just to push the damage back. And Aurora does want to kill. Often the game plan is to kind of go fast. The problem is you only have so many spaces in Aurora of cards that don't have Quick Strike, and do you want to be using those spaces for a card like Stinging Sprite? I think the blue is like actually pretty reasonable and is like a nice resource card, and I think the red is okay. I have this at like a C+, but I think I have like a sideboard grade of like a B- for the red against Ziggy.
Yeah, I have a sideboard grade into Ziggy as well for Scammer. It's actually the only grade I gave it. I was just like sideboard grade into Ziggy because, to your point, I don't think you want too many of these cards that either don't have easy go again, either don't have a payoff for getting go again, or don't easily get go again. We'll come to one later on that actually you can, just activate to give go again. There's a limit to how much you can have, because something that's very important, and maybe people haven't fully realized that until you play it, you have a chain ender. Your classic Aurora play patterns are go again, and then you want to swing the weapon. So if this is your chain ender instead of your weapon, there is a real cost, because then you're not sending a weapon. Like you're leaving free damage on the table when you choose a different chain ender. So there is a limit, and I just feel like when you are in affordance of that limit, I think you have better options than this, except particularly into Ziggy.
Yeah, I think like one copy of this card is actually good because like sometimes in Aurora, like especially in the mirror, actually, like, you will play one card hands, and I think like a 0 for 4 is a good 1 card hand, but you just can't fall into the trap of like another formats where you're like, 0 for 4 is like really good value. It just isn't the same value, and I think that's important to note. But yeah,
not in Aurora at least.
No, not in Aurora.
You will just lose a game because it is still mostly physical damage. Yeah.
Cool. Next up, we have another rare. It is a cycle. It is a Lightning Runeblade action, and we're looking at the red copy here. It is Mercurial Skies, costs 0, defends for 2, and again, Lightning Runeblade action. The next Runeblade or Lightning Attack action card you play this turn gets go again. The first time this deals damage to a hero, you may destroy a lightning flow you control. If you do, deal 3 arcane damage. Important to note, this works on Runeblade and Lightning cards, but not on generics. I think this card kind of sucks. I don't really want this card in my deck. I have this at a C-. I think if you don't have some ways, like you're short on ways of like doing the play pattern we spoke about, like I think you do want like a decent chunk of blues, like maybe 8 or 9 blues in your Aurora deck. And if you don't have that, or you don't have enough ways to create lightning flows, then I do think you maybe need to play something like this. And playing like a blue copy of this is okay. Maybe a red, but like it's so easy to stop, and the go again is not. You don't want to be spinning a card for go again in Aurora, so I think this card is really kind of like bad.
I have the blue at a C,
yeah,
and the
sure.
red and the Y at a C, and the red and yellow at C-.
Yeah,
just
cool.
because, I think you'll need some number of this just to make your deck function, but there are better options. I'm not happy, and the text on this card feels so fake.
I agree.
Like the text on the card is just like
destroy
nonsense.
a lightning flow token to deal the 3 damage as well. Like if this card just said on hit deal the 3 damage, I'd be like, oh, this card is like C+ range. Like it's still not even good. That good. But like the fact you destroy a lightning flow,
destroy a flow, it's like brother.
I think this actually might the red, maybe even the yellow might be a D+. Honestly, like I'd be really upset to have the red in my deck. I think so. I'm actually gonna say, you know what, red D+ Pankaj. Honestly.
Okay, cool. That sounds good. The blue is like fine. You just put a blue in. It's a blue Morphin Skies, whatever. You eat your Runeblade tags or whatever. But yeah, the red and then the yellow. I'm like, ugh. The red especially. It's like, ugh. Next, we have Destructive Fleetfoot. This is a 0-cost Lightning Runeblade action attack. Attacks for 3, blocks for 3. Has Quick Strike. If this says Go Again, it gets +1 power. So there's one of the different Quick Strikes. And it says when this hits a hero, destroy an Aura token they control. Which, in this format, is, if you squint, in some ways deal 1 damage. Because if you are blowing up a flow, that's 1 spell void they won't have access to later. So I think So if you get to give this Go Again, it ends up being like a 0 for 5, I guess. But even if you don't, it's a 0 for 3 with on hit, deal 1. I think it's fine. This to me is in the role-playing filler category. I give it just a solid C. It's like solid. You're gonna end up with some of these. You're like okay with them. You're not like, oh yeah, I got a bunch of these. It's like, it's cool.
Yeah, I actually kind of like the blue. I think this is kind of the sort of card where I'm like, oh, this is like a decent blue in my deck. I have this... Yeah, C++. I'm in the same range as you, honestly. Yeah.
The on it's nice. You kind of do force them to block it, but yeah, I mean they'll block it.
Yeah, and sometimes you actually like the red can screw them, and that's why I think I have it as C++, because sometimes the red can just screw them over. Where you're like, and you do need a mix of 0 and 1 costs because of the way that Aurora plays.
Yes.
So you only usually typically like if you're going with like the double Go Again play pattern, like the big turn, it is a 1 cost and a 0 cost, and like starting with this to like force out, especially if the arcane damage is coming next on the 1 cost, is actually really nice where they're like, oh, do I have to like use equipment here? Do I have to double block this? Do I just have to give up the lightning flow? Is actually really relevant. So I have this as a C+ anyway. Next up is Path of the Same Ends. Is a card you alluded to earlier. It is a Lightning Runeblade action attack. At common, it is a cycle. We're looking at the red one here. Costs 0, defends 2, attacks for 3, and says when this attacks a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. If damage is dealt this way, this gets Go Again. It also has instant, 1 resource, this gets Go Again. Now, important to note, this does defend for 2, but the text on this card is really, really strong.
This card is insane. This card's so good.
I have this at like a B- territory. The only reason I have this, I think, at a B- is the fact it defends for 2, and that you do. I think there is a kind of critical mass of this card where you start to go like, actually, I need some cards better than a head jab that actually do some other things. But I think this card is B- territory.
I have this at B- as well. Yeah, similar to your point, critical mass. There's a block 2 part of it, and of course there is the it's like a weird. I think the awkwardness with this card is planning a turn cycle in a way that's efficient, both if they let the arcane damage through or if they don't. But I think, again, it's like 0 for 4, right? I mean, we spoke about the Arcanic Crackle analogy earlier on. 0 for 4, but instead of losing a block value compared to, say, Stinging Sprite, where you lose the block value, but you get arcane damage on defense, this is you get the ability to pay 1 and give it Go Again to play right into a play pattern that you're trying to do. And I think for that reason, this card is just... I think... You want a lot of you can have a few copies of this, and even the blue, like the reds and the blues of this, I think are very, very good.
Cool. Move on.
Next, we have Rush of Power. Cost 0, Lightning Runeblade action attack, attacks for 3, blocks for 3. This one has Quick Strike. If this is Go Again, it gets +1 power. And this one is when this hits a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. So in a way, it's very similar to the Fleetfoot. I think the two of them should be maybe spoken about in conjunction, where Fleetfoot, you destroy an aura token they control, which, as we spoke about, is in some ways dealing 1 damage, but potentially it could be more. But in some ways it could be less, because if they're in a situation where they don't have a lightning flow, which definitely can happen, or the instant speed use the lightning flow like a Ziggy or an Oscilio, then your Fleetfoot actually just doesn't have an on-hit. Whereas this one always has an on-hit, but you give them the option to maybe just blow up a flow to prevent arcane damage, in which case it does the same thing as a Fleetfoot. But if they don't have the flow, then this still has on-hit, whereas a Fleetfoot doesn't. It's very, very contextual. They're all like so near each other. I just gave it the same score. I'm like, yeah, this is still a C. It's just, yeah.
Yeah, I have C+ for this. I think they're slightly above a C because of the 0 for 5 potential, and this one has a cleaner 0 for 5. But I think the blue Fleetfoot is slightly better than Rush of Power, because situationally, if I want to play a blue, I want a higher ceiling on it. Possibly, it's nuanced anyway, but we're on the same page. Cool. Next up is what do we have?
Singeing
Flow Stride. Next up is Singeing Flow Stride. Correct. So Lightning Runeblade action attack. Again, this is a common cycle. Costs 1. We're looking at the red. Defends for 3. Attacks for 4. Has Quick Strike again. If this has Go Again, it gets when this attacks a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. And the first time this deals damage to a hero, create a Lightning Flow token. This is the card you were speaking about earlier. This card's got to be good, right, Pankaj?
I think it's good. There is... Okay, I want to talk about lightning flows in Aurora. Like, I feel like in the others, like the lightning flow feels a lot more tangible. Like, again, I'm looking at this in relation to the other Fleetfoot, not destructive Fleetfoot, which destroys the aura, but dashing Fleetfoot, which is the yellow cost that creates an embodiment of lightning when it deals damage. I'm comparing this to that, and I do feel like it is quite a bit worse, right?
Agree.
It's this one's red, the other one's yellow, and this one creates a lightning flow, which you then later need to pay to convert into an embodiment of lightning, whereas the other one just creates an embodiment of lightning already. So for that reason, it's like, when given the fact that I give Dashing Fleetfoot a B-, and I do think this is worse than that, but still very good, I give this a C+. I was like, I can't give this the same grade, so I give this a C+.
Yeah, I think one thing that's really worth pointing out is, although this is the first time this deals damage to a hero, create a lightning flow, and it has base 4, so the other one is quick strike of get the +1. You're never really playing this off, like, but the thing is, you're never really just playing this off of, like, you're not just, I'll pitch a red to play my Singeing Flow Strike. Like, that's a bad turn. So the fact that, like, the other one requires quick strike to get the breakpoint is kind of irrelevant, because that's the play pattern of Aurora. So that sort of that downside, I guess, to having to be a quick strike is so much more minimal than what you get on the upside. So yeah, I have a C+ as well. I'm on like the exact same wavelength as you.
And yeah, and that one's yellow as well, so you can't even like fund your turn. And then that one gives you an embodiment of lightning immediately. So it's just
Correct.
like, yeah. Cool. Next we have Stunning Swipe. This is a 0 cost, attacks for 3, blocks for 3. Lightning Runeblade attack, has quick strike. When this has go again, it gets when this attacks a hero, deal 1 arcane damage to them. And it says the first time this deals damage to a lightning hero, tap them or a weapon they control.
Tapping is pretty good in this format. Like, I think this is not as good as, obviously, like, just fueling your embodiments of lightning, or, you know, having go again built into the card. But I think it's like somewhere in and around destroying an aura. I think I like this slightly less than the destroying an aura, just for the impact this has, because your opponent can play around this more by responding with their hero or their weapon on the turn. So I have this as just like a solid C. I think it's a role player.
Yeah, I give this a C as well. I think Oscilio and Ziggy are probably quite able to just activate their hero in response. Not always, and sometimes they do want to save it for their own turn. So it is like mildly disruptive sometimes. Or sometimes you force them to like give you the equipment or give up a lightning flow and then block 3. So yeah, C. I do like this less than the one that destroys an aura on hit. Also because that one, when you give it go again, it comes in for 4.
Cool. Next up is Vaultbound Duality. We're back on the dualities common cycle here, and we're looking at the red one. It is 0 cost, attacks for 4 at red, defends for 3. It is Lightning Runeblade action attack. Instant, 1 resource, discard this, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero, create a lightning flow. Just like we spoke about with Ziggy, I have this at a B-. And again, the blue is really where I'm operating at. I want this, like, maybe it's C+ for red and yellow, and like a B, solid B for like the blue. This is the resource card I want in my deck.
I give the blue a B-, and the red and yellow C+.
Sure.
I think like exact as you. Like, I'd rather have this compared to Stunning Swipe. Like in the red, for example. That's why the red's like a C+. The other one was a C. And okay, one thing I definitely want to talk about regarding this. We spoke about scam damage. This is one of the few ways Aurora has scam damage, and I think that is very important. I think a lot of times people might not be expecting it, and they might be like, okay, against Aurora, it's safe for me to go down to 0 flows, for example, and you know they've lost their equipment or whatever as well, and then maybe in a sense like tap out, and then you can just suddenly win out of nowhere by killing them with a Vaultbound Duality. I think you want these cards, like a lot of them.
Cool. Let's move on.
Next, we have Electrin Jolt Step. This is 1 cost, Lightning Runeblade action that blocks for 3. So non-attack action that blocks for 3. Says your next Runeblade or Lightning attack this turn gets +3 power. Create a Lightning Flow token. Go again. So this is come to fight in the sense that it's pay 1, pump 3, and it blocks 3, but also creates a Lightning Flow token. I think this card's very good. I think it's very good.
Yeah, I think this is like, I think this card is really good. I think I just want to point out one downside to this card is that it costs 1. And in the typical sort of pattern of play with Aurora, you only want 1 cost in one cost in your turn typically. However, because you want to create the embodiment of lightning, this does give you more lightning flows, so it's very strong. So it's like its value of maybe like a 4 damage, maybe 4.5. What I would say though is that also on your off turns, this is really nice because you can be like, okay, pitch my yellow, play this, play my 1 cost attack, come in for 7, build up a lightning flow, or even just a 3-card hand of play this, play my 0 cost, create a breakpoint with my 0 cost, swing my weapon, create another embodiment of lightning, and pass the turn and set up for next turn. So I think this card is like a B, maybe even B+, honestly, especially like the first 1 or 2. I think this card is like something that I would actively take as a signal that Lightning Runeblade is open.
I gave it a B as well. I think there are a few things to talk about. Firstly, I think ways to convert your hands that don't require an embodiment of lightning are very premium. We spoke about the play pattern of on-turn, off-turn. The thing is, it's good on the off-turn. It's also good on the on-turn because you may have set up the embodiment of lightning, but you may not have drawn like the extra an extra attack. But then this is effectively like an extra attack that also sets you up by creating a lightning flow token. So I think that's really good. And also, to speak about the pumps part of it, a lot of your cards want to deal damage like the first time. And when you get to send your on-hit with like 1 arcane damage rider plus like 7 physical because of being pumped by this jolt step, that's a lot more difficult for the opponent to deal with. It's very easy for them to deal with like 3 or 4 physical. It's a lot harder for them to deal with 7 because of the number of 2 blocks and no blocks that are in the format. And oftentimes those blocking cards are like what they want to send at you. So like for all those reasons, the on hits, the fact that it's good on the off turn and on the on turn, and it's a way to convert your hand that don't require embodiments of lightning. Like for that reasons, I think this is a B. I could see, like to your point, it going up to a B+.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Even the blue, right, is like the fact of, it's not a terrible hand extender. If we were talking before about your opponent bricking you by blocking you out and sending you back, and this also can still create you the value of the lightning flow token. Exactly. So it's not the worst on like a full hand, and blocks 3. Cool. All right, next up we have Quick Succession. This is a Lightning Runeblade action. Again, another non-attack action as a cycle at common, cost 0, and we're looking at the red one here. Defends for 2, and says the next Runeblade or Lightning attack action card you play this turn gets Go Again, and your next 3 attacks this turn get +1 attack while they have Go Again, and the card itself has Go Again. A lot of terminology of Go Again on that card. Pankaj, I think the things I want to point out though is that defends for 2 and is a Go Again enabler. This is much more exciting. Well, not much more, but a decent amount more exciting to me than the crappy Skies card.
I'd go in much more.
Okay,
I would say much more.
I have this at a C+. I think, this is a Go Again enabler that I'm not like upset to play, but it does defend for 2, and it's at its best. Well, the red version is at its best on bigger turns. Because if I want to get 3 value of damage out of this, and I want my Go Again, which I think that sort of, if the card said deal, give +3 to your next attack and get Go Again at 0. That's very good, right? And I would give that of like a, that's like a B+, A- territory. I think that card is very good. That is not what this card does. You do need to get the full value by being able to go wide, which is, it's important to note this isn't attack action, so this does trigger on if your weapon had Go Again, but it's very hard to get all 3 value off of a red. I think you're more looking at like 2 value. I think the yellow is very nice actually often, but defense 2 can be a little bit more situational. I think this card is fine.
Okay, this is our first Lightning Runeblade card where we differ. Okay. I have the red at a B and the yellow and the blue at a B+.
Okay.
I think, I agree with you. The red is very difficult with the full 3. I don't think you're really going to be doing that, but I think the yellow, giving Go Again and potentially +2, like the yellow one feels straightforward to get the full value from, where you play the yellow, play your attack, activate Aurora, play the other attack, swing the weapon, you get the +2 right there. Blue, I think, is also very good. I think a +1 can be understated as well because of the on hits that this Aurora likes to put on the cards that are getting Go Again. This to me feels like just a strict upgrade to Mercurial Scries. I think you want quite a few number of these. Wow. Also, internally, we're playing a bunch of CC and stuff. I've taken to calling this the quick suck, and I'm really scared I'm going to say this on camera at some point, like on stream or something, like while casting. So I got to like hold back on that. But anyway.
There's another Brian Gottlieb moment when he's happened. I can see that. I can see this being really good in CC. I think I just like compare. I think the yellow one is probably the best. Maybe it's the blue, but I compare it to like Mauvrion Skies, for instance, and I'm like, the upgrade on Mauvrion Skies is conditional and not that much higher, I think. And I do agree this is a big upgrade on Skies, But I think
if my yellow Morven Sky says I get the +2 every time, I'd be like, this card's insane.
yeah, but you don't get the +2 every time because you also need to have go again on both your attacks to get the +2.
Well, you at least get +1.
You get
right?
+1.
You 100%
You
at
get
least get +1.
+1, right?
Yeah.
And I think that is to me that is a C+ territory to me.
Okay.
Like a go again card with +1 extra attack. That is C+ territory to me. So that, and I think that's where this card lands personally. So, but yeah, we'll see.
Cool. That's something to come back to for sure.
yeah, cool. All right, where are we next?
Next, we are transitioning into the untalented Runeblade cards. We have Arcanic Cunning. This one costs 0, attacks for 4, blocks for 3. So standard wounding blow stat line. And it says, while this is attacking, defending, or on the stack, if you would be dealt arcane damage, prevent 1 of that damage. So just a quick note on this is that it does stop multiple pings. It's not just the next time you'd be dealt arcane damage, prevent 1. Is if you'd be dealt arcane damage, prevent 1. So if the Oscilio is, I don't know, somehow unlimited, they're discarding the Echo Flash and just pinging you for 1 3 times or something. Or just sending a bunch of like Starfall pings at you. This will kind of stop all of it. However, if this is on the stack, they just won't do it. So I'm very mid on this card. I'm like, dude, just compared to like Red Duality, I'm like, bro, get out of here with this card. Like, what? Like, sure, it's a wounding blow stat line. You can't be too mad at it, but brother, I just want Red Duality over this like any day of the week.
Dude,
like, the text is basically textless. What is this?
I agree. I still as the first one I was like, oh, interesting. Okay, like this is quite an interesting card. And I went through. I was like, so when does this happen? And then I just wrote wounding blow ? And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's wounding blow. It's actually, I give it a C. It's just like, it's wounding blow.
Yeah, I have a C. I think I would give this a. So I did think of a couple of like specific interactions where, particularly when you attack with it and your opponent's trying to present lethal, or when you defend with it and your opponent's trying to do any kind of like, particularly against Ziggy, where they're trying to do damage,
like auric shards.
Yeah, but it's like I think it's so neat. I have like C+ at blue, but I'm like, okay, sure.
I could see that. It's the when you send lethal. This is, I think, into Ziggy. Maybe you have a bit more, like, to your point. They might want to play their auras on as a reaction in a sense. Actually, hang on, no. Oh, on the stack, because on the stack as well. Okay, okay,
exactly.
So it does matter. It will stop the Afro in response. It'll like prevent 1 of it. But there is also actually another important interaction to Ziggy specifically is that corrosive space dust, which will die like if they try to get it killed and then ping you like from the ward. It will stop that 1 ping. Yeah. So it's not like irrelevant. It's not, but yeah, it's just like
pretty close to it though.
It's so narrow. I'm just like, dude, just give me red full punctuality like all the time.
Cool. All right. Next up, we have a bit of a cycle. These are Runeblade non-attack actions at rare. They only come in red, right? Yes.
I think so.
Yes. I'm just going to quickly double check that before I go through these. Yes, they only come in red. So again, one of these cycles that are only in a certain color but have different effects, but they all have the same kind of stat line. So they are Runeblade non-attack actions at rare. As I said, they all defend for 3. They all cost 1, and then they all give a +3 attack to the next action card you play this turn. Important to note, action cards. So whether that's lightning, whether that's Runeblade, whether that's generic. And so they are Leech Memory, Leech Renown, and Leech Vitality. Memory says the next attack action card you play this turn gets +3 attack, and whenever this deals damage to a hero, you may put an attack action card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. Renown does all the same things, except whenever this deals damage to a hero, you destroy an aura token they control. And then we have Vitality, which is whenever this deals damage to a hero, gain 1 life. Now you might think, oh, these effects feel quite weak. But what's worth pointing out as well, I think they are kind of a little bit weak, but what's worth pointing out is that it's whenever this deals damage, not the first time this deals damage. So if you pair this with a quick strike ping and you also hit, for instance, with Leech Vitality, you would gain 2 life. So you all of a sudden got a come to fight that actually is a +5. So I think it's really easy to make, particularly the Leech Vitality, like 4 value. And I think we spoke before, I would rather have the other pump that creates lightning flow. I think that's the sort of value I want of 1. But these cards are fine. I actually think Leech Vitality have like a C+ range, and the others I think maybe Renown C+ as well. Memory I think is kind of whatever.
Okay, this might be where we differ once again. I have Renown at B, because again, whenever this deals damage, it can happen multiple times, but destroy an aura token, we spoke about lightning flows already, but I think threatening the lightning flows is good. I put Renown and Vitality in this space of it feels like when you get to trigger the on hits, they're kind of +1. The +1. I put both of them in B, and I put Memory at B-. Again, a big part of it is also similar to Jolt Step, where, when I say Jolt Step, I mean Electron Jolt Step, which is the other pump we spoke about. Ways to convert your hand without embodiments of lightning, to me, are quite premium in Aurora. I think Aurora decks will fall over just trying to commit to the, multiple embodiments of lightning and just attack thing. I think you need to have some leeway where you may not have the embodiment of lightning chain, but still need to be able to convert your hand on a turn cycle. I guess to caution, you don't want too many of these. Obviously, you're drawing you don't want the Runeblade problem of just drawing all your non-attacks. But I think the first couple of copies of these are in like the BB minus range for me. Where I do want, I want 2 to 3 of these pumps in my ideal Aurora deck, I think.
Yeah, I just want them to all be Electron Jolt Steps, I think. Maybe 1 Leech Vitality. And that's kind of why I have Leech Vitality half a grade down. Like if I have a B for Jolt Step, then I think I have Leech Vitality at C+. I can be talked up to a B- for it, actually. I think the card is really good. And then Renown, I'd probably be to C+. And Memory, I'm this is a come to fight, honestly. So I can only
Memory is
And unlike other Runeblades, non-attack actions actually aren't the fact they're a non-attack action is not worth the same as what they are in other sets. For a Viscerai trigger or Correia, etc. And I just think that's it is important.
Yeah, it's not the raw you played a non-attack, but it's the I got to convert my hand because I couldn't make embodiments of lightning this turn.
100%. You've just got to be careful about how many 1 cost, because the turns where you can convert embodiments of lightning, but you can't actually convert them in the way you want to because you're stuck with a non-attack action instead of an attack action is actually relevant.
Very true. Yeah. I think that's what I think maybe I would just I'll put asterisk on my B and be it's the first couple of copies, the first deck 2 copies after you get diminishing returns for exactly what you're talking about.
For sure.
Nice. Next, we have a wizard in the format.
Yeah. Do you want to introduce us, because you are the wizard aficionado of the podcast, Pankaj?
I don't know. You're the one who made the most popular Kano guide. It feels that people still reference. We have Oscilio, Scion of the Third Age. It's a lightning wizard hero, young. This hero only has 19 health. Which is super unfair because the Illusionist also deals damage on the opponent's turn, but alright, whatever, it's fine. 4 intellect, has instant pay 1 resource, tap, destroy a lightning flow you control, discard a card, and create a ponder token. If an instant is discarded this way, you may play it this turn. And then we'll go over Volzar Meteor Storm as well, which is a weapon that comes with this hero, which is a 2-handed staff, and it says instant, tap it, amp 1, activate this only if an instant card has been put into your graveyard this turn. There is a lot to talk about this hero. I'll start with Volzar, which is the condition. Okay, Volzar, the condition of an instant card being put in your graveyard this turn doesn't necessarily only need to happen via Oscilio's hero ability.
Correct.
It could also happen if you just play the instant card, for example. It could be an instant popping at the start of your turn.
Yep.
Say a core reaction, for example.
One of my favorites.
All of these can turn this on. And for Oscilio, something that I think a lot of people might miss, you don't need to discard the instant to get the ponder token. You could, on an empty hand, pay 1 resource, tap Oscilio, destroy a lightning flow, and convert that into a ponder token. That is very, very important to remember. If you have excess lightning flows, you could convert them into Spell Void in Limited. You could even pay a resource and convert them into a full card of a ponder token. It's an option available to you, just pointing that out.
Yep. I don't have much more to say. I think as we talk through the cards, we'll talk more about kind of the impact of this hero. I think this hero, I think you called it out whether it was I think it was at the top of the pod, but you don't actually have to have a card to discard in order to get the ponder token. If you have no cards left in hand, you can activate Oscilio and just get the ponder token, right? You don't have to discard. It's not part of the cost. So yeah, I think this hero is good.
Yeah. That is, it's almost certainly going to be more relevant in CC rather than in Limited, because in Limited, you're losing a Spell Void as well, which is quite important. And also in Limited, your deck quality is worse than random ponders. Your random ponder is just some Mopey Blue. You might have preferred just having a lightning flow around, to be honest. So Limited is a little bit worse, but it's just important to note that as available for you. Say you're in a Hail Mary sort of situation, you draw the exact specific card, things like that.
Do you think this is the hero ability you utilize the least in this Limited format? On average over a given game or a draft?
I had never thought of it that way, but Aurora wants to activate it pretty much like every turn, and then Ziggy wants to activate pretty much every turn as well. Oscilio can get away with not activating it. So yeah, I would agree with you on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've landed on that yet, but I do find that actually the way I've been building my Oscilio decks though is I've actually been playing the least amount of blues in my Oscilio decks, and so I have been activating the hero ability more than I thought I would be, and being happy to draw like yellows, like yellow instants that have effects and some cards that we'll get into and things like that. I find that I often have decks where I'm like, actually there's only like 5 cards I don't want to draw off a ponder, and so I'm actually pretty okay to like actively activate the hero ability.
Yeah. And I think the point about maybe this hero ability being activated the least out of 3 is potentially, I think it makes a lot of sense, because I think if you think about the ceilings of the hero abilities, I think Oscilio has the highest one, right? You're paying, all of them use a flow. This is paying, so it's basically saying pay 1, draw a card, which is an insane hero text if you think about it, like in terms of like a ceiling. Ziggy is like pay 2, get 2 damage and an additional effect of like your aura or whatever. Well, I guess it's pay 3, get an additional effect of the aura and deal 2 damage, whereas this is literally pay 1, draw a card, which is seems crazy when you think of it that way.
At minimum, because it also could be the only way you can trigger Volzar, could be the way you trigger Starfall. Like there's so many things that actually the hero ability has on the front ceiling side. So yeah, I agree. Exactly.
And actually, I think to that point as well, as we maybe we can speak about this at the end of this, but just sure. I think as we look at these cards, I think it's important to note, out of the 3 heroes, I do think Oscilio has the highest ceiling in Limited.
Cool. Let's get into the cards, because I think that'll help us dictate that a little bit more. And let's go ahead and start with the Lightning Wizard Equipment Arms, which is our Constellar Waves. This is a common, defense for 0, and says instant, tap your hero, destroy this, amp 1. Tapping your hero is like a really, as we're going to see, especially in Wizard, is a really big cost. And there's not only your hero. So in Oscilio, of course, there's your hero ability, but there's also a lot of cards that want to tap your hero as well. And so that's why I say...
And the equipment, your other equipment. Yeah, and your prevention equipment, for example.
So this is kind of your other... Yes, your prevention equipment. And this is why I say I think is Oscilio the hero that utilize the ability the least, because there's actually other cards that want to utilize your hero to tap. So I think Constellar Waves for me is comparable to the Aurora Arms in some ways, except this doesn't cost a resource, but it almost costs more in some ways. I have this at a B though. I struggle to put this like too much lower because it's equipment, and actually the amp effect to sometimes just like prevention's great, but you also have lightning flows, and sometimes you're just like, oh, I can actually just send this I can kill my opponent on their turn by sending this like 4 damage, or on my turn by sending 6 or 7 damage, and you can just kill people out of nowhere, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, I also put this at a B. And my note was, it's good, but the sip is definitely doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Which is, it's like, the tap your hero is a very real cost these days, especially with a lot of the Oscilio cards as we get into it. And it's a very similar value as, like Prevention Arms. Actually, no, the Prevention Arms maybe not quite. It's very similar value as the Aurora Arms, to your point. So yeah, I think we're on the same page there.
Cool. Next up.
Next, we have Arc Ramp. This is a 0-cost Lightning Wizard action that blocks for 2, and it says Amp 3, and you may destroy a Lightning Flow you control. If you do, this gets go again. Remember, again, Lightning Flow in this limited format effectively is costing you a life in some ways. In Oscilio, maybe even is costing you like a ponder later on down the line. To me, the grade of this, I give us a build around. I think if you can get the correct combination of cards where you have enough lightning flow generation, you have enough tall arcane spells, which in Limited is not a given. Oscilio, you will end up with a bunch of these attacks, a bunch of like lightning attacks in your Oscilio deck as well. But if you're able to put together a list that can create enough lightning flows, enough tall arcane spells, then I can see this being very good. But other than that, I think it's like mid. So I give this a build around grade.
I just gave this a straight up D. This card sucks. All this card in my deck.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
If I have to play this in my deck, I'd almost consider playing a Crack Bauble, I think. I mean, the yellow's fine because, the red. I think the yellow is fine because at least it pitches, right? And blocks 2. But I'm almost never going to play this card. I think there is maybe some element of build around, like you say, but yeah, I just want to point out that I think this card is actively terrible.
Mm-hmm. That's fair.
Cool. Next up, we've got Core Reaction. This is a Lightning Wizard instant aura at rare. It is a cycle. It costs 2. And the red one we're looking at says at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this and deal 4 arcane damage to any target. It's important to note yellow's 3, blue's 2. This card is good. I really like these start of turn instants that pop, obviously to allow you to activate your Volzar, obviously for Starfall as well, I think is really important. And yeah, I just think like instant speed arcane damage, like Oscilio just has this interesting play pattern where you kind of play a game for a little bit of like trading damage, and then you end up playing something like a Correia. Like you can just deal like 10 arcane damage on your turn and your opponent's like, oh, that was off a 4 or 5 card hand. I wasn't expecting that. And you're like, yeah, you did. And so I really like this card.
I'm a big fan of this card as well. There's so much going for it. It's a good Oscilio target. It curves very cleanly with the hero ability. It's tall arcane. It turns on Starfall on your turn as well, at the start of your turn. And it isn't easy to trigger Starfall in a way that is efficient. And this is like one of the ways that is efficient. And when I say Starfall, I also mean Volzar. Also, it converts your hand, which I think is very, very important. Once again, I think a big theme of this set is, can you convert your hand if your opponent decides they don't want to let you block? If the opponent decides they don't want to let you convert your hand defensively, are you able to actually convert your hand enough on offense? And this card does that excellently as well. I'm just a big fan. I give this a B. Yeah,
I've talked myself up to a B. I was about to say I'm coming up to a B. You've given it a B as well. I think that's where I'm actually at in this card, particularly the red. I think this card is really. I think there is a cost to playing the blue version of this card in your deck. Like actually, the blue may just be like a C. Like it's a role player if you need it. You need instant speed, ways that work with your cost structure. But I would prefer not to play too many of those.
Yeah, I will say there's a real cost to this. I think again when we give this a B, we do need to asterisk this as well. Maybe it's like the first copy.
Yeah, you can't.
Because once you draw 2 of these in the same hand, you're crying. Like it's 2 of these in the same hand is like the worst. And especially if you draw this in all red hand, you're probably just dead. So you kind of want like 1.
Yeah. Although actually you can. I have played a game where I've had 2 of these, and I did kill my opponent with them. Because you can. My opponent was on 9, had no way to prevent damage, and let the first one pop, and then activate Volzar, and then because it's beginning of action phase, not start of turn. Yeah.
Yeah. Next, we have Flashbolt. It's very similar to Core Reaction. This one costs 2, again, Lightning Wizard instant. And this one just says deal 3 arcane damage to target hero. So instead of popping at the start of your turn, you get 1 less damage, but you get it right now. I will say this feels decently worse than
I agree.
It's like it feels way worse than 1 point worse for some reason. It's not even like a Volzar thing, because you can Volzar the turn you play this. I guess you'll need something else. It's just and then like 1 less damage. I mean, in theory, you can scam people. You know, I've spoken quite a bit about like scamming people in that turn. This one lets you scam more than correction. But aside from scamming, I just feel like I'd rather have Core Reaction. This is still decent.
Yeah.
I give this like a C+,
same.
maybe B-. Oh,
no way.
But like, it's just
the problem is like you cannot have too many underrate cards in your Oscilio deck, because yes, you are an arcane damage deck, but you will just die if your opponent is able to prevent enough damage and outvalue you. Like this is kind of the challenge of like the arcane Verdance decks, right? In Rosetta, but to a lesser extent because the format hasn't got quite as much like tall damage in it. But I do think that like this I often look at this card and I have it in my hand and I'm like, well, I already have a Core Reaction in my deck. I wish this card blocked 3, so I could just block them.
Yeah,
and I think that is where that you really feel the burn of the cost. But yeah, I'm with you. I have a C+.
I think it's like if you couldn't find a Core Reaction, you have this instead. Like okay, I guess. But I think it feels it feels way worse than Core Reaction than just 1 damage, and I cannot fully put my finger on why.
Yeah, I think it's because it doesn't block. But yeah, and like just also, I do think like just the structure of like using this with Oscilio and then being able to Volzar on your turn, I think just generally feels better. I think that game plan feels a bit more on rate. Cool. All right, next up we have Comet Collision. This is a Lightning Wizard action at common. It is a cycle again. It costs 0 and defense for 3. And the red says deal 3 arcane damage to any target. And this has Starfall. If an instant card has been put into your graveyard this turn, instead deal 4 arcane damage. So with Starfall, it all has the same trigger requirement, which is an instant card going to your graveyard this turn. And then it will give you a certain effect. In this case, it's an one additional damage on Comet Collision. And important to note that, of course, with Oscilio's hero ability, of course, does go to the graveyard, so it does help you trigger Starfall, but you can also just play instants or have something like a Core Reaction pop at the start of the turn. I think the 0 cost ones are fine. there's some cool interactions with like the zero cost instance and the zero cost actions and your weapon, but I think there's only so many of them that you want, and I think although this is an extra piece of damage, I kind of just have this at a C. To me, this is just like bread and butter. You're going to have some number of these in the deck, and they're going to be role players within your deck.
Okay, I might be overrating it then. I wrote B-/C+, but I think you have way more experience actually playing limited format, so
maybe.
Kind of want to defer to you on this. I'm just like, if you can consistently turn this on, I think it's in the B- range.
Yeah, that's fair.
But otherwise, if your deck is light on instance, it's in the C+ range. Is literally what I wrote in the notes, and I'm like, yeah, I guess maybe part of me is like been quite impressed with this card in CC, but also in CC you have like access like sigils that you actually want to play, and then when your sigil pops a star return and you Starfall and you send this, it feels very good. That's kind of where I was coming from in Limited. I don't think you have that many like sigils you actively want to play. Sigil of Lightning is a card which I think can be quite decent with this. So you get to actually send physical, close a chain, Starfall, send this for 5. But yeah, I don't know. I add as a B- to C+. I'm just gonna note it down as something that we disagree on, and then we can come back to this. I'm putting low confidence on my grade here.
I mean, with all of these cards, I think they can, like if you've got the right number of instances, if you've got this right archetype where maybe you are lower on, like I was saying before, I think I actually like playing a decent number of yellows in my Oscilio deck. And for that reason, I actually prefer playing the 1-cost spells rather than 0-cost. But I still think there is builds where you can really pay off these 0-costs. Or you can have the 1-cost instance that we'll get to shortly. And you can, one for the hero ability, one for the instant, and then the 0-cost off the back of it with Starfall is really nice, right? It's a 1-card 5 in that case. So maybe this is more like a C+, to your point. But I do think there is some replacement level to this because there is quite a few of these 0-cost burn spells.
Sorry, which 1-cost instance are you talking about?
There's the yellow ones, right?
Those are 0.
Oh, there's 0-cost. Yeah, so it's mostly that's why I typically just favor the 1-cost, honestly. You know what it is
That
actually?
makes sense.
I think often sometimes you can use the
You're
additional...
thinking Echo Flash?
No. You can use the additional resource on like your Seeker's equipment is also fine. But yeah, I think for that reason, I like the 1-cost, which we'll get into very soon.
Sounds good. Next, we have Enion Surge.
Enion Surge,
yeah. Yeah, cost 0. Blocks for 3, Lightning Wizard action. It's a zap. Deals 3 arcane damage to any target. If these deals damage, you may tap your hero. If you do, create a Lightning Flow token. This is what you were alluding to earlier, Hayden, where there are lots of cards in Oscilio, lots of like actual main deck cards that want you to tap your hero, and that's why the arms, we are both sort of... We're like, okay, it's good for us. It's obviously sip, so that it's good, but we're not like, oh my god, this is like insane, because there's lots of these cards that want you to tap your hero for extra value. If this deals damage, which I mean it's 3 arcane, quite easy for this to hit. You get to tap your hero and make a Lightning Flow, which effectively saves you 1 life later down the line, maybe draws you a card to Oscilio. I give this a C+. I think it's a solid zap.
Yep, I have a C+ as well. I think this is kind of in and around the same power level as Comet Collusion. I think some builds are going to favor one or the other. Like, I don't use my hero ability that much, so I want the Surge. I use my hero ability a lot. I think the Collusion's better. I think the more I think about it in terms of like the cost structure, if I'm playing a deck that's going to get rewarded for playing these 1-costs, maybe just want the Collusion. Like maybe you're talking me around to that being a C+ and this being a CC+. But anyway, they're in and around the same kind of value there. There's nothing crazy about these cards.
Yep.
Unlike the next card, which I think is very, very good. So next up is Lightning Overload. This is another Lightning Wizard action at common. It is a cycle. It costs 1 and defense for 3. The red says deal 4 arcane damage to any target, and it has Starfall. If an instant card has been put into your graveyard this turn, create a Lightning Flow. So just don't have to tap your hero. Just straight up creates a Lightning Flow. I also think this fits into the cost structure of what I want to be doing with my Oscilio decks. I had this at a B-, but maybe I'm actually just like a straight B on this card. Actually, you know what? I'm a straight B on this card. I think this card is just like really, really good.
Okay, I have at B-, C+, B- C+ range, a little bit lower than you. I think it's super solid. I find the curve a little bit awkward though, and I think I might be missing something. Because if I'm Oscilio abilitying, that costs 1. I have a 0-cost instant because there's no 1-cost instant.
Yeah.
So I'm playing the 0-cost instant and I'm paying 1 for this. What am I doing with my extra resource? Unless you think Oscilio's more based around yellows?
I think Oscilio might actually be based around a few yellows, honestly, because I think there's not many 2-cost burn spells. Like there's There's obviously the instant ones that we spoke about, which fits nicely in cost structure, but they don't block, so you have to be careful how many of those you actually play anyway. And then otherwise you're looking at Turn to Mindfire, right, which is a rare. So it's really hard to actually have these 2 costs in your deck. So I am coming around to the fact of playing like 5-6 blues and like 6 or 7 yellows in my deck. Maybe even more, maybe eight yellows in my deck. And so for that reason, I think these are the kind of cards. I could be wrong, right? This is my early take on like where I'm thinking Oscilio is directing into. And if I'm right, I think it's really fucking cool, honestly, that we rely less on like blue curves and some of these yellows that pay you off for like, oh, I have my 2 yellow instants here. I'll use one of them to play and one of them to pitch this turn, for instance, is really nice. But yeah, I think the fact that this just keeps creating your lightning flow for that play pattern as well, I think is really strong.
Yeah, and the yellow instants are pretty good, and they're your Oscilio targets. If they're also your resource curves, and they like fund your 1-cost spell turns. Yeah, I could see it. So I was a little bit lower than you, B minus C plus, but yeah, I think we'll have to see how the resource curve turns out in the hero. Mm-hmm. Next, we have Meteoric Impact. Costs 1, blocks for 3, Lightning Wizard action. Deal 3 arcane damage to any target. Starfall, if an instant card has been put into your graveyard this turn, instead deal 5 arcane damage. This feels like Lightning Overload's like younger brother, like worse. Like it's just worse because okay. So if we think about Lightning Flows as like one value, minimum one value, yeah. Lightning Overload, the floor is a 1 for 4, and then if you hit the Starfall, it creates a Lightning Flow, which is 1 value. The floor of Meteoric Impact is 1 for 3, and then the ceiling, although when you fulfill the condition, is the same value as the other ceiling. So I just see a card that's like has a lower floor, and the ceiling's like the same as the other one. It is kind of why I like gave this a little bit lower. I give this a C. I think it's solid. It's good. Yeah, I could see C plus. I'm gonna say it's probably I think it might be a C plus when you do turn it on. It feels awesome, but yeah, I just don't know how often you can turn it on. I think that's something I'm gonna need to play with it a little bit more to understand how reliable this is.
I think that's where I'm at like a B minus B on this. Like I think the red is a B. And I think it really just comes down to that, like how reliably can you turn this on, right? But I think that is the game plan you want to be playing with Oscilio. So maybe it is more around a B minus because actually in reality, this Oscilio deck I'm talking about is not the default. It's just like one of the archetypes, but you need enough yellow instant cards to be able to turn that on. And otherwise, this is just a worse version of creating lightning flows in order to like generate value, which could be very true. So I have this at around the same as Lightning Overload, but yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe this is the younger brother, so to speak. One thing I will say though is like when you get into like the end game and you have cards that deal 5 arcane damage, like that is very good. So yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah. Cool. I'll note that down as something we should come back to. Not so much because we like disagree. I think we're both like, we don't fully know. We're just kind of guessing. I think it'll be interesting to like discuss this with hindsight of how the format actually shakes out.
Yep. Cool. Next up, we've got our Nebula duality. So the third of our dualities.
Ooh, the dualities! We love the dualities.
We do love the dualities. This is a Lightning Wizard action at common. It is a cycle. It costs 0, defense for 3. And the red one says deal 3 arcane damage to any target. So it's a zap. And it has the duality effect. Instant 1 resource, discard this, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero, create a lightning flow. A B minus on this, I think B in the blue. Yeah. But actually red, like as a zap is, like I do want some zaps in my deck. So I think this card is card is solid.
B minus as well. My notes were scamming is good. One thing to note though, this is a little bit of an awkwardness. It just feels a little bit annoying, but just note that when you discard this, it's not an instant. You aren't turning on Volzar or your Starfall effects. Just note, it can be very easy to forget that. It'd be insane if it was. But yeah, it's just easy to forget that amidst all the other like discarding Starfall effects that you're getting everywhere.
Yeah, cool.
Next, we have Tap Lessons Past. 1 cost, wizard action that blocks for 3. Lightning wizard action that blocks for 3. Deal 4 arcane damage to any target. If deals damage, you may tap your hero. If you do, put an instant card from your graveyard on the bottom of the deck. The instant card can be something like a core reaction, something like a flashbolt, maybe one of your sigils. So, it can be pretty good. I think it's overall meh, but I think it's a little bit of a bump as a sideboard grade into Ziggy specifically. So I have this at a C with a C plus sideboard grade into Ziggy specifically, because that matchup you do need to be concerned about potentially getting fatigued.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have the same thing. If you want to talk about little brothers of 1 cost Aether Quickening effects, then I think this is one that is not super relevant. Cool. Next up, we have Cosmic Suture. This is a Lightning Wizard instant common as a cycle, costs 2, and says prevent the next 4 damage that will be dealt to you this turn in red. Yellow is 3, blue is 2, and it has Starfall. If an instant card has been put into your graveyard this turn, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. I really like. I actually like this card more than I thought I did at the start, and then I've come back down on it again. Again, just because you can only have so many cards that don't block, so many cards that cost 2 and fit into this kind of instant structure. The bonus is an instant, and that's great for Starfall effects. Doesn't trigger itself though, so you need to have double instants, which is more cards that don't block in order to get the 5 value out of this card. So I think I've landed effectively around this card, just kind of being like a C, maybe a C plus in its best cases.
Well, unless you Oscilio this, then you do get
100%.
Oh, you do get its own stuff.
Which does fit into the cost curve of like pitch your blue, Oscilio, get your Ponder token, play this at instant speed. And the 1 damage can actually be like quite nice sometimes against Ziggy. But
you could Volzar it on that play pattern as well.
Correct. So you can make it a 2-card 6 to make it like the full value, right? But I think you can only play so many of these kinds of cards. And so I think for me, I want to play the more aggressive cards, like the break at the start of turn to get, so it's 2-card 5 value, but triggers Starfall on that turn. But I think some decks will prefer to actually play this because of just the way Starfall, you just don't have as many other Starfall cards in your deck. So I think C plus is kind of where I'm at on this card.
Yeah, I give this 3 different grades depending on the hero I'm against.
Sure,
I think Into the Mirror, I have it as a C plus.
Sure.
And into Aurora, I have it at a C, and into Ziggy, I have it a C minus. Because I think into Ziggy, you don't want to be spending your cards preventing damage, but sometimes you'll be forced to. So it's like C, the worst there. But in the Mirror, it's like they're setting taller arcane at you. This is one of the few ways you can actually prevent it. And into Aurora, it's interesting. I do want to note something which people might have missed. The prevention is Oldhim Earth React style, in that the prevention floats around. It prevents the next 4 damage you're preventing for this turn. So if the Aurora goes ping for 1 and attack for 3, this 1 card does prevent the entire damage of the Aurora's attack. Mm-hmm. It's not the next time you'd be dealt damage prevent 4 of it. It's just for the rest of this turn you're preventing the next 4 damage.
Yeah.
It's
not
exactly
just a single source, which kind of sucks if it was.
Yeah, so the prevention persists, which means it's like good into the split damage Aurora. The problem is 4 is it doesn't stop. A lot of their quick strikes are like 1+4, and so this 4 doesn't actually stop their on hit unless you maybe use your extra resource to like pop a Seeker's equipment or something. But then you're not activating Oscilio. Whatever, it gets a little bit weird. That's why into Aurora it's like fine. It's a C. Into Oscilio, it's a C plus, and
yeah. Okay, so we're around the same place. It's really important to note. Yeah. There's a grade there, but our discussion on this, I think, in the way this plays and the effects it has and the interactions it has is really important. Cool. Move on.
Yeah. Next, we have the cycle for Oscilio, which is the yellow cycle that all the other heroes have. It's around generating the different tokens. Constellar Contemplation. Actually, I'm going to go over the stat line for all of these. Yeah. These are 0-cost yellow Lightning Wizard instants. None of them block. That's a stat line. They all have Starfall, which is if an instant card has been put into your graveyard this turn, deal 1 arcane damage to target hero. And the 3 of them do different things. Constellar Contemplation creates a Ponder token. Constellar Flow Slide creates a Lightning Flow token. Constellar Uplift untaps your staff. So no embodiments of lightning for Oscilio here. Constellar Uplift untaps your staff. Important to note that even if you Oscilio the Constellar Uplift, you can tap your Volzar, play the Uplift, but you cannot double dip on the staff on the same card. You do need to play some other instant speed effect and then Volzar on that one, or keep the Volzar for like your turn cycle or something if you did this on their turn, to actually realize the value of untapping your staff. You can't do it on just this one card. This is important to note. And I think we alluded to this earlier, Hayden. We both really like Lightning Flows. We're giving I'm guessing we both also given the Lightning Flow one pretty, like, a much better grade. Although, actually, I've put the Lightning Flow one the same level as a Constellar Uplift. And then Contemplation is a C minus to me.
Yeah. So I have uplifted a C. I have C plus C minus, basically. I have flow tied at C plus, uplifted C, and then Constellar Contemplation is like C minus.
That's pretty bad.
Yeah, I actually like if I have like a couple of flow side and a couple of uplift and maybe even the lightning only one that creates 2 lightning flow tokens.
Lightning flows.
Contemplation's like a D for me. Like, I don't want this card in my, like, it is just a straight up crack ball a lot of the time, and it's awkward. Like, I'd rather have the amp card that blocks 2, because at least it blocks 2, because I need some cards in my deck that can actually block and trigger fragment.
Yeah, I have flow slide and uplift on both C+, contemplation C-, same as you.
We're so similar.
Yeah,
cool.
I think it's good. These are so two let's look at flow slide. 2 value is very easy to get with it because you create the lightning flow and it turns on Volzar. So that's your 2 value, no other hoops. But if you get to Oscilio it, then you can actually make it like then you can make it 3, because then you also get the Starfall. So I think the ceiling of like your yellow 0 cost being 3 potentially is just good. Oscilio target as well to like get your ponders as well is just it makes them solid. You need some number of these, but you don't want too many of these, because to your point, you'll have too many non-blocking cards.
Correct. Cool. All right. Next up, we are moving on to, where are we going next?
Untalented wizard cards.
Yes, untalented wizard cards, and the first one is Aether Sling. So this is a wizard non-attack action at rare, defense for 2, costs 1. Is only in red and says deal 4 arcane damage to any target. If this deals damage, you may tap your hero. If you do, this gets go again. Now, you were speaking about being able to utilize your entire hand earlier on some of our other heroes, and that can be a bit of something that can be contentious, right? If you can't do it, you can be in trouble. Oscilio typically has less of that challenge if you have the right number of instants, but also can sometimes have more of that challenge when you don't have those instants, or often you put too many of those instants into your deck and they don't get you the value that you need, right? So I think one copy of Aether Sling is actually really, really nice to have in the end game, and you can actually set up like a really nice 4 or like 3 or 4 card hand that can like present 9-10 damage for lethal. So I think this card is good. It does defend 2, which is worth noting. I kind of have this around like a B-B territory. I do think that like the ceiling on this card is really high and the floor is kind of fine. So I think it is good.
I love this card. I think it's very good. I would. You mentioned you'd be happy with like 1 copy. I think I'd be happy with like 2.
Yeah, fair.
I think I'm giving it a B, and maybe B- into Ziggy specifically, because it's very unreliable. You can't go into your turn, make your blocking decisions, and say, I'm going to Aether Sling into this, and then they play like Ward and pop a Spell Void, and they're like, okay, cool, you don't get your action point back. Because remember, this does need to deal damage, and then you tap your hero to get go again. Again, there's a tap your hero clause in there as well, which is a bit of a cost. So yeah, for that reason, slight downgrade into Ziggy specifically, but yeah, I think you definitely want like 1 or 2 copies of this in your deck.
Cool.
Like tall arcane and allows you to go wide.
Yeah.
Happy.
Cool.
Next, we have Nucleus Aetherbolt. This is a 0 cost wizard action that blocks for 2, says deal 3 arcane damage to any target. If these deals damage, you may tap your hero. If you do, your hero deals 1 arcane damage to any target. So yeah, it's similar to Aether Sling in that it blocks 2 and then has a on damage tap effect, except this one, instead of go again, it's deal an extra 1 ping. I have a similar grade as the other one. It's a B and B- into Ziggy for me.
This
0 for 4 arcane, kind of good.
Also only in red, worth noting as well.
Yes.
I have this B-. I think this is slightly worse. I think there's just so much replacement quality for this card at the 0 cost slot, and that they block 3 fair. As well. I actually even had this at a C for a while, but I played a game with it and I was like, actually, this card is pretty good, although 3 is a lot easier to stop than 4 as well in terms of like triggering the effect. So I've been floating around a C+, B-. I think this card is just a lot more replacement level than Aether Sling is, though.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Next, we have the next card in this sort of cycle of like arcane damage spells that want you to tap your hero. This one's Turn to Mindfire. It is a 2 cost wizard action that blocks for 2, and it says deal 5 arcane damage to any target. If these deals damage, you may tap your hero. If you do, create a ponder token.
Yeah, so there's not many cards that cost 2 that deal arcane damage in this set, and that is like quite relevant to note. But the only thing is so the play pattern works well, right? Pitch your blue, or like activate your Oscilio ability, discard your instant, use your instant, play this with your remaining 2 resources. There's not a ton of interaction with like actually doing that though, because of like this doesn't have Starfall or anything like that. But it is a good use of resources, and also the only thing is like if you Oscilio, this doesn't work with that. So
But if you're Oscilio, you already made a ponder
Exactly.
anyway.
So this doesn't work.
So,
right. So it's really weird
Yeah.
where a lot of the time you're just often just playing this at face value for whatever, just as a 2-card play. But I do like that with the yellows, as I was kind of saying, as potential resource cards. Just be like, here's a 2-card 5 create a ponder token. I think is obviously really strong. Like that is 2-card 5 damage, draw a card effectively, right? And if I'm playing the yellow version of resource space, that's also, I'm going to probably get a lot of value off that ponder token. So with all that said, I have this at around a B, but I think this card could potentially be nuts. I'm just not sure.
I have this at A-.
Yeah.
I'm noting this down as another disagreement that we have.
Well, I don't know.
I
think this card could be the strongest card, or it could just be fine. I'll come up to a B+. How about that? I don't actually think we're too far apart on our evaluation of this card.
So I think it's, again, also a card I think is worth coming back to. I think it's interesting to see this with a fresh lens. I think just for me, 2 costs with the hero ability are just nice. Like, it doesn't matter that you don't... You're still getting a ponder. Like, whether it's from this or whether it's from your hero ability. I just like that. But then also, given that you can just send this on a turn where you're not activating your hero ability and you just get a ponder, like Tall Arcane with card advantage, I don't know, it just feels very strong to me regardless of whether you're activating a hero ability or not, which is why I'm high on this card compared to the other one. What's the one? The 1/3 Meteoric Impact, the 1/3 that can potentially become a 5 if you activate a hero ability. Like that one, the floor is just a little bit too low for me. On a turn where you're not doing the instant stuff, it can feel weird. Whereas this one, it's like you do the instant stuff, you feel good. You don't do instant stuff, you feel good. You get a ponder. I'm a fan.
Yeah.
5 is also so hard for them to deny you the ponder.
It's true. It's true. I just I think that is true. It does defend 2, and it does also only present a 2-card. Like if your ponder is like shit and irrelevant, like you draw blue or something you don't want to arsenal, like 2-card 5, like pretty bad value.
Yeah.
So
bad. But the ponder's craze is good. 1-card 5, insane.
Yeah, the ceiling is really high on this card, and I think it comes down to the build. But I think the floor is a bit lower than you were kind of making it out to be. I think like the floor on this is a 2-card 5, which is on and off turn not great. Like. At least I could potentially turn my other 2 cards into block for 6, right? Or I have a 3-card. Like I think it's really hard, really easy to trigger Starfall in a lot of builds, but yeah.
Yep, that's fair.
And I still get your ponder token.
That's fair. Yeah. We'll note that if I see this in a pack, I'm just like, I feel like I'm quite excited.
Yeah, so I actually am not sure I'm not sure this is a signal. I think there's a chance you see this and the opponent's like the person to your right or whatever is like, this is not the kind of card I want in my Oscilio decks. And I think this may not be an early pick for Oscilio, but we'll have to see. Right, next up we have Haven Veil. This is another rare. This is a cycle though for Wizard Instant Aura, cost 0. Doesn't defend for anything, and we're looking at the red one, which says when this enters the arena, prevent the next 3 arcane damage that will be dealt to you this turn. Yellow is 2, blue is 1, obviously, and at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. What I like about this card, beginning of action phase, destroy this to trigger your amp. What I don't like about this card is it's only good in the mirror.
Yeah, sideboard grade into Oscilio is what I have it. I didn't bother giving a grade to the other 2. It's probably just straight up D into the other 2.
Yes.
You don't want defensive tools into Ziggy, and Aurora isn't sending enough arcane damage at you to make this worth it. Into the mirror, so into the mirror is like maybe like a C plus maybe, because it's kind of like 4, you prevent 3, you turn on your amp. But yeah, it's fine. I think there's better ways for you to prevent damage.
I think this is like a B plus A minus in the mirror. This is a 1-card 4. This is a 1-card 4 in the mirror. I think.
Okay,
I think this card's insane.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, but only at red.
Okay,
cool. Should we move on to lightning?
Okay.
Yeah, we can get through some lightning cards. Right. So we've gone through all our classes. We've gone through our wizards. We've gone through our runeblades. We've gone through our illusionist. Now we're going to talk about the cards that they can all play. And we're going to start off with our Constella Tiara. This is a lightning equipment head. Defends for 0. It is common and says instant 2 resources. Destroy this. Prevent the next 1 damage that be dealt to you this turn. If you prevent damage this way, create a ponder token. What do you think, Pankaj?
I think it's good. I think it's a sip that has prevention on it. Lets you spend resources, because something that happens a lot, at least in Oscilio and Ziggy, less so in Aurora. But sometimes you have these hands that want to play these instants and leave you with resources floating, getting to convert that into 1 prevention and a ponder. Very, very good. I mean, on-board prevention in this format, great. Comes with card advantage. Helps clean out some resource curves, helps you prevent losing a bunch of damage, losing a bunch of life on turn 0. Like, what's not to like? I give this an A.
Wow.
I would first pick this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I have this as a C plus.
Holy! Oh my god! Wow, that's really different. Okay.
I actually think I think that's rough. I think it's actually probably like a B minus because all 3 heroes can play this, but I'm not excited about playing this in Oscilio. Like if I draft this and I end up in Oscilio, I feel like I've wasted a pick potentially. Honestly.
Okay.
I think 2 resources to prevent 1 damage is I think in all of the heroes, I would rather have the other 2 hit pieces. I would rather have the tap to prevent hit piece. I'd rather have a Seeker's equipment. Well,
in Oscilio as well with all the tap effects. Like,
so
that's kind of where I'm.
The thing is like the ponder token. When my hero ability creates ponder tokens, I think it's so dependent on the build you're playing. I think ponder tokens are less valuable on the set than on face value I thought they were going to be. I was like, oh, like some of these things like create ponder tokens, and I realized that there's just a lot of cards I don't want to ask for.
You just draw some instants.
Yeah.
And, like,
so you know what?
Yeah.
I'm gonna stick to my guns and say this is like one of the weaker equipment in the set, and say this is like a C plus B minus. I'm gonna stick to my guns.
Okay. Cool. All right. I feel like I want to go lower now, but I'll stick to.
Let's see. Let's see. We'll find out. Right.
I'm curious about these other 2 now, because while I give them all the same grade, it's just Starflow Robes. Instant pay to destroy this, prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you this turn. If you prevent damage this way, create a Lightning Flow token. Again, onboard prevention is good. If you squint, you can look at this as preventing 2 because of the Lightning Flow, helping you spell void 1 later on. Once again, I give this an A. I would first pick this.
I give this an A minus. I think this card's a lot better. I think Lightning Flow versus Ponder is like significantly better.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
I agree with that.
Significantly better. So yeah, I'm an A minus on this card. I think on board ability to create Lightning Flow, actually, like maybe it's just an A to your point. Like on board ability to create a Lightning Flow token is so valuable. I think so. Yeah, I actually with you. I think this is an A.
That's fair. I guess, yeah, in that context, it feels weird even to me that I gave the Ponder and the Embodiment of Lightning one the same grade as a Lightning Flow. Even all this show we've been talking about how Lightning Flows are we've been talking about from the start, Lightning Flows are way better than the other 2 tokens.
Yeah.
So, but again, I would probably give the TR like an A minus if I were to adjust it. I don't think I would bring it down to like a B. I'd like give it an A minus. Which actually I will do with the next one. Laced Lightning. Same thing, same stat line. You pay to prevent 1 damage, and if you do, you create an embodiment of lightning. I'll give this an A minus as well. I think all the heroes can use embodiments of lightning. Definitely really good in Aurora in particular. But even like Oscilio and Ziggy can use embodiments of lightning. I think like if you get a play pattern of physical attack into arcane damage spell in Oscilio, I think that can be pretty good. Ziggy as well, double fragment terms. I'm also on board prevention. I'm just big fan.
Yeah, this is B plus. I think embodiment of lightning in Ziggy is quite a lot worse. I think in Oscilio it's significantly worse. I think this is an Aurora card basically, and even in Aurora, I felt this to be a little bit awkward sometimes. But it's damage prevention. It starts in play. I think it's hard to go below like a B. But yeah, I think there is some down. Like I do genuinely think that the Starflow Robes is like so much better than these other 2. Yeah, I'm actually talking myself down to a B, I think, to be honest.
Sounds good.
Cool. Next up, we're into the cards, and we've got some red-only cards that we're going to go through here in Lightning. Really like this, the LSS are printing, they're printing less yellows, they're printing more specific colors in these cards. We're looking at Beckoning Brilliance. This is a rare lightning action attack, only in red, as I said. Costs 0, defense for 2, and says when this attacks, the next instant card you play this chain link costs 1 less to play, and it attacks for 4. Sorry, I did that out of order and got confused about what I had and hadn't said, Pankaj. But yeah, when this attacks, the next instant card you play this chain link costs 1 less to play. What do you think?
C minus to me. I mean, I think you can maybe make it work with like Storm Shard. I guess Ziggy has like some of those like yellow 1-cost auras. I just don't think there's too many real targets for the effect, and I think you have better 0/4s. So maybe it has an extra bump in Ziggy if you have the yellow 1-cost auras. I guess you can even do like the Corrosive Space Dust, but Auric Shards, for example, can't target this because it doesn't have Fragment. And then the other heroes, I don't know what 1-cost instances like Oscilio even have, or Aurora. It feels like it's just Storm Shard. So yeah, C minus, maybe could be a C in Ziggy.
Yeah, I mean, it does make your other, like your red instance costs 1 less, right? Obviously, it needs to only good for the aggressive ones. Is that part of the game plan you want in Oscilio? Don't really know.
But which red instance is Oscilio run that costs 1?
No, they don't. I didn't say 1. I said they cost 1 less. So if it's 2, they cost 1 less, right?
I see.
I was really high on this card, and I think I'm still pretty high on it. I like at one point I was like, oh, is this card just like a straight up A? Like the resource cheat is just so good, but it's not.
Oh, wow.
It's not as clean as like the other resource cheat card. To your point, like Auric shards and things don't work with this. I have this at a B. I do think this card is very good, and I think when you draft this card, there is things you can play to, like, you know, to your point around. I still getting used to some of the names, but like some of the
Storm
spells, yeah. Is that what it's called? Things like Star Walled,
it's a lightning press,
things like that. The lightning press, yeah. So I do think there is some. There's another one as well.
Live wire press, technically. I don't like that card though, but yeah.
Yeah, the down damage one. Yeah. But I do think in Aurora that card is like okay. But yeah, so I think I'm high, ready to come down, but we'll see where we end up landing.
Sounds good. Next we have Flow Shard Elemental. Similar stat line, costs 0, attacks for 4, blocks for 2, lightning action attack. When this attacks, you may discard an instant card. If you do, create a lightning flow token, and this gets go again. I think this card's getting quite carried by the lightning type line because of the number of cards that care about like lightning attack. I guess it's cool that you can... lightning flows are good, but I think converting a full card into lightning flow and go again is like... It's okay. I give this a C. It's like fine. I might even give this a C minus. It's very similar to like Backling Brilliance to me.
Yeah, I'm like a B minus C plus. I agree. Same thing. I'm like, it's getting carried a lot by like the lightning type, but I think one thing that is very real in this format, and you spoke about it earlier in the pod, is be able to convert your hand. And this is a card that unconditionally lets you. True. Well, you do have to have an instant card in your hand, but less conditional than some other ways to convert your hand. Does let you convert your hand quite nicely and create a like. This is a a really fine turn 0 play. I think there's also things where I think this card's really nice in Oscilio, where you're like, oh, I have these extra instants. I'm going to discard this one.
Turns on Starfall.
Yeah, get my lightning flow.
And then
exactly, and then you throw your zap after this as well. So you like discard your instant card, get your lightning flow, turn on your amp, zap away. I think is quite nice, especially with the Starfall one that deals the extra 1 damage. Yeah. So you're like, here's my 3 card 9, which includes 5 arcane damage, and it gets me a lightning flow token. I think is quite nice. So I think it's it's not as good. At first I was like, wow, this is like an on tap way to create lightning flows, but it comes at a cost. But I do think what I've learned is that some of the upsides to this card is a lot nicer than I thought. So I still don't think it's insane. It's a it's a 0 for 4, blocks 2. I am around a B minus for this, I think.
You've talked me up to a C plus, and I think also the other big part of it is just that you can take this early in a draft. Like you can take this without like committing, and I think I will give some value to that as well. That the generic part of it, again, the carried by the lightning type line as you're talking about, does give this up. So yeah, I'll bump it up to C plus. Next we have Lightning Form, which we have seen before in Rosetta. Costs 1, attacks for 5, blocks for 2, lightning action attack. When this hits, create an embodiment of lightning token.
Important to know.
It's a C.
Unlike,
it's solid. Yeah. Solid, flexible. Yeah.
Unlike Rosetta, only at red though. Obviously, it was a full cycle in Rosetta. Yeah, you're at a C. Yeah, I'm at a C plus.
Yeah, at a C.
I think I'm like half a grade up on you on these cards as well because they're like just lightning.
Because they're lightning,
keep you open. I think is where I've kind of landed, which is
that's pretty good.
Makes
sense.
Pretty good. Like
I could see that.
We're basically in the same spot though. I think in terms of our recommendation about these cards, this is like there's just not a lot of sources where you want this in terms of like okay, if I'm Aurora, I'm ending on my weapon. I'm not ending on something like this. But yes, starting with this off an embodiment is not terrible. But it's your 1 cost, and your 1 cost isn't becoming like a quick strike effect, for instance. So that's also a bit of a cost. So there's a trade off there. But it's lightning, so it keeps you open earlier. If I'm in Oscilio, I'm maybe I've got some instant speed Starfall stuff. But when am I using the embodiment of lightning enough that I get? In Ziggy, I'm like, it's quite awkward with my cost structure, and I'm very rarely happy to come in with a 1 for 5. So I'm like, yes, it's lightning, and I think it's mostly an Aurora card though.
Yeah, I could see going up to C plus for Aurora specifically, and then C in the others. Because I mean, if you think about this is kind of the same as that quick strike card that we both liked, where on damage it gets embodiment of lightning, right? Dashing Fleetfoot, I believe. The one where Quick Strike becomes 1 arcane, attacks for 4, creates embodiment of lightning. This is 1 for 5, creates embodiment of lightning without you needing to go through a hoop of giving it go again. So for that reason, I think, yeah, I could see this being... It's definitely an Aurora card, so better in that one. I'd give it C+ in Aurora, C in the other two.
Sure. Cool. All right, next up we are on to Visionary of Orbits. This is another red-only rare lightning action attack. Cost 3, defense 2, attacks for 7. Says when this hits, you may put an instant card from your graveyard on the bottom of your deck. I think the text is mostly irrelevant, but it is a 2-card 7 with no conditions, and there's not many of those in the format, and every hero can play this. And just being able to 2-card 7 in this format, I think is actually... Like you kind of do want access to be able to do something like that, although it doesn't help extend your hand. I think there's a C+. I think this card is pretty decent.
Yeah, I give it C, maybe C+ for Oscilio into Ziggy, specifically is what I wrote. I feel like Oscilio into Ziggy is C+, otherwise I'm like C.
Fatigue could be an issue.
I think physical...
Sure.
Yeah, physical damage just feels a lot worse in this format, it feels like. Is just the thing, it just feels like when you send physical at them, you actually allow your opponents to convert their hands, which... Again, we spoke about this. I think a big challenge from it, or a big way to get an advantage in this format is to not let your opponent convert their hands on defense. I think the more you get to do that, the better off you are, and this kind of goes against that game plan.
Yeah,
I think
fair.
A lot of people be like, "Oh, sweet, you send a big physical attack. Oh my god, thank you. Let me block.
Get my cards out." I think that's why I'm at a C+. Because the effect is rare. But also you want it in the right situations, not in the wrong situations. Like in the in-game where you are taking 2 cards out of your opponent's hand so they can't like do their Oscilio thing or do their Ziggy thing or even do their big Aurora hands. Like I think, that's when you want value. This early on is so disappointing though if you're just like, send my attack for 7 and your opponent's like, yep, I'll cash in my 2 cards and like do my thing. You're like, yeah.
So, yeah. All right, next we have a cycle of super interesting cards. Flowing Storm Strike. Costs 0, attacks for 4, blocks for 2, has twice per turn instant, pay 1, this gets +1 power, and when this hits, create a lightning flow token. Should we just talk about all 3 of these together?
Yeah, sure. And these are all only in red, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've got Flowing Storm Strike, and then the next one is Meteoric Rise, which is all the same stats like Pankaj just said there, only comes in red again, but instead of costing 0 and attacking for 4, it costs 1 and attacks for 5, and... Then we have Voltic Impact, same thing again, except attacks for 6, cost 2. So that's the cycle, 0, 1, and 2 cost. First of all, I guess, what do you think of these cards? And is there a particular cost curve that you think is better of these cards?
I love these cards. I think they're all really good. I mean, Lightning Flow, minimum +1 like on hit is like the way I read these cards. It's like, Lightning Flow +1 damage on hit. And then I think just the play patterns that all of them offer because of the modality of the plus damage. Again, I will harp on this, which is, I think physical damage at instant speed or attack reaction speed is quite a premium and very, very good in this format. Oftentimes, people are equipped to deal with like instant speed arcane, but instant speed physical is a lot harder for them to deal with. So and I think this can lead to a lot of forks against your opponent. If your Aurora sends this with go again, you don't know if this is going to come in for 6, and the on hit of getting extra flow is very relevant. Your Ziggy and Oscilio, obviously, they send this, you don't know if they're going to pump this, they're going to play some instants, or what they're going to do with their remaining cards. So I like all of them very much. I guess the 0 cost one is the best one, but and the 2 cost one is probably the least good one because it's the least like tricksy. But at the same time, it's like we spoke about like 2-card 7s. I'm like, that's a 2-card 7 I much prefer compared to Visionary of Orbits, right? Even if my Voltic Impact is 2-card 7 on head Lightning Flow, like I'm very happy with that compared to 2-card 7 put an instant card on the bottom of my deck. Yep. So for that reason, all of these are in the B range for me. Maybe Storm Strikes. Okay, Storm Strikes B+ for sure. I think Meteoric Rise should also be in B+. Maybe Voltic Impact can be a B, but I wouldn't be opposed to just having that in B+ as well. I think they're all just very, very good.
Yeah, I'm basically the same, except that I think maybe Meteoric Rise is slightly better. And the only reason for that is that it creates 2 breakpoints. So it as of itself is a breakpoint, but then also goes to 7, which is another breakpoint, which is not what Flowing Storm Strike is, but it's a small difference because Flowing Storm Strike is maybe slightly better in Aurora, for instance, than Meteoric Rises, but I think the other 2 are good, and all of them are probably equally as good in each hero, except for maybe Storm Strike is slightly better in Aurora, and to your point, Voltic Impact is slightly worse, right? So yeah.
It also, oh gosh, it lets you do so many interesting things with like the heroes. Like you could, for example, like Storm Strike, send it, just pump it by 1, and then use your 2 floating to immediately cash in the lightning flow for your Ziggy activation, for example. Right? Or like pump it twice and immediately cash in lightning flow for your Oscilio activation. It's just, it's pretty, these cards are really
That's why I quite like Meteoric Rise, I think, for that reason, because of that, like, it's usually okay to use one resource. All the heroes can utilize one resource, and then also you can just dump the additional 2 resources into a breakpoint as well. But yeah, it's very interesting. Cool. Where to next?
Rift Breaker, 2 cost, 6 power, lightning action attack that blocks for 2. When this hits a hero, destroy a lightning flow they control. So, similar to the on-hits that we've been speaking about, destroying lightning flows is good as an on-hit, but this is 2 for 6. It has the same issues I spoke about earlier regarding sending physical at your opponent. I'm just like, especially when it's face-up physical, they're like, okay, cool. Happy to get to use my cards on defense, because you may not always be able to do that. So I'm like, it's C+ for me. It's a little bit better than just like a generic role player, because getting through 3 blocks from them is always trivial, and on hit is threatening, so I like it. But I'm not like, oh hell yeah, this is like super good. I prefer the Storm Strikes for sure.
Yeah, I'm in the same spot. I think this card is fine. Also defense 2, which is a bit of a downside. I think that is really worth mentioning. Right, I do think it's really true. Like, defending in this set is less important than other sets, but still not by much. And you can only play so many no blocks, 2 blocks. Like, you do still need a decent density of 3 blocks. It's not as relevant as in some other sets, but it's definitely still relevant. Right, next up we have Flow Through. This is only in blue. It is a rare lightning instant, costs 0, defends no defensive value. Target lightning attack gets +1 attack, and when this hits, create a lightning flow. Like, there is, you do have heroes and they want some access to instants. You want to be able to create lightning flows. This is like lunging press that doesn't block, that's lightning, that has an on-hit effect, and that I think is pretty reasonable. I have this as C+, basically.
I'm looking at this as basically kind of like +2 at reaction speed at blue. But no
defense value.
No defense. I have this as a C with a slight bump in Aurora.
Yeah, that's fair. Yep.
Because I think this can help you actually push your quick strike effect through, and then so you get even more than just a lightning flow, because she's like the only one with like some real on hits, right? Like Ziggy has like fragments. Oscilio doesn't have on hits unless it's like the Storm Strikes, unless it's a lightning flow on hits in the lightning card pool. So Aurora's one where it's like, ooh, this could actually be a bit scary. Suddenly you try to block out the thing, you probably cash in some prevention effect to stop their quick strike arcane, and then they still get the embodiment of lightning on hit anyway, or something like that. So I'm like, maybe C+ in Aurora, C in the others. Also, just mostly because I think in the other 2, you just don't even have that much density of attacks.
Correct. Yeah, especially Oscilio.
So that's a big problem. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next up is Livewire Press.
Yes, next we have Livewire Press. Costs 1 lightning instant. Target lightning attack action card gets, when this hits a hero, deal 4 damage to them. This is my first D. I don't like this card. I don't think it's good. There's too much also like instant perfection and equipment and everything. I think this is a no block. It's just such a liability. We saw this happen on stream too. I think Aurora player had a Livewire Press. It's like just stuck in Arsenal and the opponent Ziggy just had the equipment up, and then the Aurora pops this. I was forced to like just use this with regards to something else, I think. And then Ziggy's like, okay, I'll pop my Seeker's thing, and it's just like, I'm like, bruh, this is I don't like this card. Maybe it gets a bit better if you're not into Ziggy, because they also have Ward, but not too happy.
Yeah, it also costs 1, which is like, if this was 0 and it was 3 damage, would be so much better. But yeah, I don't have it. I think this is like C- for me, but it is encroaching in the D territory. I don't disagree. No block. Yeah, you know what? Yeah. I'll give this a D+. C. Do you know what? Actually, you know what I will give this? I'll give this a build around C. Like, I think in Aurora, against not Ziggy, I think, especially in the mirror, actually, I think this card can be devastating. Like, this is how you can, to your point about there's not many ways to like cheese damage in Aurora. Like, this is definitely one way where you can push through damage. But yeah, that's as far as I can go, I think, with supporting this card.
Yeah. Important to note, it's deal 4 damage, not for arcane damage.
Yeah.
So they can't like spell void this or whatever. So if the hit goes through and they're at 4, they do just die. Like this is not. Ziggy can like play ward, but I mean, if they could have played ward, they would have just done it to prevent on hit to begin with. So not so relevant there. But yeah, it's not arcane damage. So you land this in Oscilio or Aurora, they're just taking 4. Nothing. They can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to get it through.
All right, next up is Astral Assault. This is a common. We're back to cycles now, but we are looking at the red version here. Cost 2, attacks for 5, defense for 2, and says when this attacks, you may destroy a lightning flow you control. If you do, this gets +2. So that text stays the same on the yellow and the blue, but goes down to 3, 4 attack, obviously, for blue and yellow. I did this card as whatever. Like, I don't like 2-cost attacks that block 2. I only really want 2-cost attacks in my Ziggy deck, so I would play this if I had to. I don't really want to play this in Aurora, and I don't want to be destroying lightning flow tokens even for 2 damage.
But because you're only going up 1, right? You don't
exactly
spell void. You lose a spell void to get +2, so you effectively sent a conditional 2 for 6. Like, get out of here. I give this a D. It might have been a bit harsh. Maybe it's D plus C. Maybe it's D plus C minus.
It's playable. It's just pure.
I was just so pissed. Yeah, I was just so pissed looking at it. I was like, what do you mean you're giving me a conditional 2 for 6 that blocks 2? Like, just get out of here. D plus is excessive. I think I was just like in rage. So I'll give it a D plus. Yeah. How about that? I think it's worse than filler.
I don't think it is. I think it's C minus because it does block and it presents damage. I think if this card was instant speed to do this effect, would be way more interesting, but it is not.
Yes.
I do think the blue is maybe interesting to in-game to convert your lightning flows, but it's not. It's still in the C minus territory. Anyway, next up.
Yeah. Next, we have Electrolyze. Costs 1, attacks for 4, blocks for 0, lightning action attack. Just says go again. This is Fry, but it costs 1 and comes in for 1 more damage. I think Converting Hands is good. I give this a B minus. I could see a C plus, but I like Converting Hands. But the block 0 maybe is too steep of a cost. Maybe it's more in the C plus territory.
I've come down on this card. I was at like a B.
Was it?
I think they're all C's to some degree. I think the blue kind of sucks. I think the red is like a C plus, maybe B minus. Okay. But I think the problem with this card is like the 1 cost like element of it. I actually think this card is at its best in a hero like Oscilio. Aurora? No, I think it's its best in Oscilio because of the cost structure. Like a hand extender that costs 1 is actually really nice in Oscilio, but
that makes sense.
I don't necessarily love it in the other heroes. And the no block is definitely a cost in Ziggy because you're already playing a number of no blocks. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I think this card is definitely
so.
balanced.
So what'd you give it then?
I'm gonna land at a C plus, B minus overall. Okay, C plus. Let's say C plus.
Cool. I'll stick with the B minus. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Next up, we have Flittering Spike. This is a lightning action attack. At common is a cycle. It costs 1, defense for 3, and we're looking at the red, which attacks for 4. It says if you've played an instant card, this chain link, this gets +2, and when this hits, create a lightning flow token. I really like this card, Pankaj. This is a sort of...
I think this card's amazing.
Yeah, I think this is like a B+, BB+. This is the sort of card I want to like... I think I'm really happy to like first pick because I think every hero... I think this is actually at its weakest in Aurora. And I still think it's pretty good because it's a 1 for 4 with an on-hit create lightning flow. But in the other 2 heroes, it is like really scary. I actually quite like even like the blue and yellow in Oscilio and Ziggy as well.
I had to double check. I had to look at this and go back to see Astral Assault.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand. It's like Assault costs 1 more, blocks for 1 less, has worse line of text on it. I don't get it. This is like 1 for 4. If it hits, it kind of becomes a 1 for 5. But then if you play an instant, which a lot of these heroes want to do, it's a 1 for 7, which I think is insane. I have it as an A in Ziggy and Oscilio, and in Aurora I have it as a B because I don't see too many instants that Aurora wants to play. But in Ziggy and Oscilio, like I want a couple of these. Yeah, like I'll put this in A. Maybe I guess if we're reserving A for like literal builder rounds and stuff, maybe it's not quite there. But I just think it's very, very strong compared to the other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it just nets out overall to a B plus for me. I'm like, this is a really safe first pick. I like this card a lot. Cool.
That's fair. Next, we have Glide Through Starlight. This is a 1 cost lightning action attack that attacks for 5 and blocks for 2. And it says, instant pay 1, discard this. Prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you this turn. If you prevent damage this way, create a lightning flow token.
So this is interesting. The dualities, right, is deal the damage and get the lightning flow. This is prevent the damage, and you have to prevent the damage in order to create the lightning flow token. Whereas with the dualities, it's separate text. You deal 1 damage and
this blocks 2.
And this blocks 2.
The dualities block 3.
Correct. So this is worse than dualities, but
Yes.
this is lightning, so you can play it in all the heroes. And I think that is worth understanding of like, I actually think a blue of this, like pick 4 or 5 to keep yourself open is like a really reasonable pick. I have this at a C+. It's just a utility card for me. I think this card is like really, really reasonable, but its ceiling and its floor are like pretty close together. It's a squishy room, so to speak, this card.
I give it a C, but I think I could see the blue getting up half a grade as well. I think the same thing's happening where you're giving a bit of an extra grade because of the openness and draft, which I think is a very fair thing to do.
Cool.
So I give C, and then sure, I could see the blue being a C+.
Nice. All right. Next up, we have
Heaven's Claws.
Heaven's Claws. Yeah. So Heaven's
Claws.
Oh,
We have seen this. Where do we see it? It's Tales of Aria.
Yeah. So Heaven's Claws is straight out of Tales of Aria, and it is a cycle in this set again as well. There's a lightning action attack at common, defense for 3, costs 1, and at red attacks for 5, and has no text. It's just a vanilla attack action. This to me is like the epitome of like a C- C card through and through.
Yeah. Definition of C for me. C, like block 3, has a lightning tagline.
Yep.
On raid. Just C, solid. Great. You can move
Done.
on.
Next up.
Actually, the blue might be. I have a couple of blue Heaven's Claws. I'm like not too sad about that.
Yeah, fine. Anyway. Next up.
Okay, next we have Stellar Glide. 2 cost attack that attacks for 5 and blocks for 2. It's a lightning action attack. When this attacks, you may destroy a lightning flow you control. If you do, this gets go again. C- for me. Like, yeah, Converting Hands is good, but again, the cost of a lightning flow to get go again, to me, puts this at like a 2 for 4 go again. Like, okay. Like C-, where sure, this could round out your deck, but you should have better things to do.
Yeah, this is a C. Yeah. I think I just don't want to be destroying my lightning flows for these, and this doesn't fit into cost structures I want to play. I think, I think what's going to happen is people are going to draft decks with like these sort of like a couple of these sorts of cards, and they're going to be like, my deck has like got all these good other cards in it, and then play cards like this, and it's like, yeah, you're losing value because you're having to do things like this to make your deck functional. Like I think these cards can potentially actively hurt your deck. Yeah, cool. Next up is Stitch. We got Stitch coming in here. We got Volatile Fluxor. This is a lightning action attack at common. It is a cycle, defense 3, cost 0, and they all attack for 0. But they say if you've played an instant card, this chain link, this gets plus X, red gets 3, yellow gets 2, blue gets 1. And when this hits, create a lightning flow token, and it has go again, Pankaj. What do you think about this card after all your views on lightning flow token hits and go agains?
Yeah. Okay, so a very interesting play pattern with this, especially, well, in a deck like Ziggy and Oscilio where you do have a nice amount of instance, is you can play this and your opponent might be like, oh, I have to block 3. And you can just not play the instant there. And you can just like save it for later, for example. Like that is totally a possibility that you can do, save your instance like a pump, something like that. So there's that. You kind of get to do a little bit of a cute fork. I don't like it so much in Aurora. Again, I just don't see too many instances that Aurora really wants to play. Mm-hmm. So to me, in Aurora, it's more like a C-. But in Ziggy and Oscilio, I'm going to give it maybe C+. The block 3 is really, really nice. So in the C to C+ for Ziggy and Oscilio, but like C- for Aurora is where I'm at.
Yeah, I've just the set of C overall. I think I have the same thoughts you do, but nets out to a C. And there's some good equity with this card. Like you can create some good equity. So yeah. Cool. Next, Flittering Force Field. Defense reaction. We're finally seeing some of those. 0 cost lightning defense reaction that blocks for 3. And it says, while this is defending, if you've played an instant card this chain link, this gets +1. Okay, Aurora, this is a D. Can we get out of the way? What?
Like, what instance is Aurora playing on the opponent's turn?
None, but it can't be a D. It's a defense for 3 and it's a defense reaction. It cannot be a D.
But how many pumps are there in this format that you're like, yeah, you really want a defense reaction? I guess you can block from Arsenal, but like, how much is the defense reaction tagline actually helping versus just a block?
I mean, there's not a lot of there's
It's
some
the
damage
arsenal part of it.
prevention, but there's not a lot of ways to be able to actually stop pumps and things like that in this format, or the cheese physical damage you're talking about. I think
Okay, yeah, you're right.
I think
You're right. It's a C in Aurora. Okay.
even in Aurora, this is a C plus. I think the value of defense reactions there, and then the other heroes, this card is really good. I have this at a B. I think this card is just really good. This is the sort of card I'm happy to take early because I'm going to play it in all of my decks and in my Oscilio and Ziggy decks, particularly in Oscilio. I think the value of this card is 0 for 4, which is and instant speed. It's so good.
I had Ziggy at B, Oscilio maybe a B minus, and Aurora a C. Well, I had Aurora at D, but yeah, you're
crazy.
correct to talk me up. Again, it was probably just my rage or something. But yeah, Aurora's at C. Ziggy, Oscilio, B minus for me.
The only thing that's worth noting is, of course, this is a cycle, so the blue and the yellow I think suck. And all the heroes basically.
Next, we have Calm Veil of Volthaven. 2-cost lightning instant that says prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to you this turn. The first time you prevent damage this way, create a lightning flow token. Again, remember this is the Oldham Earth React type effect. The next 3 damage that will be dealt to you this turn. So it sticks around, it's not just from the next source. That's important, but it's it's okay. I give this a C minus. If you're desperate for prevention, sure, it's fine. But I'm I hope you have better things to do.
Yeah, this is if you have to play this, then I guess you'll play it. But it's not very exciting.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm also at a C on this. Cool. Next up, we have the Cosmic Flare. Cosmic Flare is only in red. It is a lightning instant, 0 cost, and says gain 3 resources, no defense. That's it.
Yeah, so in most cases, it's just a blue, except for the case where you want to arsenal it, except in Oscilio, because in Oscilio, this can be your blue that also turns on Volzar. In which case, it's kind of like a fable. It's literally like a gem. Like when you pitch your gem and you get a +1 value from it in Oscilio. Yeah, I don't think it's great to Oscilio ability is the thing with this, because if you're pitching a blue for the Oscilio ability and then you play this, you have 5 floating. What are you doing with 5 floating? So it's great as an arsenal to turn on Volzar. I have it C plus in Oscilio. In the other 2, I have it as a C minus. I think it's nice you can arsenal a blue, but I don't know. It's fine in the other 2. I think I'd rather have a blue in the other 2.
I'm just straight up at a C on this card. Yeah, I think this card is good in Oscilio, kind of. It's it's an active no block that's going to cost me in other decks. So hard to. If you really badly are short of blues in Aurora or Ziggy, I think it's okay to play, but I'm not super excited about it. Cool. Next up is Star World Warning. This is a lightning instant at yellow, costs 1, and says create 2 lightning flow tokens, no defensive value. And this one only comes in yellow, Pankaj.
Yeah, this one's super interesting. This is the card that, to me, I could see. I currently have it rated pretty low, but I could totally see a world where whoever rated it low could have been might have been misrated this very badly, and it's actually way better than we thought it was. I currently have it as I wasn't sure. I was C minus / D plus, where I think it's best into Oscilio, because it's nice as an emergency. Okay, pay 1 spell void 2.
Yeah.
So best into Oscilio specifically. But I'm just looking it's not an aura that sticks around for you to flash with Ziggy. It's an okay Oscilio target within Oscilio itself. In Aurora, I'm just I don't know. I don't think I really want to be playing this in my Aurora deck, because that's it's so much to actually convert the lightning flows after that. So I'm just meh about it. But maybe the flexibility bumps it up later on as we actually play with it. Because you can convert them to spell void or actually use them for your hero ability. Maybe it's worth it. Very good turn 0 equity, I will say.
Sure. The problem at the end of the day, though, is that it's again another no block, and you can only play so many of those in your deck, and it costs 1 and all these things. So I have this at C, just straight up easy C.
Cool. Starlight Road, 0 cost lightning instant, create an embodiment of lightning or lightning flow token. Give this a C.
Yeah, lightning.
Cool in the blue base, 0 but doesn't block. So
This one's only in blue, right? Yeah, this one's only in blue.
Yes.
Yeah, I think this actually is maybe a C plus. I think the utility of this being a blue that creates either means that early on, I can take this early and it's good in all the decks. So actually, I think this card is better than something like a Star World Warning, for instance, by a decent chunk. Honestly, actually, I could see that. Kind of happy to have this.
Also the implicit grade of you can take this and be open.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in the drafting portion of it. Pretty good. Yeah, I've definitely looked at these with the lens of this is in my deck. How do I feel about playing them? But you're absolutely right. There should be some level of looking at this as you're seeing this in a pack. And that's a very different context than when it's like in your deck.
Yep. Next up, Storm Shard.
How that affects the rest of your draft.
Yeah, exactly. Next up, Storm Shard. Lightning instant at red only. Costs 1, no defense, and says you may destroy a lightning flow you control rather than pay this card's cost. Target lightning attack gets +3. Just again, destroying a lightning flow is like such a large cost. Like effectively you're saying, okay, rather than paying my 1 resource for my +3 here, I'm going to just come in for 2 damage, right? Net 2 damage or something. And do you really need to be doing that for an instant? Like in Aurora, I'd much rather be playing the non-attack actions like we spoke about. And in Oscilio, I don't really need a card like this unless I'm really in need of instance. And I can see some archetypes where this is going to end up being good. Like I'm playing like more of an attack action focused Oscilio, and this ends up being kind of good. But I'm just in general not seeing a big ceiling on this card. I actually could talk myself up to a C+ on this card maybe, but I'm currently at a C.
Okay, I want to note this as the difference that we have. I have this at a B. I like this card a lot.
Okay.
Again, physical scam. I just think physical scam.
Yeah, okay.
is
That might be what I'm missing.
I could see this. You know, maybe what I probably should temper this with. Maybe I'm like it's a B in Aurora, and maybe it's like a C+ in the other two.
Sure.
It's probably a more realistic grading for this, where it's definitely. I think I really like this in Aurora. The modality of you don't need to pay the lightning flow. You can pay 1, but because she also cares about all these other on hits. I think you getting to force that through. Again, Aurora is the one that has the least scammy of the 3. I think she needs them to like win. The other 2, yeah, probably less good. Probably not running that many attacks, but still, I just feel like when you do get to suddenly put physical damage on this on the stack, it's just very difficult for these decks to deal with. So I'm quite high on this card.
Okay. All right, Pankaj. Next up, we have Storm Shatter. This is a lightning instant at yellow. It only comes in yellow. It costs 1, has no defensive value, and says you may destroy a lightning flow you control rather than pay this card's resource cost. Target lightning attack gets -3.
Yeah, okay, so I don't like this card for so many reasons. The alternate cost, we've been over this a lot. Paying a lightning flow just doesn't really feel very worth it. For like 1 resource, that's effectively going down 1 life. Yeah. Target lightning attack gets -3, so it's only lightning attacks. Granted, a lot of the attacks coming your way will be lightning attacks, but there are definitely going to be situations where you just need this to block something normal, something that's generic, or something that's just class-based, like an Illusionist attack or a Runeblade attack. And this just won't do that. And then finally, talking about Illusionist attacks, Fragment is a keyword in this set. So if you're going to be using a card to block 3, a conditional card to block 3, it should at least help you deal with Fragment. And the fact that this doesn't do any of those things, to me it hits a D. Maybe, I don't know if you're like Oscilio, maybe can Oscilio this away and play it. It just feels so bad. I give this a D. I don't want this in my deck.
I give this a C-. I agree, this is not great, but in this card I'm actually not looking to play. But it does have like a bit of utility. But you know, there's only so many C- I can accommodate in my deck, so that is worth pointing out.
Yeah. If I'm pitching a card to prevent damage, I want it to be preventing arcane damage, not physical. Sure. It's just
fair.
Next, we have Stormwhirl. This is a 1-cost blue lightning instant, and it says you may destroy a lightning flow you control rather than pay this card's resource cost. Target lightning attack gets go again. Only comes in blue. Thoughts?
I don't like this card. I mean, if you're going to talk about how bad we think Storm Shatter is, I think this card is worse. I think this card is like... I think this card is like a lot worse, honestly. I have this at a D+.
I have this at a D as well, but if you ask me which one was worse, I would say Storm Shatter is worse to me.
Because it's a yellow?
Stormwhirl, I can at least... no, Storm Shadow is worse. Yes, yeah, because it's yellow. And I could see a situation where I'm like, okay, I just need to like, I have tempo and I would just need to be able to convert my hand. I pay 1 for go again, sure. But I mean, look, we already know in Flesh and Blood, just playing 1 card for an action point feels bad. It's just not a very good rate. Yeah. This is asking for 1 resource on top of that or 1 life. And it's conditional go again. It's only on lightning attacks. Yeah, I'm with you. It's bad. It's D as well. But to me, it feels just a little bit better than Storm Shadow because I think there's lots of play patterns which lead you to having 1 floating. I could see Aurora, for example. Here's a 2-cost thing. one floating send. It's not good. I mean, I'm not saying it's good. I just think it's better than Storm Shatter because when using the resource in your turn, you can at least use your excess resources. Whereas my problem with Storm Shatter is you want to use it on the opponent's turn, and then what you're doing with the excess resources, you can, I don't know, play some other prevention effect or pop your equipment, but it just doesn't feel as flexible.
I guess on the flip side of that,
both bad.
Yeah, I guess on the flip side of that, I'm like, well, Storm Shatter is at least playable in Oscilio, whereas anyway, it's less.
Fair?
You're saying it's less shit. I'm saying it's maybe slightly more shit. Like it's much of a muchness. Let's move.
Yeah.
Let's move on to we have next up Chromatic Refinement. This is a lightning instant aura. This is a cycle at common. No defensive value, cost 0, and we're looking at the red one here. It says at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. Then the next red card you play this turn costs 1 less to play. The first time that card would deal damage this turn, instead it deals that much +1. So yellow does for yellow, blue does for yellow, always one resource less. And what's worth pointing out about this card is it's not arcane damage. It is damage. It is very relevant, and the card just costs 1 less. Pankaj, what do you think about this card?
I think the yellow is deep. Like, the yellow is, I don't know, I guess what, Aurora maybe could? I was going to say the yellow's like maybe my only F tier, but no, okay, I don't know, that could be a spot. The yellow's definitely D tier. I think the blue is in a D tier as well. You don't really want to be setting blues at your opponent. The red in Oscilio specifically can maybe get a C+. But I think in general, I don't super want this card in my decks. C- is what I'm going to give the red for the other two heroes. C for Oscilio, maybe a C+. And I do need to note something about this card, because this did happen on stream, and it can be a little bit of a misconception. It doesn't increase the arcane damage of a spell that you are sending. It's if that card would have dealt arcane damage, then it would deal 1 more. And this is relevant because say this pops and you send your Meteoric Impact, which comes in for 5 because Starfall is triggered, or whatever, you also Vaults Art, so it comes in for 6. You cannot represent 7 on the card because they only need to prevent 6, and then it effectively prevents the last point. But if they don't prevent the full 6, then you would take an extra, and then the opponent would take an extra 1. This matters because on stream I saw a player actually represent it as if the +1's going to happen regardless, and that's not correct. So just keep that in mind. Don't do that. If your opponent does that, point it out. Yeah.
Cool. I think
no, by the way, just to be clear, I don't think it was done out of malice.
Yeah.
But it's just clearing a misconception. Yeah.
I think this card is really good at red in Oscilio, to your point, but otherwise I think this card is fine because to your point, it's not a buff of damage. It just would deal 1 additional damage. The resource lessening is reasonable, is really good in Oscilio actually with the 1-cost spells like we were talking about earlier in the set review. But
and turns on Volzar, so
exactly.
Like
It turns on Volzar, so it's really an Oscilio card. It doesn't really have, you could say, you could use it for your presses and things like that. I don't know, Storm Shards. I don't think that's where you want to be doing this. So anyway, I have this at a C overall, but I think it's actually I actually think this is like a B- B tier at red and Oscilio, but it's unplayable in the other heroes. Yeah, I think this is a card that I'm like actively looking for. Like, this to me is a signal, I think, if I get this like late, that Oscilio is open. I think this card is like really important in a Oscilio. It does everything you need
good.
to.
Isn't it so inconsistent? Like, how many 1-costs do you need to be able to support this? I feel like you can play this and next turn you're like, I didn't draw one of my 1-cost spells, and then...
What do you mean?
Then,
I'm only playing I'm only playing it if I have a 1-cost. I'm playing it on my opponent's turn usually.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I play this on my opponent's
turn. So then if you draw this without a 1-cost, then you're like, you need to finagle a way to like Arsenal this in a deck that's a whole bunch of no blocks. I don't know. I could see
this card is really powerful. Like I want, like, this is what I was saying earlier about Oscilio. Like, 1-cost red spells are really, really good in Oscilio. They are the cards that you want. Pretty good. That's why I was rating them so highly, because these are the cards that are going to make up the bulk of your deck.
Okay.
But yeah, I obviously there is downsides to this card, as there are with all no block cards, as there are with all instants in this format. You've got to balance them off. But this is one that kind of does everything you need for Oscilio. And it extends. I mean, this plus because often playing this on your opponent's turn, getting the Ponder token, using this, playing it, and then on your turn, and this is why the equipment is again so strong. And then on your turn, just 1-carding them for 6 or 7 if you have Meteoric Impact is really good. And then getting the Ponder back off the draw. So that's why I think this card is really strong.
Right. So if you discard this to Oscilio on their turn, you have 1 or 2 floating, and then you use your Seeker equipment or something to like make use of that.
Yeah, all the prevention spells, right? You've got the 2-cost
Right.
prevention spells as well, which pairs quite nicely with this. If you have one of the
Cosmic Suture.
yeah,
and then,
Suture. That's it. Yeah.
and then you get a Starfall as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, we have Thunderous Retort. This is a 0-cost lightning instant aura. And it says, at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. Then your next attack this turn gets go again. And it has Arcane Barrier 3. The red version is Arcane Barrier 3. Yellow is Arcane Barrier 2. Blue is Arcane Barrier 1. I think the blue is good in Aurora. Actually, no, I think the blue is good straight up. I think sudden Arcane Barrier out of nowhere, if your opponent's trying to like scam you or something. And because it's blue as well, it's naturally you'll see it later on in the game when like the actual stopping like 1 pings here and there can be very relevant, and it'll be next to your other blues. For that reason, I give the blue like a C, maybe C+. I don't really want the others unless I'm specifically Aurora.
Yeah, I think these are... I actually would predominantly give these sideboard grades. So I give the red and the yellow sideboard grades into Oscilio of like, like a C+, B- kind of tier, maybe even B for red. I think it's pretty good as a sideboard card. Specifically in Aurora, the red one as a sideboard card is really good, I think.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think the blue is just like a straight up like C-. I think it's, to your point, it's serviceable in Aurora, but it's pretty bad in the other heroes. So, yeah.
Okay. I don't mind the blue in the other heroes, actually. Like into everyone is the thing. Like not just into Oscilio. Because I think it'll naturally get pitched later on. The matches do go long, and then you have AB1 out of nowhere to like survive. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm pretty upset to have it in my Oscilio deck because my instants and no block cards are at such a premium. And same with Ziggy, actually, to be honest. But yeah.
Oh, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
Next, Sigil of Astral Flow. 0-cost at blue, lightning instant aura, also only comes in blue. It says at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. When this leaves the arena, create a lightning flow token. So this is interesting. In Ziggy, activating this refunds the lightning flow, which is interesting. So it kind of doesn't cost you a flow. It can, in a sense, give you a free Ziggy activation and a free Aphrodite. Free being free in the sense of lightning flows, not in the sense of resources.
Yeah.
And then in Oscilio, it'll turn on your Volzar, and if you look at lightning flows, it's potentially drawing your card, like, does something there. I think it's okay. I think it's aight. I'd give this a C-.
I think this card I'm a lot more excited about. I think this card is, to your point, it's the way that you get additional weapon triggers in Ziggy at the end game. It is the sort of card that has a lot of utility on turn 0 as a blue as well. It is something that I am more excited about to have as like blue. And for instance, if we're saying like, Thunderous Retort in blue, I'm way more excited about this card as a blue card in almost all of my decks. So I have this as C+. But yeah.
That's fair, because I guess it kind of gives you 1 spell void no matter what. Whereas Thunderous Retort is like
Lightning Flow is just so key. Yeah. Like even in Aurora, my experience with Aurora is like, if you don't have good, like even average Lightning Flow, if you just don't have a good amount of abilities to create Lightning Flow, what happens in the mid game sometimes is you just brick out. Like you just don't, and then also you don't have the abundance of Lightning Flows for even like stopping key, like spell voiding key things, and you just end up finding that your deck's bad. Honestly, it's why like Electron Jolt Step I think is like such an important card, but I think this card as a blue does a good job.
While we're making the comparison between this and Thunderous Retort, by the way, I mean, Thunderous Retort does give go again to your first attack, though, and that's a very important piece, especially if we're talking about the Aurora piece. I feel like in Aurora, I'd rather have Thunderous Retort because it gives me the go again, whereas this, I need to convert the Lightning Flow once again into an embodiment of lightning. So I need to play this, and then next turn, pitch another card to get go again, whereas Thunderous Retort and Aurora, I just need to play that, and I get go again the next turn.
Yeah, and Aurora specifically, 100%. Yeah. But what I guess what I'm saying is this is good in all 3 of the heroes, whereas I think Thunderous Retort Blue is only good in Aurora. Whereas actually, this card I'm happy to take in all heroes.
So here I have a question for you. Like, how important do you think is giving go again to your attacks in the other heroes? Because as we talk about the next card, actually, let's just go on and talk about the next card, and it'll be very relevant. So, because I'm curious.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, what I would say is to your attack action cards. I think in the other heroes, it is completely irrelevant in Oscilio to somewhat important sometimes in Ziggy to crucially important in Aurora is what I would say.
You think it's irrelevant in Oscilio? Do you think Mono Arcane Oscilio is like kind of the only archetype? Like, is there no archetype that runs physical attacks?
I think there is.
Attacks?
But even in those decks, I don't think that's how you... I think you're usually pairing it with instants off the back of it, not necessarily with like double spelling, like attack action plus spell. It's very rare. So I guess, okay, I'll take one step away from completely irrelevant to almost always irrelevant. There you go. There you go. I'll upgrade it to... There is some instances where it's relevant. But I'm not super excited about that. Anyway, we can talk about the next card. Like you said, next card is Sigil of Lightning. It is, of course, a reprint from Rosetta. Lightning instant aura at blue, only in blue at common, cost 0, and says at the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. When this leaves the arena, create an embodiment of lightning token. I think if we're talking about Thunderous Retort, for instance, is this card better than Thunderous Retort blue? I kind of have them at like a similar kind of space.
It's okay. Let's see. No, this is a little bit worse. Right? No, I guess it's better. It depends on the hero, I think. Like for Aurora, it's kind of a little bit worse because they both just give go again, but the other one had AB some amount.
Sure, yeah.
And then in Ziggy and I'm actually higher on this card than you are. In all three heroes, I give this a C+, because I think all the heroes can use it. And I do wonder, like currently we're in the early phase of the format where people are figuring it out, and I think for that reason, maybe it's a little bit easier to get into like an all Arcana Oscilio archetype. But as that becomes more prevalent, I think you will be forced to like have some attacks in your Oscilio deck.
Yeah.
And what I really like about this compared to Thunderous Retort, like you mentioned, it's like completely irrelevant. I think in a deck like Oscilio, it could potentially be not game plan defining, but you can set up some really strong turns. If you're like, hey, I just have a couple of attacks in my deck, you can just have the embodiment of lightning lying around, just there on the field.
Yeah.
You do the rest of your turn cycles normally, send all your spells, and then set up that one turn later on where you send your like a good attack into a good spell.
Yep.
And that could set you up for like a really, really awesome endgame. So I see the use in Oscilio as well. Like the first copy, obviously, not like more than one copy. But I give the first copy even in Oscilio like a C+, depending on how the meta for draft shakes out. And I also feel like in Ziggy, just like getting to go fragment, and Aurora, obviously this card's very good. So I'm overall a C+. I'm pretty high on this card, I think.
I'm a C+ on this card. I think it's better than Blue Thunderous Retort as just a stock standard card because I agree. While I say it's near on irrelevant in Oscilio, that's for like, as you say, standard archetypes and what we're seeing right now. But I'm not saying that is blanket the case. And also when I take this early and I don't know what hero I'm drafting, this has utility in all three heroes. Even at worst in Oscilio,
exactly,
it is like a blue lightning instant. Like that is not. I'm not super excited about that, obviously, but I'm ecstatic to have this in my Aurora deck. Like this is really good in my Aurora deck, and I'm gonna find ways to utilize this in my Ziggy deck usually fairly well. And Embodiment Lightning is the best form of go again for sure on Oscilio. So yeah, C+ for me as well.
Awesome. Speaking of blue lightning instants, next one is Spellbane Sigil, cost 0 blue lightning instant aura. At the beginning of your action phase, destroy this. Has Arcane Barrier X. You can just pay as much as you want into this. This
card sucks.
Arcane spell. I'm not high on this card.
This card sucks. I know what people are going to say. They're going to be like, oh, sideboard card for Oscilio. But my point would be, well, Thunderous Retort is just infinitely better because you're typically just going to pay into the 3 AB anyway. If you're paying like 2 cards plus this, because you only get this for a turn anyway to stop one tall spell, you spent 3 cards to stop their one spell. Like it's not great.
Yeah, I give this a D. And I wrote I much prefer the retort card.
Yeah.
But this to me is like last resort level. You're just like, you're desperate for prevention. You haven't found any other prevention effect. Yeah. You just want to not immediately fold to like an Arcane Oscilio. You put this, I guess.
So sideboard D. Honestly. Cool. All right. That is our lightning cards done. We're going to move on to our final portion of this limited set review for Omens of the Third Age, and it is going to be our generics. And we're going to speak to these first lot of cards all together because they are our Seeker's equipment. We've mentioned them multiple times. They are, of course, a reprint from Outsiders, is when we saw Seekers, I believe.
I think so.
Yep. So we have all 4 Seekers in this set. It is the Seeker's Hood, the Seeker's Gilet, the Seeker's Mitts, and the Seeker's Leggings. All of them do the exact same thing. They do not defend for anything. They are generic at the relevant spot. They say instant, 1 resource, destroy this, prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you this turn, opt 1. What do you think, Pankaj?
So I'm not super familiar yet with the relevance of the different zones specifically. We've definitely had formats in the past where it's like, oh, a particular chess piece for your hero is way better than everything else, and for that reason, other chess pieces, like the generic chess piece, can take a little bit of a hit in your evaluation. I'm not so familiar yet with how that plays out in these heroes, so I gave all 4 of these cards a blanket A. I think get all the prevention you can. The 1 cost, super relevant, because like a lot of it, like even like Aurora, for example, you can like Aurora in their turn use your 1 floating to like prevent something. There's just a lot of players in this format where you'll be left with resources floating on your opponent's turn, and this is a great sink for these. And you just want prevention in this format anyway.
Yeah, so to your point about the contention spots, like where you've got contention, you've got, of course, the arms in each of the class slots, and we gave those various rankings. But then you've also got the lightning specific pieces that do not have an arms, but they have the other 3. So my estimation based on all these things is that the Seeker's Head is worth the most. I think the Seeker's Head is worth the most because the Constellar Tiara is the worst, I think, alternative equipment. Whereas Starflow Robes, for instance, I think is the best alternative equipment. And if you end up in Wizard or particularly Ziggy, actually, I think the arm slots are really good. The Aurora one, I think, is kind of mid, honestly. So I would say that they're all good. Like I would just take them if I saw them because they're Seeker's equipment. But I would say that the chest and the arms are maybe slightly behind in terms of valuation. Just at the start of the draft, obviously, when you don't know what hero you're gonna go into. But yeah, I have these all at I'm just gonna scroll back down to my, because I was bouncing around some of these cards, but I have all of these at an A to A minus, so exact same range. So I think maybe the chest, sorry, the legs and the head, I'm at like an A, and the other 2 at an A minus. So yeah, we're in the same range. I mean, these just are so good, honestly. Like, and the more
I'd first spec these.
100%.
I just first pick these.
100%.
Like,
yeah. I think these and the opt is actually fairly relevant in this format because you actually need a lot of synergy in this format. A lot of the time you are looking for, like, you might arsenal something with the view of like, oh, I need to find a specific my A piece to my B piece. Whether that's I'm Oscilio and I need to find an instant to pair with my damage spell next turn to trigger Starfall, or I'm Aurora and I have the attack set up, but I need to make sure I have a blue so I can trigger a second embodiment of lightning on next turn, or actually I need just a way to create my first go again, for instance. So yeah, there's a lot of synergy in the set that I think opt plays well into.
Makes sense. And yeah, especially in Oscilio, right? Oscilio on their turn, use your excess floating to pop your Seeker's thing. You get to opt and set up your ponder as well that you are about to ponder into on the following turn cycle because you Oscilioed in their turn. Yeah, very, very good. Next, we have... Oh, did you want to say something?
I was just going to say, let's move on to next, because I think people at face value, if you haven't played a lot of Limited before, or you're maybe just seeing the set for the first time, you might think this next lot of equipment superior. So you're going to be interested in how we grade this. So let's get into it, Pankaj.
Cool. Next, we have the Astral Sanctuary set. So similar to the Seeker's ones, this is a full suite of equipment that all do the same thing, just in different zones. Your arms, legs, chest, ahead. And all of them say the same thing. Instant, tap your hero, destroy this, prevent the next 1 damage that will be dealt to you this turn. So this one's interesting. So instead of paying 1 and getting an opt, the cost for this is just tapping your hero, which has its ups and downs, right? Paying 1 often means that you need to find other outlets for the resources. Tapping your hero, though, is something you can literally only do once per full turn cycle. It also means these don't play very well with each other. You can have multiple Seekers things that pop all of them at once, but on the same turn, but you can't pop multiple Sanctuary pieces on the same turn, and also denies you your hero ability for that turn cycle. That being said, though, I'm still very high on these. I would still first pick these anytime. I still give all of them a blanket A, but I think there is more awkwardness they do need to think about with these equipment than at surface level.
Yeah, so I actually think I don't really want more than one of these in my deck. I will have 2 if I need to, but one of the things I was thinking about was like, I think in how often I tap my heroes, I actually think in Oscilio, you've got the problem is you have other contention for tap and Wizard. There's a lot of cards that require you to tap. So it depends on the complexion of your deck. If I don't have many of those tap effects in my Oscilio deck, then I'm happy to have a second or maybe a third copy of these, because I just typically am not using my hero ability as much. In Aurora, I think playing these cards is like really dicey, honestly, because it's hard. The challenge with Aurora is like, you do need to use your hero ability a lot, but also you can't actually really plan when you need to use your hero ability all the time. You just often, it's like, okay, I haven't drawn this piece, I do need to use it this turn. It's really hard to like future plan how you want to utilize your astral heads. I think Ziggy, it's a little bit easier in terms of, like, okay, I'm working towards an end game where I'm probably going to use my holo counter effect more and I'm going to ping with damage, so I can use these out of the way early before I start Ziggying. So I think my view is, I want probably one of these max in my Aurora deck and two of these max in the other two heroes, and that's I'm talking max. So I have these at a B plus. I think these are worse than the Seeker's Equipment. I think my ideal probably loadout is having like one of the the class cards or the chest, like the 2-cost chest, or like the fragment arms, for instance. Great resource usage there. 2 pieces of Seekers and then like one of these, because sometimes not having the resource available is a very real thing, and being able to pair this with like a Spell Void 1 to stop you dying from some lethal ranges is really nice. But to your point, they don't stack well. So that's kind of where I've landed on these so far. Cool.
It's interesting. I feel like we're doing a little bit of remember when we spoke about how it feels to play versus how it feels to pick it in draft? I feel like if I see this in a pack, there's very few things I would pick over one of these.
You did say that.
Yeah, like that's. I guess when I say the grade A, I'm sort of thinking of the way I'm looking at it in a pack. There's not many things I'd pick over one of these.
So I would pick more. So with Seekers, I basically there's some rares, some majestics, some bombs, for instance, or later in pack 2 when I'm looking for specific cards. But early on, there is actually some cards I would definitely pick over this, like some lightning cards, for instance. There is even some like really powerful class cards. I think I might take a hedge on early on over these, for instance. But it's still equipment, so there's not many cards, to your point, but more than I think for Seekers, which gives me that half a grade down.
Just a quick note on how you should use this. Something that I saw people on stream do, and I think makes a lot of sense. If you have these pieces, just use them literally any turn cycle.
Yep.
Where you don't need your hero ability, like to your point about not necessarily knowing what your future hand textures are going to look like and whether your hero will be untapped. Just use them. I think a lot of people were doing that on stream as well. They're like, this turn cycle, I have my go again elsewhere from Aurora. All right, I'm just going to tap my hero.
And exactly. Don't get caught not being able to use them. Which is again another reason why I'm like stacking multiple can be a bit dicey. Right, let's move on. Next, we've got Ominous Aggression. This is a rare at red. This only comes in red, and it's kind of part of a bit of a cycle that's not a cycle, which we'll get into. It's cycle in name, I guess. So it's a generic instant at rare red, cost 2, and says target attack action card gets +2 attack. If an aura you control was destroyed this turn, instead the card gets +4. Here's some of your cheese damage you're speaking about, Pankaj. Where do you sort of see this card overall? It does cost 2 at the end of the day and does have a stipulation to actually get it to that +4.
I like it in Aurora. I give this a B- in Aurora specifically. Potential build around in the others, but I'm putting a very low potential build around on those. In the others, I don't really want this card, but in Aurora, I like this at a B-. Again, I think for me, the thing about Aurora, as we mentioned during the non-attacks part, converting your hands without needing embodiments of lightning, without needing like more than one embodiment of lightning, I think is pretty important. Because you're doing the on-turn off-turn thing, and you want your opponent to just punish you by blocking you on your on-turn, and then your off-turn is 4 cards do nothing much. I think this can help you with that. I think Aurora needs a scam damage to close out games because she doesn't have the arcane reach that the others have.
Yeah.
But first copy. Again, I don't want multiple of this.
I've gone the bell curve of this card of being like, oh, this card is only good in Aurora, to being like, oh, actually, I can blow up a lightning flow, and then I can play this on like my Ziggy attack action cards, like my fragment cards, to like push them over the top. I can even like pair them in my Oscilio deck if I have slightly more attack actions. To being like, actually, this is so hard to piece together in Oscilio, and also then saying, oh, my hand cycles never play out where I'm actually got enough blues and resources to play this with my fragment attacks. So I've come down the other side to where you are, back where I started, to, this is an Aurora card, and I have this at like a C+. I do think it's a powerful card, so I think it's like worth potentially like hedging early, because if you do end up with this in in Aurora. But even sometimes in Aurora, you like draw your hand and you're like, oh, I'm on my off turn this turn where I'm not going to be creating embodiment of lightning. So you do need the right support and the right structure behind this card as well. It doesn't do it all by itself, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think you want 1, maybe 2 physical damage scam cards in your Aurora deck. This or like the Storm Shard.
Yeah,
like 1 or 2 copies of like a combination. Next, we have Ominous Excavation. This is a blue 0-cost generic instant. It says you may shuffle an instant card from your graveyard into your deck. If an aura you control was destroyed this turn, create a Ponder token.
D. This card sucks.
I have D except for exactly one matchup.
Ziggy
which
into...
is Oscilio into Ziggy. Oscilio into Ziggy. For the Oscilio into the Ziggy. Is obviously only relevant for Fatigue, and that is kind of, I think, the main matchup where Fatigue comes into place. It's also the main matchup where when you play this, your power cards are your instant cards. So Oscilio actually has like very good targets for this, whereas the other two less so. So in that matchup specifically, it's like sideboard grade. Everywhere else, I'm like,
but just have a better instant in your decks. You don't have to like play this to
ideally
get back the instant. Yeah, okay.
Agreed.
Right.
Ideally,
we can move on to the last Ominous of the cycle, which is a yellow Ominous. It is Ominous Respite. It is a generic instant at yellow, rare, only comes in yellow, costs 1, and says gain 2 life. If an aura you control was destroyed this turn, instead gain 3 life. You know, we spoke about earlier about the one that gives -3 lightning card that you pay 1, you can destroy a flow to make it -3. What I think is better about this card is you can play it on offense or defense for your instant needs. So I think this card is fine, and I think it is literally filler if you need it to be. I have this at a C minus.
I gave it a C minus. I think it shores you up if you are lacking prevention. Life gain is, in similar form of prevention.
Yeah.
So yeah, C minus. I think there's better options, but this is like, you won't be so sad about it because, to your point, there's a lot of agency around your aura destruction. You could like spell void a lightning flow, and then this is turned on. Oscilio with this maybe, and then play it in their turn, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Or on your turn, if they're setting Arcana at you with, which Oscilio and Ziggy both do, then you're like, cool, I'll spell void the thing so that this is extra. You get the extra life back from the Ominous Respite. I'm not happy to have this in my deck, but I don't think it's D tier either. I could see spots where I'm like, fine, I just have to make do with this.
I actually think I'm at a C. I think this card has a lot of utility, more than I realized. Like I've played with it once now, and it's like, oh, actually, like I just have ended up in this Aurora deck with more 0 cost than 1 cost than I wanted. This is a great slot in order to use my resource. Like I'm going to be breaking the aura, I get 3 life back. Makes my math like it makes the math difficult for my Oscilio opponent who's like, I've got lethal on the next turn. You're like, no matter what you do, and you're like, well, actually, I've just gained 3 life. So now we extend the game by another turn cycle, and I put you on the back foot. So yeah, interesting card. I think it's cool to have like some effects like this in the draft format because it just changes things up a little bit.
For sure.
Next,
we have Conflicting Thoughts. This is Wounding Blow stat line. 0 cost at attacks for 4 at red is 0 cost, blocks for 3, generic action attack. Says when this attacks, opt 1. So not lightning, which is important for many of the cards. Not class, obviously. I think it's significantly worse than the dualities, but it's like this is filler, definition of filler for me. Like it's C, just straight up C. Okay. I'm not like pissed if I have this in my deck. I'm not thrilled if I have it in my deck. It's just like fine. It's 1 on my 30 if it needs to be.
Yep. This is in a cycle. We're back to cycles now as well. This is a full cycle. I think the blue is like just nice filler. C, just pure filler. Right. Last card in our Omens set review, Pankaj. We have a returning favorite. We've seen this card a couple of times now. This is Brush Off, generic instant. That comes in a cycle. Again, it costs 0 and is common. And at red says the next time you would be dealt 3 or less damage this turn, prevent it. Yellow says 2. Blue says 1. What do you think of every time we see Brush Off printed? It interacts slightly differently in the context of the set. What do you think of it in this set?
This to me feels like a card I need to really play it a lot more and play with myself way more before I can give any sort of confident grade on it. Currently, what I've written is it's a sideboard grade into Oscilio specifically. I'm talking about the red version, mostly because, well, Aurora and Ziggy don't really send arcane stuff at high at 3 or higher, so it's difficult to get the full 3 value into them. They might send some physical, actually not even that many physical either, so it's pretty tough to get the full 3 into them. But red into Oscilio I could see working. Again, it's kind of, this is where I need to see how it plays out, because if they're sending a whole bunch of tall Arcane again and again, then you still need some other prevention effect to pair with this to get the full 3 on this.
Yep.
And that can make this like super, super awkward or weird. So currently I'm just have it at sideboard grade into Oscilio specifically, and to the others, I'd be sad if I need to put this into the others.
So I think this card actually plays better than it does in other sets on face value, because you have a lot more damage prevention in the equipment slot to pair with this to be able to stop specific breakpoints. So you're coming in with an attack for 4, okay, this plus my Seekers or my Astral, for instance. Obviously there's arcane damage in this format as well, so having a way to play around arcane damage, like you said, although you have to have the ways to be able to stop tall arcane damage. There's also the fact that, like, in a deck like Oscilio, you want to be able to play instants to trigger your effect. I think what I would say, though, is on the flip side of that, you play it against Oscilio and they go, okay, well, I'll discard this. I'll play this other instant that has a Starfall effect and pings you to pop off your brush off, for instance. So I think it balances out to me to be like, I think overall it's like a C-. Like, I think this card is something you can put at red. You can put in like almost any deck, and it won't cost you too much. But
it's risky.
It can be. Yeah, I think it depends on your equipment suite, honestly. You've got to be conscious of how you're going to use this card. But I'm not happy to have this in my deck most of the time. And the only times I really ever want to have it is a sideboard. I don't like drafting this card personally.
Yeah, and also Fragment exists, right? And you're like, oh, I want to block 3 in a Fragment, but then it's a brush off, and it's like, oh, it's like so sad.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, and there's no overpower in the set. So it's not like this helps you with overpower sort of things.
Yeah. Or like Benji evasion, which is how it was in Outsiders a lot.
Correct. Yeah, cool. Awesome. All right, that is our Omens or Arcana full limited set review of the commons and rares ahead of pre-release this weekend. And then, of course, we get straight into all things limited with Omens of the Third Age. I'll be calling Auckland next weekend. Pankaj, I'm looking forward to that. I want to end the pod by just talking about maybe 1 or 2 cards. Let's go one each. One card you want to highlight that you think you could be very wrong about, potentially. And then one card...
one?
Yeah,
Gosh.
Just one. Just choose one. I was here all day. One card you think you could be very wrong about, and one card that you think we're going to look back on and say, this is a staple of the format. This is a card that people are going to put in their top 5 pack one, pick one picks by the time we finish out this format.
Okay. I think I'll go with Storm Shard. I rated that pretty highly. It is one of the cards that we disagreed on. I rated it a B and you gave it a C. We were a full grade apart on that. That's why I'm pretty high on, because I think I've been harping quite a little bit on how important I think physical scam damage is in this set. Mm-hmm. And I think whether that card's good or not, at least will support or disprove my whole theory.
So that's the card you think you could be most wrong about, potentially.
One of them. It was, I think if you ask me to pick one like right now, if you give me more time to think, maybe I can figure something else out.
That's
the one that sticks out to me immediately. Yeah,
I think mine's Flashbolt, the Lightning Wizard instant 2 cost. I probably could have brought these up while we were talking about them. That's a good one. Would have been, but I think this card I'm like, this card I'm not that excited about, but I just more and more I'm getting inkling maybe this card is a lot better than I think, and this card's actually going to be looked back on as actually quite a good card. But I only gave it like a C+ ranking, so we'll have to see. I can just see a way that Oscilio decks end up being built with this kit. This card is like pack one, pick one kind of slam quality, which would be pretty
I give this a C+/B-, and I was like, I'm in the same boat as you. I think we both rated it very equally. Mm-hmm. I think part of it is also we looked at it right after we saw Core Reaction. I think we both were like, Core Reaction feels so much better. But I could see us being wrong about that one for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to put forward for a card that we think maybe format defining at the end, or we get to the end, it's like definite pack one, pick one, kind of top 5s. I think Starflow Robes is just like the ultimate pack one, pick one to me right now when I look at things. I'm like, utilize of 2 resources, ability to create lightning flow token, turn 0 equity, and like equipment. This is kind of the card that I think is like what I want to see pack one, pick one right now. And I could be wrong and it ends up being good, but like actually alternatively just replacement level. But I think this card is kind of nuts. And I think probably I'll be surprised if it's not a top 5 pack one, pick one by the time we finish out this format.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I have all the prevention equipments at A, basically, just because I think it's super important to have them. So and within, I do agree with you. The chess piece definitely feels like the best version of it. I'm not as low on the others as you were, I believe. I think I still give them A minuses, the tiara and the lace lightning. Curious to see whether that continues to be that way. But the chess definitely is just, you see that, you just pick it up and you're super happy.
Cool. Final card from you that you think will be a pack one, pick one, top contender by the time we finish things out.
Ooh. Okay. Okay, this is a very risky one. This is like a super risky one. But I'm just going to call it. I think this is the one which I could be quite wrong about. I think I might have mentioned this when we were going through it as well. Star World Warning. I don't see this becoming a pack one, pick one. But I can see this being way better than I rated it. This is the 1-cost yellow lightning instant that creates 2 lightning flow tokens. I give it a C-/D+, saying that it's best into Oscilio, I think, because it's been good. If Oscilio's involved on either side, I could see this being better than I think it is right now as we progress through the format.
I feel like another shout would have been. I was actually surprised. I thought you might have chosen one of the twice per turn instants, like a Meteoric Rise or a Flowing Storm Strike, but that's okay.
Oh yeah, those are good too. But I think I rated them fairly well, right?
Yeah, no, I'm asking, what do you think at the end of things will be a definite pack one, pick one, like top 5 pack one, pick ones? But
yeah,
cool.
I could see it.
Awesome. Well, that is our Omens of Arcana. What did I just say? Omens of the Third Age. I was looking at the macro.
Which is Omens of the Third Age.
I was looking at the macro. Omens of the Third Age limited set review. Good luck to everyone playing in pre-releases this weekend, or if you're off to other limited events in the future. Big thanks to all the Arsenal Pass patrons, and until next week, we'll be back talking all things classic constructed Punkage. This has been episode 267 of Arsenal Pass, and we'll see you in the next one.